Welcome back to this channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching what if Fem Naruto was trained by Scorpion. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
A young girl, no older than 5, was running from a group of men who were pursuing her when a dense fog engulfed everything in its path. It was always this way. She had no idea what she was doing, and despite her best efforts to be kind and decent, they all seemed to despise her. For reasons she didn't know, she was even expelled from her orphanage. She had no family, no friends, and no one who was interested in her. As she attempted to escape her assailants, she stumbled and gazed up into the villagers' expressionless faces. She considered yelling, but it wouldn't help. Nobody would come to her aid. Only one person had ever attempted to save her before, and he wasn't present. She squeezed her eyes shut. She heard screaming and felt something hot splash over her. She was too terrified to open her eyes to see what was happening. She looked down at herself, covered in blood, and saw all the corpses around her. When she finally opened her eyes, "What is your name, child?" was said in a cool, dead tone. She turned to see eyes without pupils. The man had a sword strapped to his back, a black hood with a yellow face mask, and yellow and black undergarments. His belt had an odd marking on it. Something inside of her told her to run. Run from this man. But her legs wouldn't carry her. She didn't know what he was playing at, but she was afraid of him. He had just killed her attackers and had not even a scratch. She said, "My name is Naruko," with weakness. "What is your name?" she asked with a little more courage after she was certain he wouldn't kill her. "My name," he said in the same cool, dead tone. "You will call me master or sensei. You don't need to know my name." A man wearing a dog mask yelled, "Naruko, get away from him." 2 more masked ninjas followed him. In the same calm voice, he said, "I have saved this child's life, so it belongs to me now. Stop me if you can." She was sick of this village and tired of constantly watching over her shoulder. But Naruko recognized the dog-masked shinobi who had previously saved her. "No," she said in a whisper. Dog said, "Naruko, what did you say?" "No, I am going with sensei," she said, her eyes hardening. Then she felt a big hand on her shoulder before they both disappeared. A shinobi wearing a weasel mask said, "Senpai, what do we do?" The dog-masked shinobi said, "We tell Hokage-sama the truth," and the 3 of them disappeared. After 7 years in a particularly bad mood, a rave-haired boy was assigned to a team with 2 losers from his class. This was only going to slow him down, especially if he had any of those obnoxious fangirls. He detested them. He walked to his usual seat in the back of the classroom after opening the door and peered out the window, wondering which of these losers he would be forced to sit with. Students started filing into the classroom. Gradually he heard Sakura exclaim, "I win, Ino Pig," as the banshees finally arrived. "In your dreams, I won the billboard, brow," exclaimed Ino. "My big toe crossed before you did, Ino Pig." The voice that said, "Sasuke, looks like your fan club is here," was just as annoying, but given the source, it was surprisingly more masculine. He turned to give Idate Morino, who was laughing while seated behind Kiba, a stern look. Sakura said, "Sasuke-kun, may I sit next to you?" Ino screamed, "No, I'm going to sit next to him." Regardless of how many times he rejected them, they never left him alone, so Sasuke remained silent. The class went silent as Iruka said, "Okay, sit down so I can assign your teams." When he got to Team 7, he took a deep breath before reading the list of teams. Team 7, Haruno Sakura. "Uchiha Sasuke." "Yes," yelled Sakura. "And Morino Idate," Iruka began, but before he could finish the name, Sakura's head struck the desk in dismay. Sasuke thought this could not get any worse. Hinata was weak, but at least she didn't bother him, so why could he have someone like her? Team 8 will be comprised of Inuzuka Kiba, Aburame Shino and Hyuga Hinata. Team 9 is Akamichi Choji, Nara Shikamaru, and Yamanaka Ino. "Alright, go to lunch and when you return you will meet your Junin sensei," Iruka stated in order to avoid his fan club. Sasuke left the room first. After lunch, he returned to the room where the Junin had come to pick up their students. Before long, only Team 7 remained. Idate threw a ball against the wall and bounced it back to him. 3 hours later the door opened just as the thrown ball was about to strike it, striking a gray-haired Junin in the head as he entered the room. "You're late," yelled Sakura, and Idate. Sasuke appeared astonished by their new sensei. "My first impression of you all, I don't like you," he said in a bored tone. "Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes," he said, and then he disappeared once more. Sasuke exclaimed in surprise, "So that is our sensei?" Every one of them stood up and walked to the roof's summit. They claimed that their sensei was leaning against a rail when they arrived. With the same bored tone, Kakashi said, "Well, let's take this time to get to know each other, so tell me about yourselves." Sakura inquired, "Like what do you want to know?" After being asked, Tell us your name, like, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams, Kakashi responded. Idate smiled and said, why don't you start showing us how it's done? Very well, my name is Hitaki Kakashi. My likes and dislikes, I don't want to tell you. My hobbies, I have a few. As for my dreams, I haven't really thought about it. Next is you, Pinky, said Kakashi. Sakura scowled at the moniker. She blushed as she turned to face Sasuke and said, my name is Haruno Sakura, and I like my dream. She turned back to face Sasuke. Your dislikes? Inquired Kakashi. She said icily, Ino Pig and Idate's head dropped. Kakashi remarked, okay, the dark and brooding, aware that this was already going to be an intriguing group. Idate and Sakura recoiled slightly when he said, my name is Uchiha Sasuke. I don't particularly like anything. I hate many things, and I don't have dreams because I will make them reality. I will restore my clan and kill a certain someone. But Kakashi had already anticipated that. Idate knew who Kakashi was referring to because he was the last one. Alright, the idiotic looking one, Kakashi said with a smile. As he looked at Sakura, he grinned and said, my name is Morino Idate. I like pretty girls and I dislike ugly ones. I also dislike Sasuke hobbies. Well, I can't tell you that my dream is to be respected by my older brother. Just as I thought, nodded Kakashi. Idate scratched the top of his head and asked, what is that? Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. But since I have you here, I should tell you tomorrow morning you will have your first mission, Kakashi replied. Sakura inquired, what kind of mission? A training mission, but I guess you could consider it more like a test, replied Kakashi. A training mission, but we have done things like that in academy, Sakura replied. Everyone was upset when Kakashi said, no, not like this. This test has a 66% failure rate. This test will determine your future as shinobi, though some people displayed it more than others. Idate, who had barely passed the first test, yelled in horror, so what was the point of the graduation test if we are just going to be tested right away? That was just to weed out the weaker of the bunch. Now this is to find the best of the rest, replied Kakashi. Now for the details of the test. You will have to wait until tomorrow to find out. Meet me at the train ground 7 at 5 in the morning. Oh, and one more thing, don't eat anything or you will be sick. And then he disappeared. Without saying a word, Sasuke got up and went home, where, in contrast to the main part of the village, no one loved him, no one told him how wonderful he was, no one at all understood how he felt, and he was alone, the last of the great Uchiha clan. The little genius was all they knew. However, he could have saved his family from him if he had been a true genius. He had to work hard for everything he had, and that man was a true genius who refused to let anyone take it away from him. He was the first to arrive at the training ground the following morning, and his worthless teammates soon followed. Their sensei had not yet sighed, and it had been almost 5 hours before Kakashi showed up. Yo, he said, emerging in a cloud of smoke. Sakura yelled at him, you're late. Idate joined her. Lamely, he apologized for getting lost on the road of life. Well, we've wasted enough time, so let me get down to explaining what you are to do, he said with a smile. As Kakashi produced 2 silver bells, Idate sarcastically questioned, yeah, and whose fault is that? Each of you is to get one of these bells. Kakashi began to clarify, but Sakura interrupted him. She remarked, but sensei, there are only 2 bells. Very good, you can count. This ensures that at least one of you will fail, but there are no guarantees for the rest of you. You must take the bells from me, and if you want any chance of getting them from me, you have to be willing to kill me, replied Kakashi. Sakura noticed the rope and the 3 lunches and inquired, what happens if we don't get a bell? Kakashi grinned and said, well, you get tied to the stump while the rest of us eat out lunch in front of you. As they all became even more appalled and understood why he had instructed them not to eat. When Idate pulled out a kunai and attacked Kakashi, they all blinked and missed it. Idate's weapon was aimed at the back of his head, and Kakashi had one hand on top of Idate's head while his free hand held Idate's hand with the kunai. You want to die very well, Idate said. Well, I don't hate you as much as I did, but I never said start. You have until noon, so, start. All of them disappeared. Well, at least they can conceal themselves. Idate was attempting to slip away in search of the food. Kakashi, who was reading a book, said politely, hello, may I ask where you are going? Idate slowly spun around with a feeble smile. Weakly, I was looking for you, he said. Well, I have saved you the trouble. Kakashi continued to smile. He smiled up at his sensei and said, can I take a rain check? This isn't really how I envisioned fighting you. Oh, and how did you envision fight me? Idate got up and started running as quickly as he could. Sneaking up behind you, taking the bells when you aren't looking, then run away as fast as I can, kind of like I am about to do, he said when he turned to look behind him. Kakashi was not following him when he ran into something solid. He realized that he was terribly mistaken in thinking that he must have lost him. He gazed up into his sensei's masked face as if he had nothing better to do. Kakashi continued to read his book. Idate yelled, "Here goes nothing," and attacked Kakashi with all of his might, not realizing Sakura was observing them who would decide whether she should go look for Sasuke or assist him. Even though she didn't like Idate, she could just leave him alone because only Sasuke was capable of defeating Kakashi as he read the book in his right hand and battled his students. Kakashi blocked a kunai that she threw with his left hand. Kakashi asked, glancing in the direction where Sakura was hiding, "So you want to join in the fight too? How did he recognize me? If he already knew where she was," she reasoned, there was little reason to keep hiding with a kunai in hand. She leapt out and launched an attack. Sasuke, who was watching from a distance, saw his opening and waited for his moment to strike. Sasuke jumped from the bushes making his hand signs, fire style. Fireball jutsu. Kakashi managed to dodge the attack, looking stunned at the young Uchiha after managing to burn the string holding the two bells. Sasuke discovered them resting on the ground. Sasuke felt his victory slip from his grasp as Idate and Sakura picked up the bells. Everything he had worked so hard to achieve had just been taken away. "Sasuke, here, take it," Idate said, holding out the bell as he glanced between Sakura and Sasuke and inhaled deeply. Sasuke said, "You know that if you give me that bell you will fail," as his figure hovered just inches away from the fixture. His free hand was rubbing the back of his head. "Well yeah, but if it had been for you and Sakura, I would have been in big trouble," he said. Idate felt sick to his stomach as he looked up at his sensei, who was glaring down at him. "You know what this means, right?" Kakashi said, approaching them. "What?" he said, attempting to control his shaking voice. His statement, "You all pass," startled them all. "Wait, what? I thought you," Sakura said, perplexed. "The point of this was to see how well you could work together as a team. Granted, I don't think you all did it on purpose, but you still managed to do it, so I can't in all honesty fail you," Kakashi said with a sigh. Sakura said, "So what do we do now?" As they all began to walk, Kakashi said, "I don't care. Go work on team building activity or something. We will meet up tomorrow at the bridge at 10. They paused and turned to face him again, and he said, "I still don't like any of you," before disappearing, leaving them speechless. For the first time, Kakashi was waiting for them at the main gate, so Sasuke headed there. They were accompanied by an elderly bridge builder who was still dissatisfied with his escort. The sight of his sensei made Idate laugh. "Sensei, you're early for a change," he said. "So they came. I thought they were all talk," the bridge builder said icily. Rewind. "Hokage, I am tired of these fake missions. I want a real mission, something that I can showcase my skills," Idate said with conviction. Sakura yelled, "Watch how you talk to the Hokage, you idiot," and struck him in the head. "I hate to admit it, but he is right, about a real mission," composed Sasuke. With his pipe in his mouth, the Hokage questioned, "Kakashi, do you think that they are ready for a higher ranked mission?" Kakashi said, "Yes, Hokage-sama," bowing to him. "Then meet your mission. Enter," called the Hokage, and in came an old man with a bottle of sake in his hand. The bridge builder said, disgusted, "These runts are supposed to protect me. They look like they should still be in diapers." "Look, we are more than capable of protecting you, but I see why you need protection. If we weren't being paid to do it, I would think about kicking your old ass," Idate yelled. Kakashi opened his orange cover book and disappeared, saying, "Hey, calm down, we will leave tomorrow at 10. Give people some time to calm down and sober up." Finish the flashback. It was a perfect day with no clouds in the sky. When they left the village, they passed a poodle. When they could no longer see the village, the only people who seemed to find this odd were Kakashi and Sasuke, who both knew that it hadn't rained in a week and that, given the temperature, all of the poodles ought to have dried up by now. Kakashi was abruptly snagged by chains and torn to pieces. When two shinobi saw the young leaf shinobi, they burst out laughing. One of them remarked, "This will be easier than I thought." The other said, "I think you are right. What do we do now that Kakashi was killed?" Idate stared at the two shinobi in front of him, his thoughts frozen with terror. Sasuke yelled, "Idate, get your act together and concentrate on the mission," but it didn't help him stand motionless. "Sakura, stay with the bridge builder. I'll take care of those two." For good measure, Sasuke threw a second one after he charged them with kunai drawn and pinned their chain to a tree. The chain snapped off as he ran up and kicked them both in the faces, and they headed toward Sakura and the bridge builder. They both stopped when Kakashi grabbed them by the necks, but Sasuke could still reach them in time if he had more strength. Kakashi told the bridge builder, "You have some explaining to do," as the two would-be killers went limp in his hands. Sasuke, "Sakura, you did well." Idate, "What happened?" "Sorry, sensei, I froze. It won't happen again," he said, feeling embarrassed as he looked at the ground. Kakashi's voice was colder than they had ever heard him say, "This is not a C-ranked mission. This is more of a B or possibly an A-ranked mission, so you lied to us." The bridge builder said in a begging voice, "Yes, I know I am sorry. My homeland is poor and if this bridge doesn't get finished it will remain that way." As if regaining his confidence, Idate said, "Come on sensei, we can finish this. Look at it this way, they will owe us one if we ever need anything," he said with a smile. Kakashi questioned, "Do the rest of you want to finish this mission?" "Okay, we'll complete this mission," said the other two, nodding. Kakashi tied the two demon brothers to a tree so that the patrol unit could pick them up. "Thank you all so much." The bridge builder said two individuals emerged from the shadows after they had departed. The demon brothers arrived shortly after, bound to a tree, and attempted, but failed, to free themselves. One of the two strangers emerged from the shadows, a big man of about 6'2" who was dressed in yellow armor, black underwear, and a black hood. A much shorter blonde shinobi was standing next to him. She wore a blue bandana over most of her blonde hair, an orange vest, a baggy blue shirt, orange pants, and blue ninja sandals. "Master, so was that Kakashi the copycat ninja?" the blonde young woman inquired. "Yes," the name said in a voice devoid of feeling. The young blonde said, "I think I have a new plan," grinning foxy. The big man said, "Oh, that's new," in the same tone. The blonde pouted and said, "Master, that's not funny. I do make plans sometimes." "You are Scorpion," uttered in horror by one of the demon brothers. "Master, he knows who you are. Does that mean you are going to kill them?" "Yes," he replied, drawing the sword from its sheath on his back and using a single swipe to remove the heads of the two shinobi. The corpses were the only evidence of their presence before they both disappeared. "Sensei, those three, they're my age, right?" the blonde asked as the two shinobi hid in the shadows to watch the battle between Zabuza and the leaf shinobi. "Yes," said he calmly. "Then why are they so weak?" "Because they haven't been through the training you have. You were forced into a world of kill or be killed, at a very young age. This is their first time," he said. The blonde said, "Well, I guess that makes sense." As she rubbed her chin as they watched the final moments of the fight, she said nothing. The leaf shinobi ultimately prevailed, but Kakashi was barely able to walk following the battle. She remarked, "Sensei, Kakashi is rather weak too." "No, it is just harder when your attention is split like that. His own team is like his enemy. He has to watch them along with his opponent. He has to protect them from attacks along with himself. If he would have been alone it would have been a story. Zabuza would be dead right now," Scorpion replied. She said, "That makes sense," and they both disappeared. A week later, Kakashi was teaching them tree climbing jutsu in a nearby wooded area. Kakashi left them to fend for themselves. After a brief conversation, seeing his students' ears, he halted and said, "I know you are there, so just come out." A little blonde girl with bright blue eyes and scars that resembled whiskers emerged from the shadows. Half of her back was covered in blonde hair. She was dressed in orange shorts, blue ninja sandals, and a blue t-shirt. As though gazing at a ghost, Kakashi questioned, "Is that you, Naruko?" She said, "You know me, but I am sorry I don't know you," with a smile gone. He said, "I am Hitaki Kakashi," not anticipating her presence. "What are you doing here?" he asked. She declared, "I am on a quest to find the world's best ramen." With a dreamy expression, Kakashi hasn't changed since she was a child, as evidenced by the drop of sweat that formed on the back of her head. Rewind. Kakashi sat by the bedside of a young girl, no more than 4 years old. He had just rescued her from a furious moderator during his time on duty. He always wore his dog mask as directed. He wanted to read his recently released book, but he was unable to do so because he was supposed to be watching Naruko, and if something happened to her while he was reading it, Hokage-sama would destroy all the copies in the village. She hid under her covers when she woke up because she saw him. She screamed, "Stay away from me," from beneath her blanket, believing that this would protect her from him. Kakashi said politely, "Naruko, you don't need to be afraid of me. I won't harm you." She peered from under her blankets and said, "You probably think I'm a monster too. How do I know you aren't lying to me?" Kakashi said, "No, you're not a monster." As politely as he could, she looked at him incredulously as she lowered the blanket a bit further. Her face flushed a little when he heard her stomach growl. Under his mask, Kakashi smiled and asked, "Are you hungry?" She gave a small nod. "What would you like to eat?" She said, "Ramen." In a low voice, Kakashi said, "Okay, let's go get some ramen." And as she leapt out of bed, her eyes brightened and she smiled broadly. She didn't take long to feel prepared to leave. He was astounded by how quickly her offer of ramen had altered her attitude toward him. She changed from a shy, timid youngster to a joyful, carefree child who hung on his arm and grinned brightly up at him. "Why do you wear that mask?" Naruko asked him as they arrived at Ichiraku Ramen Bar. He explained, "It's a sign of my status in the Anbu," but she didn't get it. "You know how the Hokage-sama wears the hat and robes?" she asked, nodding. "Well, in my position we have to wear mask." She smiled and said, "Oh, I see, I'm going to call you Puppy-sama." Kakashi questioned, "Puppy-sama, why Puppy-sama?" He felt his heart melt when she smiled up at him and said, "Because I don't like dogs, they chase me, but I like puppies and I like you. Sensei, I will keep her safe, I promise I will, even if it costs my life," Kakashi thought to himself. After a year he was pursuing her. He hoped to reach her in time. He wanted to know why Mizuki had left his post, but that was irrelevant for now. He would deal with that later. He needed to find her before something bad happened to her. She was covered in blood and surrounded by corpses. When he eventually caught up to her, was this something she did? He looked at the man standing next to her, who was dressed in all black and yellow and had a symbol he had never seen before. "No, someone else did," he said. Kakashi yelled at her, "Naruko, get away from him." In the same calm voice, he said, "I have saved this child's life, so it belongs to me now, stop me if you can." "No," she said in a whisper. Dog said, "Naruko, what did you say?" "No, I am going with Sensei," she said, her eyes hardening. Then she felt a big hand on her shoulder. Before they both disappeared, he could have protected his only daughter, but he had let his sensei down. "Finish the flashback," Kakashi said politely. "Why don't you come with me, Naruko?" Her chakra vanished as she turned to go, waving as she said, "Let me think about it," rubbing her chin. "No, I think I will pass, bye-bye," she said. "I'm not sure why she's here, but does that imply that he is as well?" He reasoned that since Zabuza was no longer the biggest threat, it wouldn't be that simple. Just in case, he made the decision to monitor his students more closely. They were all at the bridge a month later, and although Kakashi had not seen Naruko since, he had a hunch she was still there. Kakashi called out to his team, "Defensive formations," as the fog began to roll in. Zabuza calmly remarked, "Kakashi, you still haven't ditched the brats, they're just dead weight, unlike mine suburbanite," as a masked shinobi materialized. Kakashi had assumed the hunter Nin had been conspiring with him all along. While Kakashi and Zabuza were at a standstill, Sasuke began fighting the masked shinobi. Sakura and Ide were arranged in a circle. It didn't last long because Sasuke started to lose the battle, and he was unable to assist him without opening the others up to Zabuza. "Sasuke is doing well in battle, so if I can deal with Zabuza we should be fine for now." As Sakura put it, "Ide, are you going to help Sasuke?" He said feebly, "But I can't, my legs won't move, I'm sorry, I'm too scared." Ide's voice trembling. Sakura began to run in Sasuke's direction, but Kakashi called out to her. Kakashi said, "Stay where you are at, Sakura, if you try to save him Zabuza will kill you," wishing he could do something. Naruko watched as a student of Kakashi engaged in combat with a student of Zabuza. She heard a voice without emotion ask, "What will you do?" Without responding, she threw a kunai in Sasuke's direction, but the masked shinobi caught it. "Interesting," Naruko said, beginning to smile, "this might be a little entertaining," before disappearing and resurfacing on the opposite side of the dome. She then threw another kunai, this time catching it with a smile that grew even wider before exclaiming, "Boom," as the kunai exploded, blasting Haku out of the ice dome with his right arm and chest blown off and his mask cracked from the explosion's force. Haku lay on the ground, slowly dying. She approached Sasuke, who appeared to be a gigantic pincushion, as he sat panting. Sasuke gazed up into his savior's face, which was marked with bright blue eyes and whisker-like scars. Beneath his blue bandana, a sliver of blonde hair showed through. In addition, he wore a blue long-sleeve shirt, pants, and an orange vest. The child simply grinned as he turned away, and a strange symbol that resembled a scorpion appeared on his back. Sasuke stood up and trailed the stranger back to the other people. "How weak am I? This kid did something that I couldn't do, and he did it without any issues. From where did you originate?" As they entered his field of vision, Zabuza inquired, "Where is Haku?" "In pieces over his defeat," Naruko remarked lightheartedly. "Why you?" Zabuza said, drawing his sword and charging them. Sasuke was grinning as he looked at the blonde stranger, but before he could get close to them, a bright light and an odd noise sounded. Zabuza stopped dead in his tracks as Kakashi's attack struck him, and he looked down at the hand protruding from his chest. Kakashi pulled his hand back, and Zabuza fell to his knees. As the fog began to clear, they saw, for the first time, a pile of corpses at the end of the bridge. "Who are those men, Tazuna?" Kakashi summoned the bridge constructor. When the bridge builder called back, "They look like Gado's men," Kakashi thought, "so there is someone else here, or did Naruko kill them before saving Sasuke?" And he removed the band covering his Sharingan. "Who are you?" Sasuke inquired. She heard Sakura whisper to Kakashi, He's kind of good looking but not as good looking as Sasuke thou. Who are you referring to? She said, sulking a little. Allow me to introduce everyone, Kakashi said in his dull voice as usual. That one is Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Morino Idate. This is Uzumaki Naruko, everyone. Idate remarked, but that sounds like a girl's name. Sakura and Idate looked shocked, and Kakashi inhaled deeply as Naruko yelled, because I am a girl you ass wipe. As she removed her bandana and her hair fell to her back, Sasuke felt his heart skip a beat. Is that a proper way for a young woman to speak, Naruko? Kakashi inquired. Stop talking to me like you know me, you don't know anything about me, Naruko yelled. If Kakashi hadn't made a mistake, she would still be in Konoha, but he would like to think that it would have been for the best. I'm sorry, Naruko, he said sincerely. Idate was sitting by himself that night, gazing up at the sky, when a blonde girl suddenly materialized next to him and said, Hey, it was Naruko, wasn't it? Taking a seat next to him, she said calmly, You're pathetic, without saying anything else. What do you say, and why? Idate said in a trembling voice. In the same tone, she questioned, What makes you think that you are fit to be a shinobi? You are nothing more than a coward? I'm not a coward, he yelled. I heard what you said on the bridge and saw how you froze up against the demon brothers. Who are you trying to convince, yourself or me? She looked at him and could still see the fear in his eyes as she said, Your fear of death is going to get you or your teammates killed. I will do better next time, he told himself more than she did. It was my first mission. As Kakashi has demonstrated, there are shinobi who are more powerful than the demon brother in Zabuza. She turned her head back to the sky and said, And when you were frozen there like a scared child, you are useless, no less than useless. You are a liability, and if you keep it up you will get your teammates killed trying to protect you. Do you mean that I should stop being a shinobi? His voice was shaking as he asked. Although I would never dare to give you instructions, consider this. Do you truly believe you are suited to be a shinobi? She stood up and walked away, grinning at her handiwork. Why would you go tell him that? Kakashi stepped out of the shadows and asked. Did I say something incorrectly? Do you really think he is fit to be a shinobi? She asked innocently, without expecting an answer. He called out to her as she left, but Kakashi remained silent, knowing she was correct, but he didn't understand why she had aided them or where her sensei was. He said, Naruko, you have changed, in a painful voice. She turned and smiled at him, saying, I couldn't stay that 4-year-old girl you took out for ramen forever, puppy-sama. I was forced to grow up, and then she disappeared. Kakashi could hear the anguish in her voice, which only made his failure feel even more painful. The voice behind him said, Kakashi-sensei, but it was weak. Idate, what is it? Kakashi asked, turning to face him. Based on the expression on his face, he assumed he already knew. My brother was correct, and Naruko is correct. I am not suited to be a shinobi, so I'm going to keep quiet every time I encounter an adversary. I simply obstruct their path. Idate fumbled for the right words. Really, did you ever aspire to be a shinobi? Kakashi inquired. No, I just did it to make my brother proud of me, he gave a halting response. Kakashi said, I am sure whatever you do, your brother will be proud of you. I know I will be, and Idate gave a small smile. Idate said, Thank you. Kakashi-sensei, don't tell the others yet. Wait until we return to the village and you have someone to replace me. Now to deal with a certain blonde, Kakashi thought to himself. Kakashi sat next to Naruko as she sat by herself on the beach, gazing out over the ocean and listening to the sound of the waves lapping against the sand. Kakashi, is there anything you need? Yes, I am lacking one student. Will you join my team again in Konoha? Kakashi asked, grinning at her with his upside-down UI. Do you recall when we first met, Kakashi? She asked, glancing at him. As he said, Yes, you hid under your blanket when you saw me. She blushed a little. Well, do you recall the restaurant you took me to? Glancing back at the ocean, she asked. It was because you disliked dogs that you gave me the name Puppy-sama. I believe you stated that it's because they pursue you, Kakashi replied, making her blush even more. What about it? Her voice was small as she said, I will if you take me back there. You have a deal, he said, giving her a congrats pat. 1 week later Sasuke would tell anyone, but he didn't mind because she was the only girl he had ever met who didn't throw herself at him. Sakura didn't like it because she saw Naruko as another advisor for Sasuke's affection. Kakashi and his team had finished the mission and were returning to Konoha with Naruko alongside them. He didn't know why, but Naruko was staying close to Kakashi, and he didn't know why this bothered him so much. Normally, he would have done anything to get the Konoha girls to leave him alone, but she was different. She hardly spoke to him at all, and she seemed to only like talking to Kakashi, or was he the only person she felt comfortable talking to? He wanted to know what their relationship was, and he was certain she wasn't from Konoha because he had never seen her before, and he had never seen her with the symbol on her back. Well, that is it for your first mission out of the village. Tomorrow we will meet at the bridge at 10, Kakashi said, turning to face his students and Naruko upon their arrival. You promised, Naruko reminded Kakashi as she took him by the arm as he was about to disappear. When Kakashi said, well, I guess you can come along and we will go after I finish giving my report to the Hokage. Sasuke scowled a little because he wanted to know what he had promised, but they both disappeared before he could say anything. Sasuke then chose to investigate the odd symbol on her back. Tower of Hokage. After knocking on the door and hearing a voice say, come in, Kakashi opened it to find an elderly man smoking a pipe at the desk. Ah, Kakashi, so I take it the mission was a success? Yes, Hokage-sama, but that is not all. Morino Idate has resigned from being a shinobi. He realized that it was not what he wanted out of life, but I have found a third team member already, Kakashi stated. And who is that person? Sarutobi inquired. Uzumaki Naruko, Kakashi said. Sarutobi's eyes widened in disbelief as he saw the girl by Kakashi's side. You're alive, Naruko, and you have no idea how happy I am to see you once more. I was beginning to believe I would never see you again. However, there are a few things I need to know before I can grant your request, Sarutobi stated. Old man, what would it be? Kakashi put his face in his hand in response to Naruko's question, and Sarutobi laughed. He continued to smile and remarked, you haven't changed much, Naruko. Do you still call me old man? She crossed her arms and pouted, saying, in my defense, you were old then and you're even older now. She did not like it when people made fun of her. His words were, you were right, but let's get to the point. Have you been trained as a ninja? Yes, she replied. Can you identify who it is? She replied, no, it's better if you don't know. What's the reason? Both Sarutobi and Kakashi began to question who had trained her and how much she had learned when he said, because when people know who he is, he tends to kill them. All right, have you taken any tests to improve your shinobi status? No. When he saw the symbol on her back as she and Kakashi departed, Sarutobi's smile vanished. Very well, I will accept your request and you both are dismissed, he said. Could he really be her sensei? He asked himself. Sasuke was at the library researching the strange marking when he finally came across a book on ninja clans. He turned the page and looked through the section on Konoha, but he couldn't find anything that fit the description. He then moved on to look for independent clans, and he eventually found the symbol, but all the information was blacked out. Sasuke wondered why someone didn't want anyone to know about this clan, so he tore the page from the book with the symbol and stuffed it in his pocket before putting the book back on the shelf. As he passed Kakashi and Naruko at a ramen bar on his way home, he heard them conversing and said, Kakashi, may I ask you a question? Go ahead, replied Kakashi. Kakashi interrupted her as she was saying, I understand why people hate me, but what I don't understand, why don't you? I mean, I am a... It's as I told you that night because I don't think you are one, Kakashi stated in a firm tone. But I already knew what you were going to say back then, and it did alter my response. I've always known, said Kakashi politely. She hugged him and said, thank you puppy-kun, adding, and thanks for the ramen. They left together, wondering if she would stay with Kakashi, who she was to him, and why he cared if she spent so much time with him. Sasuke arrived at the bridge first thing the following morning, followed by an irritated Sakura and a falsely cheerful Idate. Everyone knew why Sakura was in such a foul mood, and Kakashi was never able to arrive on time. When he and Naruko arrived, it was almost an hour past the time he was supposed to arrive. Sakura yelled, you're late. At him. None of them appeared to have purchased anything, but Sasuke was annoyed not by his tardiness but by the way he used the pronoun we, not realizing that he was more bothered by the fact that she spent so much time with Kakashi or that he cared about it. On our way a black cat crossed our path so we had to take the long way around, he said. What brings her here? Sakura questioned icily. That is a good question, and the answer is just as good with effect from today. She is your new teammate, Kakashi grinned at them. So, there are 4 people on our team? Sakura inquired. No, Idate replied. What does no mean? Sasuke inquired, assuming he already knew the response. After our most recent mission, I came to the realization that I never wanted to be a shinobi. I only did it to please my brother, but I can't stay because I don't have the heart to do it. Staying would have put you all in needless danger. However, I'm glad I got to meet you all, and I hope we'll stay friends, he said with a smile. Sakura exclaimed in disbelief, you don't have to quiet because of that because it was only our first mission. I understand, but it's best that way. He turned off and waved to them as he returned home, saying, I could forgive myself if you died because of my incompetence. They all stood in silence for a while before Naruko finally spoke up. I will let you guys do some team building activities or something, so go bound or something, he said, taking out his book and disappearing. So, will we put up with her all day? Her face was blank as she asked. Sakura said, we should get something to eat, interpreting the opportunity to go out with Sasuke, even if Blondie was going with them. Do you like anything about Naruko? Sasuke asked, attempting to sound indifferent. She said softly, well, I do enjoy ramen. When Sasuke casually said, we can get ramen, her eyes brightened, and she grabbed her teammates by the arms and dragged them to Ichiraku Ramen Bar. Sakura was upset that Sasuke had asked Naruko where she wanted to eat rather than her, but then she had a crazy thought. Sasuke had a crush on Naruko and was constantly staring at her. What does she have that I don't? She asked herself angrily. Sakura whispered to Sasuke, Sasuke-kun, as Naruko skipped the singing. Ramen, ramen, how love ramen, HN, replied Sasuke. Are you a fan of Naruko? Sakura inquired, dreading the response she might receive. He always responded with, HN, but in reality, he never gave it much thought. She was attractive, and she was one of the few women who didn't swoon over him. The only other woman that came to mind was Hinata, but there was something different about her. Instead of acting like a shinobi, she behaved more like a child, skipping around and singing about ramen. When Sasuke asked, dope, do you have to sing the whole way? Naruko turned around, her bewildered expression only enhanced her cuteness. To whom are you speaking? You're the only one singing, aren't you, you dope? When they got there, Naruko had forgotten that she was upset with Sasuke. All she knew was that she was going to eat all the ramen she could afford. Sakura and Sasuke each had one bowl, while Naruko had 4, and she wanted more, but she didn't have much money with her. Well, at least I'm not a mean stuck-up bastard, she said, sticking her tongue out at him before turning around again. Why did he have to say those things to her? He asked himself. Ah, Naruko, I heard you were back in the village, said a cool voice behind them as she finished her 4th bowl. She turned to see a heavily bandaged person. Yes, but am I acquainted with you? Bewildered, Naruko inquired. Danzo looked between the 3 of them and said, no you wouldn't. My name is Shimura Danzo. I would like to have a word with you in private. When his gaze landed on Sasuke, he had a disgusted expression that only Naruko seemed to notice, and she pretended not to notice. What makes you want to speak with me? She inquired. Danzo remarked, all we be clear in due time. Well, will you at least cover my meal since you were interfering with our group bonding? She asked with a smile, and after he paid her bill, she got up and waved to her teammates. They passed through a secret passageway, and she glanced around at the shinobi they had passed. Danzo told her, they are some of my men. I am the head of an Enbu division known as Root, as he put his hand to a door and his chakra flowed through it, slowly opening up before them. The room inside appeared to be some sort of evil scientist's lab, filled with jars of organs and other parts from both humans and animals. Why have you brought me here, and where are we now? Danzo smiled at her sudden change in demeanor. No longer putting up the cheer front, she asked. I am aware that you left the village 7 years ago with a man from the Shirai Ryu, Danzo said casually, just as he had when he first met her. So what? She said with equal coolness. Danzo went on to explain, well, I think we can help each other. When Naruko remained silent, Danzo went on, Sarutobi is a fool. He rules with compassion. We must strengthen our armed forces. Naruko stated, almost icily, I don't hear where this helps me in any way. You are direct. I like that. I am also aware that you and your sensei are looking for the last of the Lin Kuei. I can deliver them to you in return. I would like to form an alliance with the Shirai Ryu when I become Hokage, of course, Danzo said while closely observing Naruko, but her face never shifted. I will also give you the power to take your revenge on those fools who drove you from this village. Her expressionless face lit up with a smile. So, when would you like to meet him? It was a few more minutes before he saw Naruko and another shinobi, who he had seen before and who he was not pleased to see again that night. A big man in black and yellow armor was waiting outside of Konoha. He watched the night sky in silence when he heard 2 people approaching based on the sound of their footsteps. One was small, most likely a young adolescent girl, and the other was a grown man. It's been a long time, Scorpion, proudly Danzo remarked. Danzo, what do you want? Scorpion questioned whether Danzo was a good shinobi because he was still afraid, and he was more afraid now than he had ever been. Danzo declared, I want to form an alliance with you. What do I stand to gain? I will hand-deliver the Lin Kuei to you in 1 week's time, Danzo replied. After Scorpion left, Danzo turned to Naruko. If you don't deliver, I will kill you, Scorpion said before disappearing in a burst of flaming flames. How about we make a deal? Will you accept the authority I'm giving you? Danzo inquired. Yes, she replied. Danzo said, then I will see you tomorrow night, and Naruko returned to the village without knowing where she would stay because she couldn't go to Kakashi's because he would ask her where she had been and she couldn't be honest with him. Dude, why are you by yourself out here? She pouted a little as she turned to face Sasuke. She jokingly remarked, nothing, that involves the high and mighty Uchiha. May I take you home on foot? Without glancing at her, he asked. That's not possible, she claimed with a smile. Why not, he said, attempting to sound indifferent. She grinned and said, because I don't have a home yet. Well, I guess you can stay with me, he said, a little flushed. Is something not right? Your face is red, she said, putting her hand on his forehead. He said icily, I'm fine, but if you want to take me up on offer then come on. She looked up at him and said, I don't understand you. Sasuke, 1 minute you were nice to me, and the next you're mean to me. He tried to turn away, but those large blue eyes just drew him in. What are you discussing, dope? Finally able to turn his head away from her, Sasuke said. Well, maybe it's just my imagination, she said with a smile. So are you from where? He said, follow me, as he passed her. Where have you been staying? Sasuke inquired casually. She said, Kakashi sensei's place, as she fell into his footsteps. Why don't you spend tonight with him? I don't mean to be impolite, but why are you interested? He looked over at her, who was staring straight ahead, and she asked. He said hastily, I'm just attempting to strike up a conversation. Naruko said, well, then, why don't you tell me about yourself? For example, what do you wish to know? With a bored tone, he said. You and Sakura have been dating for how long? Naruko inquired. We're not in a relationship, he yelled in astonishment. Sasuke scowled at Naruko's remark. You don't have to be shy about it, she is a cute girl, as she nudged him in the side. What makes you believe that we are dating? Sasuke inquired. With a tiny voice, she said, she is always hanging on you and I never hear you talk about any other girl, so I just figured, sorry. According to Sasuke, there is no need to apologize. So, do you like someone? As they entered the Uchiha compound, she questioned him. I am not sure yet, he replied. What's so funny? She snickered. She smiled as she said, how can you not know if you like someone or not? You either do or you don't. How about you? Trying to sound casual, he asked. It's complicated, she remarked as she cast her gaze to her feet. How is it difficult? He grinned at her and said, like you said, you either like someone or you don't. Sasuke asked himself, who is she talking about? As they headed to his house. It's complicated because I know I shouldn't, it's a stupid little crush, so forget that I said anything, she said, grinning up at him. Does anyone else live here? She asked, gazing in wonder at the house. When Sasuke said, no, not anymore, it's just me. Naruko said, as they entered the house, what are you in need of? She grinned sheepishly and said, I need to take a shower but I don't have any clean clothes. He took a deep breath and said, okay, I'll let you borrow some of mine and I'll wash yours. He wondered how a ninja could be so unkind, but she was a cute dunce, and he promised himself that he would win her love. He went to his room, got some clothes for her to wear, and led her to the bathroom down the hall from his room. Call if you need anything, he said as he returned to his room before he could forget what she had said. He needed to know who she liked, and he secretly hoped it was him, which is why she had asked if he liked anyone. 10 minutes later, Naruko came into his room, her arms full of her clothes. Where can I wash these? Sasuke. Glancing down at her attire, she posed the question. He said, I will take care of them, and got out of bed. She said, you don't have to, with a hint of blush. She handed them over, and he took them to the laundry room, throwing her clothes in the washing machine and thanking Kami for an all-in-one washer and dryer. It's not a problem, he said firmly, and when he returned to his room, Naruko was sitting on his bed. He said, I should show you to your room, his gaze darting around the room with all of his strength before settling on her. Her voice was filled with panic. I can't stay in here with you, she said. What is causing your fear of the ghost? Ghosts aren't real, you really are a dope, he said in jest, but he started laughing when he saw how tense she was. After pouting at him, she shot back, don't laugh at me, you bastard, they do exist. He was going to tell her, okay, you can stay in here, but stay on your side of the bed, but he felt a little bad about laughing at her. He got into bed with his back to her, and she crawled in, facing the wall, his heart pounded against his chest, and he was shocked that she couldn't hear it, considering how close he was sleeping to her. He felt something warm and soft against his back the following morning, and when he slowly turned around, he saw Naruko pressed firmly against his back. He jumped out of bed and hurried to the bathroom to take a cold shower. "Sasuke, what's wrong?" A sleepy voice inquired. He said, "Nothing, I just need to take a shower," and hurried out of the room. After taking a very cold shower, Naruko said to herself, "He is rather jumpy this morning," and then he dressed and headed back to his room. When he got downstairs, he didn't see her, so he decided to check the laundry room to see if she had taken her clothes, but he stopped when he saw that the door was cracked and that she was standing with her back to him, only wearing her orange and blue striped underwear. He watched as she bent over to pull up her pants, knowing that he shouldn't be watching, but he couldn't help himself, and he finally managed to avert his eyes as she put on her blue shirt. He then proceeded to the kitchen and began preparing breakfast, but it wasn't long before Naruko emerged with a big, happy smile. "Good morning," she greeted him. "HN," he replied without glancing at her. "Are you acting like a bastard, or is there something wrong?" she asked, and he put 2 plates on the table and did everything he could to avoid looking at her because he could feel her eyes burning into the back of his head. "Will you be staying there tonight again?" Without glancing at her, he asked in a bored tone. "No, I am moving into my own place today," she replied, "but I still don't get you. 1 minute you act like you hate me, then you are worried about me." Before going to meet up with Kakashi and Sakura, they ate their meal in silence. Sakura knew what it was about, but she was certain Sasuke didn't. On the way, they noticed a young boy being held up by a man wearing all black, holding a strange bundle tied to his back, and with purple paint on his face. Sasuke inhaled deeply. He would have preferred not to start a fight this early in the morning, but it appeared that he had no choice, primarily because he didn't like the fact that he was thinking like Shikamaru. "We can't just let him do that to that little kid," Naruko said. Sasuke said, "You, let the kid go," in a tone that was bored. "Kankuro, you better be careful. It looks like the village pretty boy means business," said a blonde girl. When Kankuro said, "I know, I am so scared," he laughed. Sasuke remarked, "Well, you should be," but before he could act, Kankuro was choked with a kunai. Only he could hear her whispering, "I would let him go if you value your life," close to his ear. "Why, you little," he had green eyes and the kanji for love over his left eye. "Kankuro, that's enough," said a red-headed boy who was called from a tree that looked down on them all. "You are an embarrassment," he said as he appeared among them. They seemed to be afraid of him because they followed his instructions without question. Kankuro hurriedly said, "I'm sorry, Gaara," as they left. "Wow, that was really intense," Naruko remarked, rolling his eyes. "Thank you, but I don't think I have ever seen you here before," said the kid. "My name is Naruko. Uzumaki Naruko, by the way," she said, turning to face him with a stray hair in her face. "I'm kinda new here," she said, taking off her bandana to straighten her hair before putting it back on. After saying, "I am Sarutobi Konohamaru," he looked closely at her face and his face flushed. "What's the matter?" With concern, she inquired. He said, "You're attractive," and then he saw Sasuke. "Is he your boyfriend?" To which Naruko replied, "You're sweat, and no, his isn't my boyfriend." "Are you dating someone?" "No, is it possible for me to date you?" She ruffled his hair and remarked, "You're so adorable," before catching up to Sasuke, who was making his way to the bridge where they would meet up with Sakura and Kakashi. "Is the answer yes?" He was calling for them. She waved back, "Bye Konohamaru," to him. "Is that a no, then?" However, she simply smiled and turned to face Sasuke without responding to him. She gave him a close look and said, "So you're a pretty boy," but she didn't see it. When they arrived at the bridge, Sakura was already waiting and was not pleased to see them together, so he felt a little like he was dying inside. Sakura grabbed hold of him and glared at him. "Sasuke-kun, why is she with you?" she asked. He stated calmly, "She stayed at my house last night," and Sakura's expression was one of horror. Her smile was directed at Sakura, who was still frozen in fear. "Yeah, he was nice enough to let me stay there since I don't have my own place yet, but tonight I am moving into my new apartment," she said. A voice behind them said, "Yo," and they turned to see a smiling Kakashi. Or at least Kakashi's interpretation of a smile. "You're late, Kakashi-sensei," scowled Naruko upon him. Still grinning, Kakashi said, "Sorry, I'm late. I'm afraid I got lost on the path of life." Then he saw Sakura shouting at him, and he asked, "What's wrong with her?" Kakashi was taken aback by Naruko's naive statement. "She found out that I stayed at Sasuke's place last night, but he chose not to show it." "Well, we're here today because the Chunin exam is in a week, and I've nominated each of you to take it, but you can still decide not to after giving each of them a piece of paper and saying, You have until the end of the week to decide if you want to participate or not. Kakashi disappeared once more. Thanks for everything, Sasuke, Naruko said as she ran off. I will see you guys later. I am going to get ready to move into my new apartment. She went to the apartment where Danzo had promised to seat her. It was quite large for a one-bedroom apartment and fully furnished. As night began to fall, she heard a knock on her door. When she opened it, Danzo was there, asking, "Are you ready?" He questioned her. "Yes," she said. "Very good," she said, and they left for his underground lab, where they found a group of shinobi, presumably medical ninja, waiting. "This is an experimental procedure, but we are confident that you will be fine with your unique abilities," she said. "You will require a few days to recuperate from this, so my men will be closely monitoring you. By the time of the test, you should be at 100%. She smiled as she said, "Let's get started." Since Sasuke hadn't seen Naruko in a few days, he was beginning to worry, so he took the paper with the symbol on the back of her vest to the Hokage, who was standing with the door open and staring out the window at Konoha. Without turning around, Sarutobi remarked, "Sasuke, this is an unexpected surprise." Sasuke began, "I am here about Naruko. I haven't seen her for a few days." "But that's not all, is it?" Sarutobi remarked without actually posing the question. "No, I was wondering about who she really is. I mean, I did some research on the symbol on her back and all I could really find out it was not a clan from Konoha," Sasuke replied. "She is from the village, but as you figured out, the symbol is not. She left the village when she was 5 and she wears the emblem out of respect for her sensei, who, I believe, belongs to that clan," Sarutobi continued while gazing out the window. "What clan is that, too?" Sasuke inquired. "If she wants you to know, I am sure she will tell you when she is ready. However, how can I inquire as to whether she has vanished?" Sasuke inquired, growing agitated. A calm voice behind him said, "What makes you think she has gone missing, Sasuke?" Sasuke said, "Danzo, wasn't it?" Icily he said, "Danzo-sama to you, but yes, that is my name," with the same level of ease. "Are you acquainted?" Finally turning to face them and taking the pipe out of his mouth, Sarutobi asked. "Yes, he wanted to talk to Naruko when we met," Sasuke said, giving the man in the bandage a dreadful look. Danzo gave Sasuke a small smile, which only made him appear more eerie. "Yes, and what an interesting girl she is too. It's not hard to see why you have taken a liking to her," he said. "Are you aware of her location?" Sarutobi inquired. "She asked me if she could go out and do some training, and I told her it wouldn't be an issue. Yes, I have some of my men pursuing her at the moment. However, I sent some of my best men to keep a close watch on her for her safety," Danzo replied. "Sasuke, leave us," Sarutobi said. His gaze fixed on Danzo. Sasuke followed instructions, thinking that he would kill the bandaged bastard if he did anything to her. On the day of the Chunin exam, Sasuke had not seen or heard from Naruko, and although he was quite concerned about her, he chose not to show it. Just as Sasuke and Sakura were ready to enter the academy, they heard a call, and when they turned, they saw Naruko sprinting in their direction. She smiled and said, "Sasuke, Sakura, I apologize for being late, I overslept." "Where have you been?" Kakashi-sensei didn't even know where you were, Sakura responded. She pouted a little and said, "He's not my keeper, I was out training, and Danzo-sama told me I could." "I don't like him," said Sasuke calmly. "You know you're a bastard," she said in a level tone. "That's a surprise. So who do you like, Sasuke?" Naruko said. Smiling at him, he had to fight the urge to say you, so he gave his typical response. "HN, he repeated in this one-sided argument, Sakura said. "Let's just get going." Before Naruko could respond, they entered the door and proceeded to the second floor, which was marked with genjutsu that gave the impression that it was the third floor. 2 individuals were at the front of the mass, preventing everyone from entering through the incorrect doors. One of the shinobi said, "If you guys are this weak, you should just go home now," as a boy wearing green spandex and sporting a bowl cut was pushed down. "Please just let us through," pleaded a girl with buns on either side of her head. The other shinobi replied, "No, you must fight us if you wish to pass." Sasuke called out, "You are really pathetic." "Oh, do tell," a shinobi uttered. Sasuke smirked and looked at Naruko. "You cast this horrible genjutsu. We noticed this the second we entered it." "Well, maybe not all of us," he said. "Hey, I noticed it after you said something," she added in a hushed tone, and he forced himself to keep his expression serious and not smile. Sasuke grinned and remarked, "So drop the shitty genjutsu and let them go." "Make us." "Very well," Sasuke said, attacking, aiming a kick at one of them, but his opponent's punch and foot were caught by the man with the bowl haircut. The girl hit Lee on the head and said, "Lee, why did you do that? You were the one who told you not to show off your true strength." "I am sorry, Tenten," but I could not let such a rare beauty see needless violence, Lee replied. Who are you referring to? Tenten inquired, sounding a little uneasy, and Lee vanished, resurfacing on Sakura's knee. What may I call you? My name is Rock Lee, she said. Sakura, not sure if she truly wanted to give him her name. Everything I do from now on is to protect you, Lee declared, his eyes blazing. As Tenten pulled him away, Lee was struck on the head once more and released Sakura's hand that was gripping his head. Okay, she said, attempting to free her hand. Are you not aware that you were frightening her? Tenten said, and they heard it. What's your name, kid? A man with pale purple eyes and long dark hair asked Sasuke. You should give your name before asking for someone else's, Sasuke advised. Are you not curious about mine? Naruko smiled at him and asked. No, he replied icily, causing Naruko's lower lip to tremble and tears to well up in her eyes. You want to be friends with Sasuke but you don't want to be friends with me, her eyes widened. Dope, I don't think he wants to be my friend, Sasuke yelled at her. So why is he interested in your name? She shot back. Sasuke said, you truly are a fool, and he shook his head. He said, well, Sasuke, I'm Neji, and turned to face his teammates after Sasuke watched him leave. When someone called out to Sasuke, he turned to see Rock Lee staring down at them. Let's go, he said as they headed toward the room where they had to be for the test. I'm sorry Naruko, he said after a while. Sasuke Uchiha, I wish to fight you, he stated. Sasuke smirked and said, you know who I am and you still want to fight me. He jumped down to where they were standing and said, yes, you might be a genius of the Uchiha clan, but you cannot beat me. I am the strongest genin. Naruko exclaimed, you're a genie, I didn't know that, before turning to face Lee and grinning at him. People say I'm an idiot, Naruko said. Are you up for a fight? No, I just want to battle Sasuke, Lee sulked. Why am I so unimportant to anyone? She questioned Sakura. Nothing he did seemed to matter as Lee broke through his defenses when he finally had enough. He activated his Sharingan, but even that did not help. Sasuke said, fine, I will fight you, and this will be easy. Making the initial move, it all ended the same way, with him repeatedly hitting the ground. I'm not playing any tricks, so your Sharingan is useless against me. I practice traditional taijutsu even though your eyes can see my movements. Your body cannot react quickly enough. Sasuke, who didn't want to listen to the bullshit that Lee was saying, got up and wiped his mouth, ready to attack when Naruko called out to him. I am the worst match for you, Sasuke, Rock Lee said. She smiled at him and said, Sasuke, that's enough. She turned and saw a turtle. Smart kid, she said. He thinks I'm smart, yay. But wait, did that turtle just say something? Sasuke nodded when Naruko asked him. Sasuke appeared incensed at the news that he had lost to someone like him. Sensei, Rock Lee said, sprinting up to the turtle. I must apologize for lying earlier when I said I was the strongest genin. That honor belongs to my teammate Neji. A turtle is your sensei. I wish Kakashi sensei was a bunny, she said, her eyes glimmering. That is so cool. Why a bunny? Sakura inquired, sounding perplexed. She replied, because bunnies are so cute and I just love them, as though it were clear. A man soon emerged standing on the turtle's back after she said, I take it back, that kid is idiot, and her head dropped in defeat. When he said, you three must be Kakashi's students. Yes, but who are you, really? Naruko inquired in a nice guy pose. He declared, I am Might Guy, Konoha's sublime green beast of prey, and Kakashi's rival, his teeth gleaming brilliantly. Okay, Sakura and Naruko said, scowling a little. Guy went on, and I am stronger than Kakashi too. Falsehoods. Kakashi is stronger than anyone else. Have you ever seen his hair? Its gravity defines how amazing you must be to have hair that can defy gravity. Naruko yelled, gesturing toward Guy. That's not how you talk to Guy sensei, Lee yelled. Guy appeared behind them and said, it's okay, Lee, everyone has the right to their opinion, even if it's incorrect. Guy felt cold, thinking, who is this? No one else seemed to notice Naruko's smile. She exclaimed, wow, you were quick, but she also said, I think we should start now to avoid being late. Like you were this morning, Sasuke relaxedly remarked. She smiled and said, I wasn't late, I just didn't show up on time. What's the distinction? Sakura inquired. I don't know, it just is, she muttered, pouting and crossing her arms. Sasuke said, I swear you act like a child, disregarding Lee and Guy's cries about the flames of youth. Kakashi was standing in front of the exam room when they arrived. He gave one of his Kakashi smiles and said, it's good to see you all here. Well, since you are all here, I can't see any reason to hold you up anymore. Kakashi-sensei, what do you mean? Sakura inquired. Well, I couldn't allow any of you to take the test if none of the three of you showed up. She nodded to him as they entered the room, and the first people they saw were other rookies. But it doesn't matter since you all are here, he said, stepping from in front of the door. One more thing, Naruko. Try not to use your full name just in case. A blonde jumped on Sasuke's back and said, Sasuke-kun, I knew you would make it even with billboard brow and that loser Idate. Where is Idate? Ino pig, get off Sasuke, or your fat ass will crush him, yelled Sakura. Where is Idate, though? A young man holding a dog inquired. He is no longer a shinobi. He decided that it wasn't for him after our ranked mission, Sakura stated. Kiba laughed and remarked, I knew he could cut it as a shinobi. Can I hold this adorable puppy? Naruko smiled and asked. Who's the fool? Then, Kiba yelled. Naruko stuck her tongue out at him and said, you should tell your name before asking for someone else's. Well, I guess I didn't ask you, Sasuke said. Drop it, Kiba, because he is Kiba. The blonde is Ino. Hinata is the only other girl. And then there is Shino, pointing to a boy wearing a high-collar coat and glasses. Shikamaru, pointing to a boy with a ponytail that resembled a pineapple on his head, and Shoji is the last one. You can all call me Uzumaki, she offered with a smile. An older boy with long gray hair and glasses said, wow, you guys are loud. That is something that you don't want to be right now, but he stopped when he saw Naruko's vest's back. What's wrong? Will you explain what you're talking about, or will you just stare at us? Kiba grinned as he spoke. How are you? Naruko asked with a smile, but it didn't reach her icy eyes. He pointed to the audience, who were all glaring at him. No, I'm fine. I was just saying the more you stick out, the worse it is for you. If you don't believe me, look for yourself, he said. Hi everyone, Naruko said with a smile, and Sakura slapped her on the head, saying, oh, what did you do? That was painful. Are you attempting to kill us, idiot? Sakura gave a hiss. No, I am just trying to be nice. Well, stop being nice. Then people won't like me if I'm not nice, confused, Naruko uttered. Anyway, who are you? Sasuke questioned the man wearing glasses. In response to the unasked question, Kabuto grinned and said, I am Kabuto, and I know who you are. Sasuke Uchiha, this year's Rookie of the Year. I have information on just about everyone here, he said. So, what sort of data do you possess? Sasuke inquired. All kinds, like what village and clan they're from, the number of missions each person has had, the rank of the missions, things like that. I have more information on some than others, he replied with a grin. So, you've committed all of this knowledge to memory? Sakura inquired. He said, oh no, it all on these cards, and produced a pile of cards. Who is the strongest shinobi here, then, given that you know all that? Sasuke inquired. Ino remarked, that would be you, of course. Naruko started glaring at Kabuto, challenging him to say anything more that would reveal her identity. If I had to guess, I would say it's down 6 shinobi here. Hyuga Neji, Gaara of the Sand, any of the Lin Kuei that are here, and then the member of the Shirai Ryu, Kabuto said. Lin Kuei, Shirai Ryu, what are those? I have never heard of them before, Sakura responded. They are rumored to be very powerful clans. It is said that the leader of the Lin Kuei is stronger than any of the Sannin, replied Kabuto. Heard rumors? Shikamaru said it again. Yes, there is not much known about either clan since they don't belong to a village. Kabuto admitted with a grin, but they're not the only ones I don't have much information on. I don't know much about Otoga Shinobi either. The front door of the room suddenly flew open, and a man in a black trench coat entered with a very frightened expression on his face. Line up, take a number, and then sit in the corresponding seat, he said, and everyone followed his instructions. She is the Shirai Ryu, Sasuke said, examining the symbol on her back, and that Kabuto guy seems to know about them, but he is hesitant to say anything about them. Is it because he fears for his life? And if so, does that mean he is afraid of Naruko or someone else? How strong is she? Is she as strong as Kabuto is making her out to be? Sasuke was so engrossed in his thoughts that he didn't even hear Sakura calling his name, but he turned to her after feeling her shake his shoulder. What? He yelled. I just wanted to know how you were doing, she spoke quickly. He took his number and then sat down. Yes, I am fine, he said. Hello, I'm Morino Ibiki. Let's move on to the rules now that the introductions are complete. It's your loss if you miss anything, because I won't repeat myself or answer any questions, so pay close attention. You have all probably taken tests before, but this one is different in that you start with a perfect score, 10 out of 10, and you lose points for each incorrect response. However, keep in mind that incorrect answers are not the only way to lose points. You also lose 2 points for each instance of cheating, so if you are caught 5 times, you fail the test. Don't assume that it won't be noticed. Ibiki clarified. The shinobi you see positioned throughout the room are here to ensure that there is no cheating. We've got our eyes on you, a sentinel grinned. A team is scored collectively, but if one person gets caught cheating 5 times their whole team fails, and if one team member gets a 0 the whole team fails, so it all or nothing. Ibiki went on to explain. But I thought you said there were 10 questions on the test, but there are only 9. Sakura inquired. Would you prefer to fail the test now that I didn't ask any questions? Sakura sank into her seat as Ibiki asked icily. You will be given the 10th question 45 minutes into the test. You have 60 minutes to complete this test now, so get started. But they wanted us to cheat or else they would just fail you the first time you got caught. Naruko reflected on the rules, which seemed to place a lot of emphasis on cheating. They make this too easy, she thought to herself, smiling. They want to see how well we can gather information when all the odds are stacked against us. A shinobi's greatest weapon is deception, which this one has mastered. Who is he? Ibiki observed. Has this one figured out already? The test has only just begun. Maybe the stupidity is just an act. Sasuke looked at the question, which was too difficult for most genin to answer. If not all of them, he wondered why only 2 points were deducted for cheating. Since you had to cheat to answer the question, he also wondered if Naruko had figured it out because she wasn't the most skilled shinobi. The group grew smaller as the test went on, until there were only 15 minutes remaining. As more people understood the test's objective, the sentinels started writing more, and soon they were calling out numbers and people began to rise from their seats, accompanied by their teammates. The guidelines for this last question have changed. First, you have the option to skip the last question, Ibiki stated. All right, what would happen if we decided not to answer the last question? Kiba yelled. Regardless of your answers to the rest of the test, you and your team will fail the test, Ibiki said with a grin. The blonde sand Kinochi exclaimed, so with that as our opinion, of course we will take the final question. You didn't let me finish. If you chose to receive the final question and you get it wrong, you not only fail the test but you will be banned from ever taking the exam again. All of them gasped. However, that is unfair because many shinobi have taken the test more than once, Kiba yelled. Yes, I did not proctor those exams, but I am now in charge and set the guidelines. When Ibiki said, if you can't take that risk, raise your hands now and wait until your number is called before leaving. A few people at a time began to raise their hands, and eventually more and more did. After a minute, he said, last call for any among you who wish to leave now. Before continuing, he glanced over the remaining 54 and said, very well, you all pass, grinning, since no one else had spoken up or indicated that they wanted to leave. Wait. What? Kiba uttered incredulous words. The 10th question. What about it? What? Inquired the blonde sand Kinochi. That was the 10th question. As you can see, a shinobi's life is full of challenging situations with potentially unfavorable outcomes. Assume you have been assigned a mission to enter an enemy hideout covertly. You have no idea how many enemy shinobi will be present, and it might be a trap. Do you turn around and head home, or do you keep going on your mission? Just as Naruko sat up, yawning, she turned to face Hinata, the girl next to her. As a shinobi, you finish a mission at any cost, Ibiki explained. Those who would abandon their fellow shinobi and their village, well, as long as I am a proctor, they will never become anything more than genin. Naruko whispered, I feel asleep. Did I miss the last question? This one is truly a strange one, Ibiki thought coolly as Naruko smiled up at him. Good to see you have decided to join us, Ibiki said. So the remaining 9 questions had no purpose? Sakura inquired. No, far from it. They were to see who among you could gather information unnoticed while being watched. In the world of shinobi, information could be the difference between life and death, Ibiki replied. Oh, Naruko said, rubbing her chin, that's why the questions were so difficult. Well, I suppose you learn as you go along. A woman with violet hair and light brown eyes was behind a banner that read, I am the proctor for the 2nd exam, so listen up, maggots, and she stopped when she noticed how many people were still there. Hey Ibiki, you are losing your touch, she said, standing on her tiptoes to glance over the banner at him. Just then, someone burst through the window. For a moment, she looked back at the group, or maybe they're just a stronger batch of applicants this year, she said. No, I don't think so, Ibiki simply laughed. I had intended to go over the guidelines for the 2nd exam, but I'm not in the mood to do so right now. Your senseis should be able to tell you where Battleground 44 is, so meet me there tomorrow at 8. Everyone stood up and departed after she said, dismissed. He began gathering the test papers after the students had left the room. He stopped where Naruko had been sitting and picked it up. It said Inuzumaki and was fully completed with the correct answers, including the question, how many times was number 7 caught cheating? He questioned the shinobi in the room. None. 7 had his head down the whole time, one of them said, thinking, what an interesting kid. Kakashi, how are the students doing, in your opinion? As they sat in a room waiting for word on the whereabouts of their students, a woman with red eyes and a big man with black hair asked him. He read his book in response. I don't know, their chances of passing are already grim, he said. What does that mean to you? She inquired. Morino Ibiki is the proctor for the first exam, Kakashi stated as he turned the following page in his book. Who is he? Asuma chuckled and remarked, I forgot you wear a new junin or you would be asking the Kurenai. So I'm ingrate, so just tell me, everyone knows about Ibiki, the head of Anbu torture and interrogation, he is the best at what he does, Asuma stated. Surely he wouldn't harm the pupils? Kurenai inquired, startled. There was a puff of smoke as a woman with light brown and violet eyes appeared before them. He is not the kind of guy to use physical torture. No, his methods are just as effective. He uses mind games to break his adversary, and I am sure this test will be designed around this talent of his, Asuma said. What do we owe this surprise, Anko? Kakashi asked without raising his head from his book. I came to tell you all that your students passed the first exam, but don't get too excited, I get to play with them next, Anko said with a grin on her face. What was the Sarutobi sensei thinking about allowing you two to be close to the children? Great, another sadist. As he read his book, Kakashi asked in a bored tone. The following morning, while preparing for the second exam, she heard a knock on the door. She opened it to find Sakura and Sasuke standing there grinning at her. Well, Sakura was grinning, while dragging a drowsy-looking Kakashi-sensei behind them. We decided since Kakashi-sensei is always late we would find him and bring him ourselves so we could be on time for a change, Sakura said. Kakashi-sensei, how are we doing this morning? Naruko asked with a smile. Wishing I was back in bed, he replied in a lazier than usual tone. Why could you guys find a map and ask someone else who isn't me to take you anything that didn't bother me? Even Naruko's extreme cuteness could make him smile after being violently woken up by his students, because then we would miss out on your smiling facing on this fine morning, Naruko replied, smiling at him, but he wasn't smiling ultimately. He led them to Battleground 44, but he quickly disappeared after he had. People began to worry a little when the words, alright maggots, listen up, welcome to Battleground 44, or better known as the Forest of Death, were spoken. There are 2 scrolls, the Heaven and Earth scrolls. You need one of each. You have 5 days to reach the base in the middle of the forest and obtain both scrolls. So 50% of use will pass under ideal conditions, but this isn't the ideal situation, is it? Sakura inquired. No, it's not that far at all. You will be subjected to a rigorous survival test for 5 days while surrounded by enemies around the clock. Anko grinned at the genin and said, in addition to not knowing who has which scroll, you will have to deal with the things that live in that forest. Can we declare the exam quiet if we decide halfway through that we no longer want to take it? Shikamaru inquired. Anko laughed as someone handed out the papers to everyone. You can try, but I don't think it will work that well for you, and know this, I am not coming in there to bail your sorry asses out, she said. Oh, and one more thing before we go any farther, I need you all to sign these waivers or I will be responsible for your safety, and that is just too much trouble. All right, after you sign your waivers, the group will call you up. You will then turn in your waiver and receive your scroll 10 minutes later. They started calling up teams to retrieve the scrolls, and it took an additional hour to go through each team. I will give you your last bit of directions for the exam after everyone gets one, Anko said as he got the extras back. There are 4 ways to get disqualified. 1 is if you fail to collect both scrolls in 5 days. 2, make it to the base at the center of the forest in 5 days. 3, if 1 or more of your team members are killed, and 4, if you open your scroll you will fail right on the spot, so don't open it if you know what's good for you. So, if we opened our scroll, how would you know? One of the Generin inquired. Don't worry how we will just know that we will, and don't try to get cute with it either. If it opens at all you will be sorry, Anko said to the frightened genin. So everyone find an entrance to the battlefield, and when I give the mark you all will start. Anko glanced at her watch, which showed that it was 5 minutes to 10. As the minute approached, she nodded to her helpers, who took off the chains, saying, remember that you all have 5 days and just don't die. Get started. They all hurried into the forest, looking for any indications of their adversaries. Soon after, they heard the cries of the first victims of the second exam, but they were unaware that another group or one of the innumerable creatures that would kill them was responsible for their tragic end. The other 2 followed suit as Sasuke started to slow down. What's wrong, Sasuke? Sakura inquired. We have to survive out here for 5 days. We should waste our energy, he said. Why must we spend 5 days out here? Naruko inquired. Because that's how long the exam is, Sakura remarked, expressing curiosity about Naruko's ninja status. They both stared in shock at Naruko's brilliant idea. No, I don't think it is. I think we have 5 days to finish. That doesn't mean we have to be out here for 5 days. If we can find another team with the right scroll, we could be out of here in a day or two, she pouted. So, do you intend to obtain a scroll? This was the first time she really worked with them, and she needed to know how they react in a survival situation without Kakashi, so she started to think hard. The truth is that she did. But she also wanted to see what they could think of. My head hurts. After a few minutes, she cried out. I guess that's all we can expect from her today, Sakura remarked, a drop of perspiration starting to form on the back of her head. Well, why don't you think of something if you're so intelligent? Sakura was yelled at by Naruko. Fine, I will. Sakura yelled back. Do you both want people to know where we are? Keep quiet. They started off in the direction of the base, where he was searching for any indications of their enemy. We should head towards the base. That is where everyone will be heading, Sasuke said in a low voice, and they turned their backs on one another, looking off towards the center of the battlefield. Watch out, Sasuke. Sakura turned to her left, staring at something, and Naruko yelled. He turned just in time to avoid the snake that was lunging for him. Naruko swiftly withdrew 2 kunai, hurling one at the snake and the other back, just missing her face, colliding with another kunai in midair. It's impressive that you were able to find me despite both distractions before anything happened. Are you not a typical genin? A grass shinobi with long dark hair and feminine features, wearing a straw hat with a tag hanging down, said as he entered the scene. She proudly remarked, Nope, people tell me I am an idiot. You are a very interesting child, said the shinobi. Well, it is a shame that you met me because it is all going to end here for you. No, I don't think so, Naruko said, still grinning, and as the grass shinobi licked his lips before severing his thumb while using a summoning jutsu, 3 enormous snakes materialized and pursued her, avoiding all of their blows while attempting to monitor their summoner. There was something odd about that genin, the grass shinobi said. Sasuke, while your friend is busy, why don't we have some fun? His attacks drove Sasuke and Sakura farther and farther away from Naruko, and when they were out of sight, she realized she had to end this fight quickly. She pulled out 3 kunai, throwing them one after the other, hitting all 3 snakes. Then she ignited the paper bombs she had tied to each kunai before the 3 snakes hit the ground. She ran after Sasuke and Sakura, and when she discovered they were high up in a large tree, she saw Sasuke preparing to give the scroll. Naruko yelled, What the hell are you doing, Sasuke? Sasuke yelled back, What does it look like? Dope. I'm going to save our lives. Naruko grinned and said, So the genius, Sasuke Uchiha, is a coward. Who would have imagined it? Adding, Well, since it does matter to you, Uchiha, I will take that scroll. Her tone and posture had changed. You have no idea what you're doing, Naruko? Sasuke yelled. The grass shinobi thought he had dodged the first one, but it was attacked by metal wire, so she changed its direction and hit him in the chest, just missing his heart. To the contrary, I know exactly what I am doing, she said, pulled out 2 kunai, realizing she was running low and that she would have to make them count. The grass shinobi grinned at this. You are not just aiming to win but to kill, she smirked as she leapt off the branch, pulling the grass shinobi flat on his face after launching a second attack, aiming a kick for his head, but the grass shinobi ducked it. She had managed to get her wire around his neck and swung back up onto the branch, and when the grass shinobi attempted to get up, she pulled straight up, cutting deep into the branch and removing the shinobi's head. That is the game plan, she said. Naruko remarked, a replacement jutsu, as she peered down at the mound of mud in front of her. Naruko, you're behind me, Sasuke yelled, but it was too late. Naruko had already left and there was a puff of smoke after she had been stabbed in the back with a kunai. The shinobi remarked, a shadow clone at your age, not bad, as Naruko put a kunai to his throat. You are obviously not a genin. Who are you and what are you after? With a tone of amusement, she inquired. As the shinobi said, I came here to see something, but I think I might have found something more interesting. Naruko's gaze shifted to Sasuke. Aren't we clever? However, I could also say that you are not genin. She turned just in time to see it coming, barely able to block his kick aimed at her chest before it flew off the branch and crashed into another tree. Only in title, Naruko said, slapping the shinobi's throat, but it turned to mud once more. She saw his eyes return to Sasuke, saying, Sasuke, Sakura, get out of here, she yelled. The shinobi smiled and remarked, you still have fight in you, I am really impressed. When Naruko appeared in front of her opponent, she asked, What did you think I could be taken out with one kick? It was a flick of the wrist, and she barely had time to react, avoiding the kunai, but she fell into his trap and was bound by a snake, which she attempted to free but was unable to do. He whispered in her ear, "You are good, really good, and for that I will reward you," he said. "First I will let you keep your scroll that you have fought so valiantly for, and two I will give you my mark, so if you wish for more power I can grant it to you." She screamed in pain as he dropped her, and she lay at his feet limp before he turned to Sasuke. The shinobi remarked, "Now let's see what a Uchiha can do." Sasuke tried to hide his fear as he said, "Sakura, grab Naruko. I will distract him while you two get away." Sakura began by saying, "But Sasuke, just do it. I have no plans of dying here today. I can't die until I have killed a certain someone, so please Sakura, do what I asked," he said calmly on the outside, but he was terrified, as he had only ever been this scared once before. The Shirai Ryu couldn't defeat this freak, and he had to buy some time. Sasuke activated his Sharingan, and then he charged, throwing some shuriken attached to metal wire, so that it tied the grass shinobi to the tree with the help of his Sharingan. He was certain that this was the real one, fire-style dragon fire jutsu, as the flames swiftly traveled up the wires, devouring the shinobi at the other end. For a moment, Sasuke thought he had succeeded, as the grass shinobi was limp, and there was a giant hole behind him. "Sakura, is she?" Sasuke began to inquire, but a wild laugh interrupted him. "I knew you were unique for a reason, and even though your little friend might have killed me if I had been any other shinobi, it might have worked. Now I will give you the same gift," he said, his neck stretching and his teeth turning into fangs, but his mouth never reached Sasuke's neck. Naruko, who was barely able to stand, was standing in front of him, panting, and she had blocked it with a sword she had taken from a scroll that was lying in front of her. Naruko collapsed again, exhausted, and the shinobi's neck retreated. Who would have thought she could still move? She is impressive. "Who are you?" Sasuke scowled as he asked, "What did he do to her, and what will he do to me?" "I see no reason to tell you that they all searched for the Plight, and 3 shinobi stood in a few branches above them. My name is Orochimaru," he said with a smile, "and Sasuke, you will be mine." He attempted to attack again but was stopped this time, but this time it was a large ice cycle. "I think you should leave now," one of them said. He had short black hair and frosty eyes. He was the only one without a mask, but he wore the same blue and black armor as the rest of his team. They lacked headbands but had their clan's logo on their belts. "Why ought I to do that now?" Orochimaru inquired. "You will leave for the same reason you have left the Lin Kuei in peace, because you fear our sensei, the Grandmaster Subzero," Orochimaru said. The 3 Lin Kuei leapt down, facing Sasuke, as Orochimaru said, "You haven't seen the last of me," disappearing into the branch. "What made you assist us?" Sasuke inquired. The Lin Kuei shinobi said, "My name is Hydro. This is Frost," pointing to the person to his right. When Sasuke realized that Frost was the only girl among them, he said, "Then this is Cyrax, the largest of them, because it wouldn't have been fair for you to lose your scroll to one of the legendary Sannin," he said. She began, "I am Sakura and this is," but was interrupted. "We are honorable shinobi, and attacking you now would be cowardice after you finished fighting someone who shouldn't have been here. I know who you all are, and just because I helped you doesn't mean we are friends. I would have no problem killing you all right now, but you're on your own from now on," they said, and disappeared. When Sasuke saw a mark on Naruko's neck, he scurried down to pick her up, but as he continued to examine it, he began to notice that it was fading from her skin. "We should go somewhere to rest up," Sasuke said, carrying Naruko up and wearing her bridal style. Sakura appeared a little envious, but she remained silent. They discovered a tree with its roots slightly exposed, which served as a makeshift shelter. Sakura saw that Sasuke was too tired to talk her down, so he lay down next to Naruko and fell asleep quickly. "Sasuke, get some sleep, I will keep first watch," Sakura said. Sakura set traps while Naruko and Sasuke slept, hoping that they would be sufficient until they had regained their strength. Eventually, she became hopeful that they would be able to spend the remainder of the day peacefully, but this hope was short-lived, as she threw a kunai to ensure that the squirrel wouldn't set off her trap, and it fled in a different direction. 3 sound shinobi then appeared and neutralized her traps. Upon contemplating whether to wake Sasuke or let him sleep, she finally made up her mind and went out to confront them alone. "Look, someone came out to play," smirked the lone woman on the sound crew. "Maybe if we beat her enough Sasuke will show himself," said another of the sound shinobi, who had dark eyes and spiky black hair, and wore the death kanji on his shirt. The last shinobi said, "Do as you like, but remember our target is the Uchiha," and he appeared to be a freshly wrapped mummy. Sakura knew she had to keep them away from Sasuke because he was in no condition to fight after his battle with Orochimaru, and she was alone because Naruko was also in no condition to fight. Before she heard the cry of "Leaf Hurricane," she closed her eyes tightly, and when she opened them, she saw Lee standing in front of her with the squirrel perched on his shoulder. Despite her best efforts, Sakura was unable to affect the three shinobi. "What are you doing, Lee?" Sakura inquired. The battle between the three sound shinobi and Lee was fairly even despite the sound shinobi's numerical advantage, but the tides soon turned in favor of the sound shinobi. "I am here to protect you, my lovely Sakura," Lee said, giving her the thumbs up. When they sensed something threatening, they all stopped fighting. The air was so heavy and charka that it felt like it was going to suffocate them. "What on earth is that?" When Mummy asked, she looked around, and soon Naruko emerged from the roots where she had been sleeping. Without saying a word, she passed Lee and Sakura saw that her eyes had turned crimson instead of blue. When the spiky-haired sound shinobi said, "You should go crawl back into the hole you came from or we will kill you," Naruko did not respond. She glanced at the three sound shinobi and, moving quickly, she appeared before the sound. Kinochi struck her hard in the face, crashing into a tree that splintered under the force. Blood dripped from Naruko's hand before she turned her head back to face the shinobi with death written on his shirt. She charged him, and he raised his hands to use his jutsu on her, but she got in too close for him, grabbing both of his arms, wrapping metal wires around his wrist, and then jumping over his head and strangling his with his own arms. "How appropriate, because that is going to be your fate," she said in a flat, emotionless voice. This one, who appeared to be a mummy, said, "Wait, if you let us leave the scroll is yours," and placed it on the floor. The spiky-haired shinobi fell to his knees, sobbing in agony as he looked down at where his hands had been. "Now you are free to go." "Very well, but I am taking his hands too," she said, pulling the metal wires as they sliced cleanly through his wrist and his hands hit the ground. The air cleared of chakra and Naruko hit the ground as the mummy-like shinobi went to pick up his unconscious teammate, helped his second teammate stand up, then picked up his severed hands and they vanished. The following day, they set out with both scrolls and, with the assistance of Kabuto, who had a map of the battlegrounds in his deck of cards, they arrived at the base without encountering anyone else. During this time, Sakura was concerned because, although Naruko appeared to be back to normal, she was still unsure of what yesterday's terrible chakra was. Was it something that Orochimaru had done to her, or was it something else entirely? And she and Lee agreed to keep quiet, at least until she had a chance to speak with Kakashi sensei. "Thank you, Kabuto," Naruko said with a smile. "No problem," he replied, grinning back. "While you wait for your team, would you like us to wait for you?" Naruko inquired. "No, it's all right, you all should get in and get some well-deserved rest," Kabuto replied. They said goodbye to Kabuto as they pushed open the doors, finally arriving at their destination after what felt like the longest 2 days of their lives. "I'm hungry. Did they have food in there?" "I bet they have food in there. I hope they have ramen," Naruko said. Her eyes glazed over, and sweat drops appeared on the backs of everyone's heads. They had not seen Kakashi since completing the last section of the exam, so Sakura hadn't had a chance to ask him what had happened to Naruko. She didn't want to bring it up because she had noticed that Naruko didn't like talking about herself that much. All she really knew about her was that she liked ramen and that she was strong. Naruko, Sasuke, and Sakura were off to themselves discussing what else was in store for them as the 5-day time limit was coming to end. They were heading down the hall to the Great Hall when they noticed Kakashi chatting with Anko, the proctor of the final section of the test, after a Chunin knocked on their door and stuck his head inside. "We need you in the Great Hall so we can give you further directions," the Chunin said before departing. Sakura hurriedly said, "I forgot to grab something, but I will catch up to you guys in a minute." "Want us to accompany you?" Naruko asked with a smile. "No, that's okay, it will only be a minute," Sakura said, waving them away, and they went on without her. Sakura began to run to Kakashi after starting back until she could no longer see them. Sakura said, "Sensei, I need to talk to you. It's very important," without pausing. "What is it?" With a bored tone, he asked, whispering. "It's about Orochimaru," she stated. "How about him?" Sakura was reluctant to speak in front of Anko because she didn't really know her and didn't want to cause Naruko any trouble, Anko asked. "Go ahead, Sakura," Kakashi said sympathetically. "Well, during this exam we ran into him, and everyone made it out alive." Shocked, Anko asked. "So, after Naruko battled him and he did something to her, we felt this terrible chakra that came from Naruko, and her personality was entirely different. I was wondering if that was because of what Orochimaru had done to her," Sakura inquired, sounding anxious. "Were you able to spot a mark on her neck?" Anko inquired. "There was one, but why did it gradually vanish?" Sakura inquired. "If she was already weakened by his curse mark, then the Kyuubi in her most likely rejected it, which would explain why it was able to take over," Kakashi reflected. "Thanks, Sakura," But you have nothing to worry about, Kakashi said, putting his hand on her shoulder. Sakura said, but Kakashi, first she wanted to believe in Kakashi, so she nodded and went to catch up with the others. It will be alright, I promise, he said with a smile. To ensure Sakura couldn't hear her, Anko whispered, how can you say that we need to inform Anbu? Kakashi remarked, I am sure everything will be alright. You see, I do believe what happened was because of the curse mark, but I don't think it will happen again. From the sound things it sounds like her body completely rejected the mark, as he watched Sakura disappear from view. She was shocked to see that all of the rookies had made it through the Great Hall, and she was happy to see that Lee had as well. Then she saw Lin Kuei, Kabuto and his team, Asuna team, and the Sound Shinobi. Wow, this is all? She asked herself, recalling how many had started. She lined up behind Sasuke and Naruko, and she couldn't help but wonder if everything would be okay. Sakura had just noticed that Kakashi and the other Junin sensei, as well as the proctors of the first two parts of the exam, were present. I would like to be the first to congratulate you all for making it this far, said Sarutobi. The third exam is about to start, but before I go into the explanation, I want to clarify something for everyone. It has to do with the actual goal of this test, why we conduct a joint examination with our allies. Do not let the justifications fool you. In order to keep good relations with the allies and raise the ninja's level. As he examined the young ninja in front of him, the third remarked, this exam, so to speak, is the epitome of a war between the allied nations. What does that mean to you? Tenten inquired. If we go back in time, the current allied nations were once neighbors who had repeatedly engaged in combat with one another. The third went on to say, those nations chose a battleground to prevent wasting military might, which is how the Chunin selection exam got started. Why must we take that action? We're not doing this to pick Chunin, Kiba interrupted. Yes, those deserving of the Chunin title are examined in this. On the other hand, ninjas battle there and defend the honor of their nation. The dignity of the country. Sakura inquired. Feudal lords and well-known individuals from different nations who might be prospective customers are invited to attend this third exam as guests. Additionally, your battles will be witnessed by feudal lords from nations with ninja leaders and hidden villages. The strong nation will be overrun with jobs. If there is a large power differential, a nation's employment will decline if it is perceived as weak. At the same time, nations can demonstrate to their neighboring nations how their village has developed and how strong their military is. Stated differently, they have the ability to exert external pressure on them. So why must we run the risk of dying? Kiba snarled. The power of a village is the power of a nation. The power of a village is the power of a shinobi. Furthermore, a shinobi's strength can only be developed in a life or death conflict. This test is an opportunity to demonstrate one's nation's ninja prowess. Your predecessors have battled and dreamed of taking the Chunin exam because it is a test in which you must fight with your life on the line, so it has significance. But why do you claim that it's to foster positive relationships? Tenten inquired. In the beginning, I warned you not to confuse it with the practice of shaving one's life to keep things in balance, which is the positive relationship in the ninja community. This is a fight for your dream and the honor of your village. I don't care. Tell us the details of this life or death exam, asked Gaara. His sentence was interrupted when a new ninja appeared. Then I will now begin the explanation of the third exam, but... The new arrival began to cough and said, sorry, Hokage-sama, but before you continue, I would like to say something. Sarutobi remarked, very well Hayate, go ahead. Since too many of you have advanced this far, we will be holding a preliminary round. My name is Hayate Gecko, and I am the proctor for the third exam. If you don't think you are in the best of health or just don't think you can handle it, please quiet now, Hayate said, coughing again. This will consist of one-on-one combat, and the winner of each match will be allowed to participate in the final exam. Hayate said, okay, I would like to direct your attention to the monitors, as names and images of shinobi flashed on the screens in a loop before halting on Sasuke and Yoroi. Sasuke and Yoroi, please remain here, and the rest of you please make your way to the balcony, he said, not allowing anyone to raise their hands or make any other sign that they wanted to leave. Naruko grinned and nodded to her as she ascended with the others. Good luck, Sasuke, he said. The first person to respond when Kiba asked those around him who they would like to fight was Ino, who said, I would love to fight Sakura, she would have to be the weakest person here. Now that Sasuke is gone, I would take anyone left on Team 7, Kiba said. They are not the ones I would want to fight, Lee thought, especially, as he glanced at Naruko, who was yelling in support of Sasuke. Everyone was stunned when Sasuke defeated Yoroi with one of Lee's jutsu, a move he had only witnessed once, performed flawlessly. Kick his ass, Sasuke. Naruko yelled. Sasuke was effortlessly avoiding all of Yoroi's attacks because of his Sharingan. Lee pleaded, let me be next, but he was let down when it stopped on Zaku and Shino. Sakura was wondering how he was going to fight when Naruko cut them off. It appeared as though someone had put them back on him, but when he attempted to move them, they appeared rigid, and when Naruko's eyes met Zaku's, he flinched every time a few people saw it. What was the purpose of that? Neji didn't ask anyone in particular. Neji. What do you mean? Tenten inquired. Neji looked around and remarked. He looked up at someone and then he flinched. He is afraid of someone, but who? It must be Sasuke, he is one of the strongest here after all, Tenten replied, and Hydro saw this too, turning to face Naruko where Zaku had been staring. I will be back, sensei, Hydro said as he made his way to the Leaf Shinobi, avoiding everyone until he was standing next to Naruko. Sasuke scowled at the man who had rescued them from Orochimaru. Hydro said, I would like to speak with you privately. She grinned and said, okay, so he headed for an empty hallway and put his hand to the wall to create an ice wall so they wouldn't be overheard. So what does a shinobi of the Lin Kuei want to talk to me about? He asked. Why are you in this place? Did Hydro ask? She shrugged her shoulders and said, I am taking the Chunin exam. No, there is more to it. I am sure Scorpion would have you join the Leaf and take part in this exam for the hell of it, Hydro replied calmly. Don't you know him so well? She smiled as she asked. He said, no, but I think I am getting a feel for you, as he gazed into her vivid cerulean eyes with icy blue eyes. How is that? You aren't a bad person. I would say you are a very caring person and smart, even though you don't want people to think so. How do you calculate, aside from the few fights we had before this? You battled Orochimaru in the forest and ordered your teammates to flee despite having nothing left. You mustered the strength to defend your teammate. One thing, though, baffles me. Why do you continue to hang around with that killer? Do you not think that's hypocritical? She asked with a kind smile. Hydro turned away from her and remarked, it's a shame we were destined enemies. She said softly, it is, as he broke down his wall of ice and they went their separate ways, arriving just in time to see that Shino had won the match. Hydro and Kabuto were the last to look up at the monitor. Sorry, I am going to have to forfeit the match, Kabuto said. What's the reason behind that? Kiba inquired. According to Kabuto, there's no point in fighting, I can't beat him, a shinobi should know his limits and it would be pointless for me to fight him. Well, without showing the old me, I couldn't beat him, he said, as Hydro gazed at him as he left the Great Hall. Is he truly that powerful? Sakura inquired. Sasuke and Naruko both looked horrified at this. Yes. Who knows, if I had the choice I don't think I would want to fight him, Naruko said with a smile. Are you familiar with him? Sasuke scowled even more as he asked. She smiled at him and said, well, kind of, I have had my encounters with the Lin Kuei before. The next match was between Kankuro and Masumi. When the battle began, Kankuro took off the strange bundle on his back, but before he could use it, Masumi twisted his body in a way that allowed him to crush Kankuro like a snake crushing its prey. Since Kabuto has forfeited the match, the winner is Hydro by default, Hayate said, coughing. Masumi smirked and said, give up or I will be forced to kill you. The wrappings from the bundle on his back fell off, revealing the real Kankuro. My turn, he said as his puppet's arms broke free, wrapping around Masumi and crushing him in such a way that they could hear his bones breaking. Do your best, Kankuro said, and then there was a loud snap and his body went limp. After the majority of Misuma's spinal cord was broken, the match was called, and Uzumaki and Kiba were the next names to appear. Yeah, it's my turn, she said joyfully. Hydro approached the Leaf Shinobi again as Kiba and Naruko descended the stairs. Yes, I am going to have an easy opponent, Kiba said. Hydro burst out laughing when Ino remarked, poor kid doesn't stand a chance. Kiba is an idiot but he is strong, as they entered the arena. What's so funny? Shikamaru inquired. What do you know about the opponent of your friend Kiba? Did Hydro ask. Nothing, Ino said, unsure of his meaning, and Hydro remained silent as the battle began. The puppy and I don't have to fight, do we? Naruko inquired while observing Kiba put Akamaru down. Indeed, you do, and I never engage in combat without Akamaru, Kiba exclaimed. As Naruko assumed her fighting stance, she remarked, well, I guess, but I don't see why you want your puppy getting hurt. It will be you who suffers harm, Kiba yelled. Well, I will let you start, Naruko grinned. Kiba said, let me, that's rich, and he hurled smoke bombs, filling the field with a dense cloud of smoke. It seems like they don't know anything about her, or they would have realized she was an expert at silent killing. Lee reflected. That was a mistake against someone like her. Lee, what's wrong? Tenten inquired. It seems that Kiba is going to lose this very quickly, attacking blindly like it, Lee stated. A woman with dark hair and red eyes stated, Kiba isn't attacking blindly, he has a great sense of smell, so Uzumaki can't see, he can still smell out his opponent. When the smoke cleared, Naruko was standing. Kiba was a few feet ahead of her, holding his stomach on the ground, and then they heard a thud, followed by a yelp, and a dog was hurled across the arena, crashing to a wall. That is true, but watch and you will see, Lee said. When Naruko said, "What's wrong? You were so confident earlier," her tone was icy, just as it had been when she spoke to Orochimaru. Sakura muttered in horror, "Kiba is going to die," and they all turned to look at her Hydro and gave her a feeble smile. "What are you saying? Horror?" Ino inquired. Hydro remarked, "No, he isn't going to die, but the match is over," as Kiba slowly stood up. "I've never been hit so hard in my life. Man, are you okay, Akamaru?" There was a feeble bark, so Kiba called out and tossed something to Akamaru from his pouch. "Sorry, but I don't think so," Naruko said, hurling a kunai that transformed into a copy of herself. The clone then kicked Akamaru once more after catching the pill. "Akamaru, you will pay for that," Kiba yelled, but this time he merely whimpered weakly in pain rather than moving. Piercing Fang Jutsu, Kiba began spinning at high speeds, coming straight at her, but she easily dodged it. He can't change direction once he takes aim. What a useless jutsu, she taught herself. "I will finish this now." The clone crushed the pill and disappeared. Knowing that he was too stupid to figure out what she was doing, she slid her hand across the ground and stood motionless, waiting for the attack to come. She managed to avoid it at the last second, and when he tried to attack again, she pulled on the wire she had laid down, trapping Kiba's feet. Naruko said, "Kiba, it's over, you can't beat me, so just give up," knowing exactly what he was going to say. "You think you can beat me because you caught me off guard, but I'm not giving up," Kiba yelled at her before attempting to break the wire, but no matter what he did, it refused to break. She sadly told her cheerleader self, "There are only two ways out of this trap right now, so I would suggest you end the match." Furthermore, what are those two ways? He coughed as he asked. "He would have to chop off his feet if I let him go." To put it simply, she rubbed the back of her head and grinned sheepishly. Alternatively, he could continue tugging on the wire. "The more he struggles, the tighter the wire will get until it cuts through his legs," she said. "Very well, the winner of the battle is Uzumaki," she said, releasing the wire, which freed Kiba. She approached him and held out her hand to assist him in standing up. Naruko smiled at him and said, "Sorry about your puppy. I hope he will be okay." Kiba was shocked by the drastic change in personality and simply nodded as she left. He was kind of cute, Kiba thought to himself. "Wait, I didn't mean that." "Lee, how did you know that Kiba's use of the smoke was pointless?" Everyone turned curiously as Guy asked in surprise. "I thought that would be obvious. Uzumaki was trained in many forms of combat, including the art of silent killing, just as I am." Hydro grinned. "I thought that would have been obvious considering your friend was trained by the Shirai Ryu, the ones who invented and perfected the deadly art." Ino and Frost were selected as the next contestants, and the two women descended after Kiba ascended the stars with Akamaru, who was in poor health and whimpering in his arms. "Begin," Hayate said. Frost charged Ino, making a few hand signals, ice style. Ice Pon Jutsu, and the ground they were standing on turned to ice. Ino struggled to stay on top of Frost's attacks, unable to maintain her balance to launch any counterattacks, until Frost ended the fight with a well-placed kick to Ino's face, knocking her unconscious. Ino, concerned for her former friend, Sakura yelled. "The match is over, Frost is the winner," Hayate declared. Sakura and Cyrax faced off next, and it was immediately clear how unfair the fight was because he was much smaller than Sakura and didn't even flinch when she kicked him in the head. He grabbed her foot and threw her aside. He said, "I will end this quickly," in a much softer voice than anyone would have imagined given his enormous size. Then, with more speed than they had anticipated, he punched the wall, burying his arm shoulder deep. "The next one won't miss," he told Sakura, her eyes wide with terror. I give up," she said, realizing that she couldn't win this fight when Cyrax tore his arm off the wall and left. Sakura slid to the ground, her eyes still wide and her body visibly shaking. Kakashi went down and helped her get up, bringing her back up with the others. Tenten and Temari were next, and Tenten was excited for her match. Once the match started, Tenten started throwing weapons at Temari, but they all missed, and she couldn't understand why she had missed. "Do you see this?" Temari said, displaying her fan to Tenten. "How about it?" Tenten inquired. "When you see all three moons it's over," Temari said, and Tenten scowled as she launched another unsuccessful attack in the second moon. She then took out two scrolls and threw them into the air, making some hand gestures before leaping into the air and raining weapons down on Temari. However, this also ended in, and the third moon appeared. Temari waved her fan, creating a strong wind that sliced everything in its path, and Tenten was in the center of it when the winds finally subsided. Tenten fell back to the ground, and Lee leapt down and caught her before she hit the ground. Lee attempted to attack Tamari, but was stopped by Cyrax, who glanced at Tamari. They looked up at the screen as the remaining names appeared. The first was Hyuga Hinata, the second was Hyuga Neji. Naruko grinned at the irony of their predicament. You show a weaker opponent disrespect in defeat, pray you don't face me in combat, for I will show you the same mercy, Cyrax said in a harsh voice, but Tamari simply dismissed him as she walked back up to her team. The battle was brief but intense, and although Hinata was obviously the weaker of the two, she never gave up, getting back up after being knocked down until she was barely able to stand, at which point Naruko decided to step in and stop Neji's attack by grabbing his wrist. Hinata made her way down, trembling with nerves, and Neji followed her with a confident look on his face. How about you? I believe that is sufficient, she said kindly, smiling at him. She turned to face Hinata, who was still on her feet but just barely. Are you okay? Medical shinobi hurried in to help Hinata, who nodded slightly before her legs failed and Naruko caught her before she hit the ground. Does beating up a young girl make you feel like a big man? Naruko asked, avoiding eye contact. What were you saying? Neji gave her a stern look. Does it make you feel like a big strong man to beat up little girls? Naruko asked, grinning at him as she turned to face him. Neji attempted to attack her, but was thwarted by Kakashi, Guy, and Kurenai. Calm yourself, Neji-kun, you will never make friends that way, she said as she walked off to watch the rest of the matches. The next match was between Gaara and Lee. No one knew what to expect from this battle. Lee, the taijutsu master, going against the unknown Gaara. Lee started the battle off with on the offensive. Gaara's sand shield could barely keep up with Lee's speed, but even with his superior speed he could get a hit on Gaara. Finally Lee decided enough was enough. He removed the weights he had in his leg warmers. He tossed them aside, and if they thought he was fast before, it was nothing to what he was now. He easily got through Gaara's defenses. Lee got behind Gaara and kicked him straight up into the air, appearing behind him, the bandages from his arms wrapped around Gaara. They both started spinning towards head down towards the ground. At the last second Lee released Gaara and he went crashing into the ground. Gaara stood up, the sand falling away from his body, smiling, giving him the appearance of an insane man. He closed his eyes and said, Gate of opening open. His chakra swiftly rose, saying, Gate of healing open, Gate of life open, Gate of pain open, Gate of limit open. This is not good, even the lotus could not take him out, Lee thought to himself. Well, I still have a few tricks up my sleeve. That sand is the problem, so I will get you away from it, Lee said to a shocked Gaara before vanishing. He punched Gaara in the face, sending him flying away from his sand. It tried to catch up before it could. Before Gaara had even hit the ground, Lee appeared and kicked him again, sending him flying in another direction. The body armor Gaara wore was breaking under the force of Lee's attacks. Lee decided to use that jutsu, a jutsu that would end the battle. He wanted to save it for Neji, but if he didn't pull out all the tricks he would beat this guy. It seemed no matter how much he hit him, he kept getting back to his feet. Lee attacked again, knocking him around like a pinball before he appeared behind him using the reverse lotus. For a second Lee closed his eyes from the pain. There was a large crash, dust covered the battlefield. Gaara lay on the ground, Lee barely able to move. Gaara turned to dust as Lee looked upon in horror. Gaara appeared behind him and he had nothing left, but he wasn't going to give. A cool voice called down, Proctor, end the match, it is over, and everyone turned to face the Lin Kuei Grandmaster. As a massive wall of sand crashed down on Lee, Hayate began to say, the match. Gaara scowled as the sand drew back, enclosing Lee in an ice dome. What were you saying? Coolly, Subzero said when Hayate declared, the match is over, Gaara is the winner. The dome vanished, and Guy leapt to his student's side. The words, you fought well, Guy told Lee. The last two matches were extremely dull, with the shortest fought match between Choji and Dosu ending with a single attack from Dosu. The final match was like a deadly game of chicken between Shikamaru and Kin. Thanks sensei, Lee said, fainting. They took Lee out of the hospital. Congratulations to our 12 winners, now line up and take a number, Sarutobi said after following his instructions. They learned who they would face in the first round. Naruko versus Neji in the first match, Hydro versus Dosu in the second, Shino and Frost in the third, Tamari and Shikamaru in the fourth, to which Shikamaru responded, troublesome, Cyrax and Konkuro, and Sasuke and Gaara to conclude the first round. You all have 1 month until the third exam starts, and you now know who you are up against and have witnessed each other fight. I wish you all the best of luck. She came here to learn new jutsu, but she had no one to really teach it to. Kakashi was training Sasuke, so she could always turn to Danzo, but she felt it would be best to at least stay in touch with him. Naruko sat on her bed. Bored to no end, she decided to go out and see what she could find, so she got out of bed and sat up. She wandered around Konoha's streets after leaving her apartment. Unsure of her next course of action, she was considering taking a dip at the hot springs when she noticed a woman with long, spiky white hair tied in a ponytail. She questioned the man, "What are you doing?" His words, "I am doing research, so get lost, kid," dismissed her without looking at her. Naruko crossed her arms and remarked, "It appears that you are peeking in the girl's bath." At last, he turned to her and said, "Look, kid, you are too young to know this, but I am a very famous author of a very famous book series and I need inspiration." She questioned him, "So what kind of books do you write?" With pride, he replied, "I write exotic novels." "So you write porn?" Returning to his research, he stated, "I prefer the term exotic novels." "So you a pervert that writes porn?" she said. In summary, Naruko began to leave after saying, "Well, maybe I should tell the old man that there is a perverted old man peeping in on the girl's bath." He put his arm around her and declared, "Wait, there is no need to tell the Hokage about this, right?" Adding, "I am sure that we can work something out." "I am preparing for Chunin tests," she remarked reflectively. "Well, I could teach you a jutsu if you didn't tell anyone about this," he replied quickly. "You've got a deal, Aro Senin," she mentioned with a smile. "Don't call me that," he remarked with confusion. She questioned, "Why not Aro Senin?" He stated bluntly, "Because my name is Jeriah." Naruko grinned up at him and remarked, "But Aro Senin fits you better." Jeriah angrily remarked, "Then our deal is off if you keep calling me that." She turned to go to the Hokage tower and said, "Then I will tell the old man what you were doing, Aro Senin." Jeriah blurted out, "We don't have to be so hasty, do we?" With hope, she said, "So you are still going to teach me?" He said, "Yeah, I'm going to teach you," and he led her to a clearing on the riverbank, away from the village. "I am going to teach you one jutsu." Naruko complained, "Just one? That's no fair." Jeriah smiled and said, "Look, kid, I said I would teach you a jutsu if you didn't tell." She paused and gave it some thought. She smiled sweetly at him and said, "How about this? If I can learn your jutsu before the final exam, you have to teach me more jutsu." After giving her some thought, he smiled. "When I finally got around to it," he thought, "Okay, if you can learn the jutsu, I'll teach you more." Her question was cheerful. "So when do we start?" "How about tomorrow?" he thought. "First let's get to know each other so I can see what kind of jutsu to teach you." "That doesn't seem any fun." She sulked. His eyes widened as she took off her bandana and let her hair fall to her back. "You're a girl?" he exclaimed, startled. With a worried tone, Naruko said, "Yeah, is there a problem?" Jeriah said, No problem." Without hesitation, Jeriah pondered, "Now that Naruko has returned to Konoha, I thought this kid looked familiar. I wonder if I should teach her the jutsu her father created." "I have the perfect jutsu to teach you," he said with a smile. She said, sounding perplexed, "I thought you wanted to get to know me first?" "I changed my mind, because for this jutsu you will need all the time you can get," Jeriah continued. "The jutsu I am going to teach you is one of the most difficult jutsu to master." Naruko questioned, "What makes it so difficult to master?" "For starters, it has no hand signs, so it relies purely on your chakra control. There are 3 stages that you have to master before you can master this jutsu, each more difficult than the last," Jeriah said. Naruko inquired, "So what's the first step?" Jeriah disappeared after saying, "About that, I need to get a few things before I can teach you the first step," leaving Naruko by himself. Naruko yelled, "Get back here, I am not going to let you ditch me." She pondered whether to go find the pervert and sat down where she was when Jeriah reappeared before her an hour later carrying a bag full of balloons. She exclaimed, "What took you so long?" With a dreamy expression on his face, Jeriah said, "Calm down, I need to stop. Then I saw some ladies that looked too lonely." Naruko said haltingly, "You're just a pervert, aren't you?" He proudly declared, "No, I'm not just a pervert, I am a super pervert." As a drop of perspiration formed on the back of her head, he grabbed a water balloon from the bag he was carrying and threw it to her. Her gaze was fixed on the balloon as she asked, "What am I supposed to do with this?" "This," he uttered as he picked up a balloon and caused it to burst in his grasp. She said, "So how do I do that?" On Jeriah's advice, by rotating your chakra. She pouted because she couldn't understand why the balloon broke for him and not for her, but it just stretched with the water. She inquired, "Can I see it again?" "Well, no, you have to learn to do this jutsu on your own," Jeriah replied. She sat down to consider what Jeriah had done that she hadn't. Then she recalled that his had been bumpy before it had exploded, in contrast to hers. which was smooth Jiraiya's chakra therefore moved in several different directions. The balloon exploded in her hand when she attempted it again. She yelled, "I did it! I really did it!" only to discover Jeriah had dozed off. She grabbed another balloon and held it over his face when she popped it. Jeriah sat up and turned to see Naruko laughing. "Ero Sennin, you should see the look on your face, it is priceless." He cleared his throat in an attempt to regain his composure. "Well, it looks like you have got the first part down," he said. Naruko inquired, "So what is the next step?" Naruko's eyes widened as she looked up at him, sticking out her lower lip. "No, that will be all for today. Tomorrow, I will show you," she said. Naruko said, "Please Ero Sennin," as sweetly as she could. His chin was scratched thoughtfully as he said, "No, but I guess we can get something to eat." She looked down at her feet and shifted her weight from one to the other before asking, "Are you paying?" "I don't see why I can treat this time," he said, considering how much she could eat as a small child. He was then seized by the arm and pulled to her preferred ramen shop. After 10 bowls of ramen, Jiraiya sat in a corner and listened to a sweet voice calling to him while he looked down, dejectedly, at his newly empty wallet. He didn't respond when he was told, "Bye-bye Ero Sennin, I will see you tomorrow," and he pondered how this could have happened to him. Naruko was scheduled to meet with her master outside of the village, so she chose not to return to her apartment. "If you were thinking about following her, I wouldn't if I were you," Sasuke said, turning to see Hydro leaning against a post. As he saw her leaving the village, curiosity overcame him and he decided to follow her. "Well, you're not me," Sasuke uttered dispassionately. Hydro said, a smirk spreading across his face, "Go after her if you want to die." Sasuke glared at Hydro and asked, "What makes you think that she would kill me even if she could?" He laughed at this. Hydro continued to smirk as he said, "You are a brave person, but who said that she would be the one to kill you?" With a sly smile, Sasuke asked, "Now who is the bold one? Do you really think you can kill me?" "Yes, I could kill you if I chose to, but it was me I was talking about. I was taking about her sensei," Hydro replied. "Kakashi!" Sasuke exclaimed, startled. "For someone who is supposed to be so highly regarded, you are an idiot. Who do you think taught her to fight? Because you know as well as I do she didn't learn it here," Hydro said as he began to leave. "You act as if you know her so well, but you know nothing about her," Sasuke yelled. Hydro said, disappearing, "That may be the case, but I know her better than anyone else, including you." Despite his reluctance to acknowledge it, Sasuke was likely correct. He appeared to know more about her than he did. In the middle of the forest finally, Naruko had located Scorpion, who was perched on a tree with a view of Konoha and the forest. He leapt down and landed softly on the ground when he saw her at the base of the tree. "Master, they are here. We can kill them tonight if you wish," Naruko said as he knelt down. He said, "Very well, let's go." In a calm tone, both of them disappeared into thin air. In the Konoha standing next to Sarutobi in the Hokage office, Subzero gazed out the window. Subzero heard a popping noise behind them and turned to see Cyrax and Hydro Frost standing there. When Frost said, "Grandmaster, they're here looking for us," the three bowed to their sensei. Subzero calmly remarked, "I know, you three go back to the hotel. I will deal with this. If you need assistance, I can send some of my best men to aid you," Sarutobi responded. Subzero calmly stated, "No, I will bring others to share my fate." Before vanishing, he confronted Scorpion and Naruko while standing on Hokage Monument. Scorpion yelled, "Get over here," as he threw a spear. Sub-Zero could hardly dodge it before it veered off course and struck him squarely in the chest. He broke into hundreds of fragments. Scorpion disappeared after dodging an ice blast that appeared next to Sub-Zero and used taijutsu on him. It seemed as though the two shinobi could read each other's moves because of how similar their fighting styles were. Sub-Zero finally kicked in well. Scorpion was knocked off the monument after it struck him in the side of the head. When Sub-Zero dropped his guard, a spear tore through his shoulder as he peered over the edge to see what had happened to his opponent. Scorpion then held Sub-Zero by the neck and gradually crushed his life away as the blood glowed black in the moonlight. "Sensei!" Three voices yelled simultaneously. Naruko looked back to see the Lin Kuei students horrified as their sensei perished. Choking out, "Run, run now," Sub-Zero said. "This is between me and you. Let's keep it that way," Scorpion said as his eyes slowly shifted to the young Lin Kuei. "Between me and you?" Scorpion asked again, displaying emotion for the first time. Rewind. In the morning, a young boy who was celebrating his 9th birthday said, "Daddy, you don't have to go, do you?" "I apologize," Scorpion said, planting a kiss on his son's forehead. His wife said, "Hanzo, you don't have to. There are others who can go," and she took his hand. "It is my duty as a Shirai Ryu shinobi and the son of the Grand Master," he replied, putting on his mask. Praying, just be careful, she said. He disappeared as he ran in the direction of the Lin Kuei army, which the other clansmen were attempting to contain. Cheers of "We're saved" greeted him when he arrived. 3 shinobi, the sons of the Grandmaster and the brothers of the Lin Kuei, the strongest the village had to offer, each more powerful than the Sannin, stood in his way. Everyone else paused to watch in awe as the battle began, as they had never witnessed a battle of this nature. Although Scorpion quickly realized he was outmatched, he refused to concede the victory and refused to die, stating that he would live to witness his son's marriage to a good woman and to see his grandchildren. He had never had to battle 3 shinobi of this level simultaneously before, and even his enormous chakra began to run low. Know this: I will have revenge for what you did to my clan, he said, realizing that there was no chance of victory. Then, using his last remaining chakra, he executed a forbidden jutsu that he had created. He whispered to the night, "I am sorry, my son, my love, I won't be there." After being struck in the chest by a huge ice blast just as he finished the jutsu to ensure the task was completed, the oldest brother approached the frozen shinobi and kicked him in the chest. After a year, "Hisashi Hanzo, your family has been killed, both those who killed you and your clan," a man said as Scorpion reappeared at his doorstep, his eyes vacant as he gazed upon the deserted house. A well-dressed man with long black hair that hung just past his shoulders caught his attention. After saying, "Hanzo Hisashi is dead, the name is Scorpion," he vanished in a burst of light. Finish the flashback. Like you did all those years ago? Scorpion responded. "You took everything from me, my clan, my life, my family. No, I am going to kill you with the knowledge that I took everything from you. Yes, my brothers and I killed you, but we didn't wipe out your clan, we didn't kill your family, so kill me but let them go," Subzero pleaded. As Scorpion said, "Even in the end you lie to me," he held Subzero at the edge. Subzero was thrown in front of Scorpion's students, who said, "I never would lie, please just let them go. You have 3 years to find out who killed them, or I will kill them and make you watch, then I will kill you." Scorpion was saddened to disappear. She still hadn't mastered the jutsu, and the final exam was just a few days away. It proved to be more difficult than she had anticipated. Even though Ero Sennin had warned her that it was one of the hardest jutsu to learn, she was still surprised by this. This last stage was completely different from the second, which she had just completed a few days prior. Ero Sennin had dubbed this jutsu the Rasengan, and she had to control its raw power. She looked down at her hand, which had been burned by her chakra, as she took a break from the jutsu and sat beneath a tree. She wanted to ask Ero Sennin for help, but he kept saying, "This is a jutsu you need to learn on your own." She tried so hard to win his approval, but he was just an old pervert, and she didn't know why. However, it was almost like having a father or possibly a grandfather when she was with him. "What are you doing?" someone said, glancing around. She saw Hydro leaning against the tree and grinning smugly down at her. She smiled at him and said, "If you make it to the second round, get ready to kick your ass in the exam." "So then you would mind a wager since you are so sure of yourself," Hydro stated. With a suspicious look on her face, she asked, "What kind of wager?" She was taken aback and unsure of how to respond. "Well, if I win, you go out on a date with me. If you win, you can have anything you want," she said. She jumped to her feet and exclaimed, "Why the hell would I agree to something like that?" He shrugged and said, "Well, if you are scared that you will lose, then." She yelled at him, "I am not afraid and I will not lose." He smiled at her and said, "So do we have a deal?" When he said, "Fine, we have a deal," she yelled. He moved in her direction. "What are you playing at?" she asked softly as she turned away, her face blushing a little. He whispered in her ear, "Our sensei may be enemies, but that does not mean we have to be." "Get away from her," they said, and as Sasuke stood there staring between them, he recalled how she had told him, "It's complicated because I know I shouldn't, it's a stupid little crush, so forget that I said anything." She wasn't referring to Kakashi. Rather, she was referring to him because she liked this guy. Sasuke scowled at Hydro, who grinned back at him. "Stop it, both of you, stop it now." Sasuke yelled at the Lin Kuei shinobi as they began to move toward the Uchiha, but neither of them paid attention. She moved in front of them, but she was shoved aside and pushed to the ground. A white-haired man abruptly knocked them both to the ground. She said with joy, "Ero Sennin," but he didn't appear to be pleased as he glanced between the two young boys. Hydro bowed and said, "My apologies, Naruko, Jiraiya-sama." Sasuke simply scowled and asked, "Who the hell is this guy?" Jeriah saw that she had turned her back on them. "Get out of here now, both of you," Jeriah said harshly. Both of them followed instructions. Naruko questioned, "Ero Sennin, why are guys such idiots?" She turned to see Kakashi reading his book while seated in the tree. "Don't lump us all together," she said. Naruko yelled, "So how long have you been there?" Kakashi, who was still reading his book, said, "Well, let's see, I think, since the Lin Kuei boy showed up, does that sound right, Jeriah?" She turned to glare at Jeriah, who waved his hands in a quick smile. "It's like we were eavesdropping," Jeriah blurted out with haste. "Aro Senin puppy sensei," she said, too sweatily, sending shivers down the spines of both men. "Yes?" Both of them said uneasily. A flawless Rasengan, the color drained from both of their faces, was in her right hand. With perspiration streaming down his face, Kakashi inquired, "Naruko, when did you learn that?" She continued to smile at them as she said, "I have been learning to use this over the last month. Aro Senin, it looks like I win the bet and now you have to teach me more jutsu." Jeriah said, "I think you're right," with a trembling smile. "So why don't you put that away and I teach you a new jutsu?" Naruko remarked, "But I want to try this one out, one of you." Kakashi said, "Wow, look at the time I have somewhere to be," and then he disappeared from the tree. Leaving Jeriah alone, she informed him that she was prepared to learn a new jutsu an hour later, after she had grown weary of attempting to learn it. "I am not going to teach you yet, but after the exam I will teach you few jutsu and help you develop your own," Jeriah said with a grin. She said, "But Aro Senin," in a cute way. Jeriah advised her to get enough sleep in preparation for the test. The day prior to the test, when Naruko heard someone knock on the door while she was sitting on her bed, she pondered who it might be since he promised to teach her some new jutsu after the exam. She had seen Aro Senin, she did not anticipate seeing the person when she opened the door. Surprised, she said, "Sakura, what are you doing here?" She said, "Well, you see, I thought you could use some ramen," while holding two Ichiraku ramen bar ramen containers. She hugged Sakura and exclaimed, "I love you," when she saw the ramen. Sakura blushed and said, "Don't do such embarrassing things." Sakura was shown inside by Naruko, who then went to her refrigerator to grab a few drinks. Both of them finished their ramen, and Sakura said, "Naruko, can I ask you something?" "Sure, after all you did bring me ramen," she asserted with joy. "I know you are from here, but why hadn't I seen you before the mission at the bridge?" asked Sakura. She said, "That is because I left the village," with a feeble smile. "Why, what about your family, where are they?" She said, "I don't have a family," as she gazed up at the empty ceiling. "What happened to them?" Naruko replied in a whisper, "I don't know, as far as I know no one knows who they were," and then added, "Who would want a child like me anyway?" "What was that?" Sakura inquired, her voice worried. Naruko turned back to her and grinned. "Nothing, thanks for the ramen," she said. Sakura said, "Well, if you want, you can come over later for dinner," with a kind smile. With a, "Okay, that sounds fun," Naruko responded. Sakura said, waving, "I will be back around 5 so that I can show you where I live," as she walked out of Naruko's flat. Even if it was her own family, Naruko was thrilled about the prospect of dining with them. It was her first time dining with a family, however. She became anxious as the day Sakura was scheduled to pick her up drew nearer. How Sakura's parents would respond to her was unknown to her. She knew who it was before she even opened the door when someone knocked on her door. "Hi Sakura," Naruko said as she opened the door. "Sasuke?" she asked, startled to see him with Sakura. Since the incident involving him and Hydro, she had not seen him before. Sakura questioned Naruko, who was dressed in her typical shinobi garb. "You're not wearing that, are you?" Naruko inquired. "What's wrong with my clothes?" observing that Sasuke was dressed as a ninja. Sakura remarked, "Well, to put it simply, you look like a boy," Naruko pouted in response. "I don't look like a boy," she scowled. "Yes you do, dope," said Sasuke impassively. Sakura grinned and remarked, "Well, that's okay, we have some time." Nervous at the way Sakura was grinning at her, Naruko asked, "Time for what, Sakura?" She screamed bloody murder as she was dragged from her apartment. Sakura pulled Naruko to a store where the clerk gave her a snide glance, but only Naruko saw it. With an arm full of the clothing, Sakura pulled her to the rear. Sasuke awaited his teammates at the store's entrance. He sensed an odd tension as he waited and saw that the clerk was keeping an eye on Sakura and Naruko's changing room. Soon after, Sasuke heard his blonde teammate say, "What are you doing? Don't touch me there," his face flushed. They eventually left together, Naruko wearing a blue shirt, orange jacket, and a miniskirt. Her hair had fallen loose. The sight of Sasuke and the way he gazed at her caused her face to flush. Sakura asked, her smile gradually fading, "What do you think, Sasuke?" "Sasuke, what's wrong?" "HN," he answered. Sakura repeated, "So Sasuke, how does she look?" He said, "Like a girl I guess," as he turned his back on them both. "Bastard," said Naruko. Only a woman who resembled Sakura was present when they visited her house. "Hello mother," Sakura responded. these are my teammates, Uchiha Sasuke, and Uzumaki Naruko. Haruno-san remarked, it's good to meet you all Sakura, your father will be home shortly. Yes mom, she said as she escorted her two companions inside after 20 minutes. The door reopened. A man with red hair entered the room, and his eyes froze when he saw Naruko. He smiled and said, Sakura sweetie, who are your friends? To his daughter. When asked, they are my teammates Sasuke and Naruko, she replied they headed for the dining room, but Sakura's father stopped her. How dare you come into my home? I thought you had the decency to have crawled in a hole to die, he grumbled. This village is better without you. Go back wherever you have been for the last 7 years demon. I'm sorry, Sakura, Sasuke, and Haruno-san, I have to go. I forgot my family was coming by to visit me today, she said with a fake smile as something inside of her snapped at the word, causing her to break free of his hold and enter the dining room with the hope that Sakura's father would follow her. She left the house. Sakura asked herself, why would she lie like that? When Sasuke asked, what do you mean? Sakura said, Sasuke, let's go. Rising from the table, she has no family, or that's what she told me earlier. Her father sat at the table and said, no, let her go. I'm sure she had a reason for going. The following day, she watched from her balcony as people flocked to the area in search of the best seats before hearing someone speak to her. She sensed a presence behind her. You aren't getting cold feet, are you? Danzo asked. No, this is just the calm before the storm. I have a feeling that today is going to be a good day, she said with a grin. Danzo smiled and said, oh, well, then I'll let you get ready for the day. She headed to the arena. After Danzo had left, she chose to take a detour because she thought she was being followed when 6 shinobi surrounded her weapons. Darn. She moved to a remote part of the village. She immediately recognized Sakura's father as one of them. I think this is the perfect time to try out the powers Danzo-sama gave me, Naruko said, closing her eyes and smiling. It's really a shame you are so stupid. Now I will have to leave Sakura live the rest of her life fatherless. One shinobi yelled at her, why would Danzo-sama help out a demon like you? She didn't respond, but when she opened her eyes, they were red, with a slit in the pupil and 3 tomos surrounding it. Sakura's father yelled in terror, what the hell is that? You must die now that you have all seen my Sharingan, she said in her usual lighthearted tone. Don't look it in the eyes, the shinobi's oldest member yelled. She said, too late, you all have already been trapped in my genjutsu. You see, I have 2 abilities. Danzo has a new procedure that he implants DNA from different clans, giving me the abilities of said clan, but there is a drawback: it is dangerous on many leaves. Certain abilities I already possess made my chance of surviving the surgery. He gave me the genes from 2 different Uchiha. One allows me to manipulate the minds of those around me, but it is more effective with eye contact, and the other is that I can see the future not that far ahead of time. However, the point is that you are all already under my control, unaware that they were ensnared in the genjutsu. They all attacked one another. Sakura's father, whose hands were covered in blood, was the only person left standing after she released the jutsu. Goodbye, she whispered in his ear as she appeared behind him. He turned to face her. He cut his own throat after she used a new genjutsu on him, giving the impression that he had committed suicide. Then she disappeared, leaving behind a bloody mess. The fact that she was the last to arrive at the arena didn't really surprise her. Killing those bastards didn't make her feel any better. She was still in a bad mood. She was aware that the majority of the villagers shared her sentiments. It's likely that the majority of them are unaware of her return, but they will soon. As she turned to face the Hokage, she saw the Kazekage seated next to him. She glanced around the stadium once more before focusing on Subzero, who was observing the Kazekage. She overheard someone next to her say, troublesome. I was Shikamaru. She didn't know much about him, but he seemed to put forth the least amount of effort in everything he did. She smiled at him and asked, what's wrong? We are expected to fight when the only one anyone really wants to see is Sasuke, Shikamaru said with a deep sigh. Maybe I should quiet. It's not like anyone would care. It would be one less match they would have to wait through to get to their precious Sasuke. I am sure that's not true. I am sure there are people here to watch you fight, she replied gently. He said, no, the only teammate of mine that has shown up is Ino, and all she ever thinks about is Sasuke, with a bored tone. Well, if that counts for anything, I want to see you fight, Naruko said, turning to face the man she had never seen before in place of Hayate. I am sure you all know the rules, the same as the preliminary. A match ends when someone gives up or is no longer to fight. I hold the right to end a match at any time, and my word is law, the new proctor stated. The first match is between Uzumaki and Hyuga Neji. Everyone else, please leave the battlefield at once. Look where I'm sitting, Kiba thought to himself. Well, at least if Neji loses I won't have to feel so bad. That Uzumaki kid doesn't stand a chance against the Hyuga. A shinobi with a bandage on his face said, gazing down at the field. I thought I could beat that kid too. Sakura, do you believe your friend can defeat Neji? He's very powerful, did Ino ask? Yes I do. Sakura declared with assurance. You should give up, you can beat me. Your fate was decided, I was picked to be your opponent, Neji said, giving him a sweaty smile as everyone but Naruko and Neji left the battlefield. I don't think that fate exists because I would have died long ago if it did. You see, Neji, you and I aren't all that different. We both have to struggle to prove ourselves to the outside world, however, Naruko stated, lowering herself into her fighting stance. The difference is that we have to prove something to ourselves, and I fight to prove something to the world. Oh, you don't know anything about me, but you think you know me? Neji scowled at her as he prepared to engage in combat. When he realized he was a she, Neji activated his Byakugan and grinned. Whenever you are ready, she said. No, I would never pretend to know you, but I can see it in your eyes that desire to prove yourself, Naruko replied. The crowd was shocked when she used Shadow Clone Jutsu, and 5 clones appeared. They didn't think someone so young could use that jutsu. She began by sending her clones into battle, and it was clear which was the real one. She stood back as her much weaker clones attacked him. He remembers her fight with Kiba. She wasn't one to be the aggressor. She liked to put her opponent in traps, but it worked on him. He thought to himself, she wants me to go for her and avoid her clones. What is she planning? The way she is fighting me is clumsy and totally different from her first match. I should end this quick. 8 trigrams 64 palms, he said, charging her while avoiding the wire trap she had set, ready to strike her eyes wide. He struck her fist twice, then 4 times, 8 times, until he had struck her 64 times, closing all of her chakra points. The place fell silent, and most of them weren't shocked by how quickly it ended, but they were surprised that Naruko had stood up. You believe defeating me would be that simple? She asked, giving him a charming smile. You can't win because you are out of chakra, he called out to her. If that is the case, you will have no problem shutting up and fighting, Naruko said, still grinning, turning to face the proctor, who remained silent and attacked her once more before she stood up for the second time. You can't win, so why do you keep fighting? Neji yelled. The reason is that I am a fool, she smiled and added, and I know how this match is going to end. How is that? He smirked as he asked, I will win this battle, without a scratch on me, and you will lie at my feet wondering what happened, she said with a smile. What did he say, and is he truly that big of a fool to believe he can win? Ino yelled. I'm not sure. Sakura responded, and Sasuke watched anxiously as he wanted to intervene and break up the fight, but Hydro intervened. Just have faith, he said. Neji said, you talk big, it's time to show me, grinning arrogantly. Very well, she said, closing her eyes as the chakra started to flow through her body and heal her wounds. The chakra seemed to heat the air around them as it spilled out. Neji's expression was one of horror. What are you? She took off her vest and threw it at Neji, but he managed to avoid it. The weight of the vest caused a hole in the ground, so he slowly turned his attention from the vest to her. She pulled out 2 kunai and threw them both at once, and he spun to block them both before catching them. However, during that moment, he had taken his attention away from her, and she appeared directly in front of him. Through his defense, she struck him hard in the face, causing him to fall back, but she caught him, keeping him upright, and she kicked him across his face, causing blood to spray from his mouth. He attempted to punch her with his free hand, but all he was able to do was get her to release her bandana, and she did a backflip, kicking him under the chin. She then landed gracefully on her feet, kicking him in the stomach with a quick motion, and he coughed up blood that fell to the ground. How? He questioned feebly. Because we are different. You fight to prove yourself that you are worthy of your name and to prove something to yourself. I fight to prove myself to the world and to establish my value in this world. You have never truly experienced what it's like to lose a battle. You have never tasted desperation. You must understand that the only boundaries we have are those we set for ourselves, she said, finally grinning at him, because in my life, there are only 2 possible outcomes. Victory or death. There are no second chances, so until you have experienced that desperation, you can never defeat me. The match is over, Uzumaki wins, the proctor declared. Demon mutter filled the stadium, and Neji and the majority of the younger generation heard it but did not comprehend its meaning. As she left, he heard the crowd and felt pain, not physical pain, but sadness for this girl, and was taken to the infirmary, where she stopped, turned, and waved to him before entering the tunnel. Why don't we make this quick, because we both have someone else we would rather fight, Dosu said calmly as he and Hydro faced each other as they descended the stairs for the next match. Very well, said Hydro, just as calmly, ice-style whiteout jutsu. It began to snow slowly at first, but quickly turned into a full-fledged blizzard, and Dosu couldn't see anything because everything was white. The wind made it hard to hear his opponent, and by the time he found Hydro, it was too late. Hydro grabbed the device on Dosu's arm, frozen it, and then broke it. Hydro said, "Give up, it's over," but Dosu wasn't ready to give in yet, so he grabbed his arm and froze it to the bone. Crushing it as the blizzard died, Hydro then stared down at Dosu and said, "Give up, or all that is left is for me to kill you." The proctor declared, "The match is over, Hydro wins," and Hydro turned away from Dosu and headed back to the waiting area. This is the power of the Lin Kuei, Sasuke thought. "No, this is not over," Dosu said. Drawing out a kunai and charging Hydro, he turned around and used ice-style ice blast jutsu, but Dosu was frozen. "So you like playing with bugs? You know, one of the worst opponents here for you," Frost remarked as he watched Shino walk to the field. Shikamaru watched as she moved in an attempt to figure out the secret to the jutsu, knowing that she was using her chakra to keep from slipping and sliding over the ice, but he wondered if Shino would be able to figure out how to fight Frost if it was that easy. "We will see," Shino said calmly, as his bugs began swirling around him. "Ice style. Frozen pound jutsu," he said. The ground froze over in a thin layer of ice. Frost charged Shino, who was standing calmly, and when she got close enough, his bugs attacked her, but she slid on the ice and pushed herself up, landing a kick to his face, but it was a bug clone. She quickly pushed herself away from the bugs, searching for the real Shino, and then she said, "Ice style. Ice kunai jutsu," which sent a dozen ice kunai flying at him. He dodged them all, determined not to walk on the ice, and he was going to fight her from the safety of the wall. She turned to see a wall of bugs crashing down upon her. "He is good, I must admit. If I am not careful, he might just beat me." Frost thought she broke into hundreds of pieces when they hit her. "Ice clones," Shino said coolly. She turned to see some of Shino's bugs after noticing something crawling on her while she was watching him from behind a tree. She exclaimed, "Shit! Ice style. Frost jutsu," and the insects on her froze. Dropping to the ground, she hurriedly thought, "I have 2 minutes to end this, or I will lose this armor and I will be fair game for those damn bugs." She charged Shino with her punch, barely missing him. Freezing the wall where she had struck, Shino was so focused on avoiding her blows that he had forgotten about the ice, and as he hit the ice, she thought, 30 seconds left. She said, "Got you," and she leapt onto the ice as well. Shino attempted to run, but he managed to maintain his balance despite his chakra. She was about to punch him, but she stopped just inches from his face, declaring, "I win." Shino said, "You're right, you have beaten me," and as the ice vanished, she sat down on the ground to try to inhale. Her ice arm vanished as well, and Shino reached down to help her up before they returned to the waiting area. "If you wouldn't have gotten on the ice when you did, you probably would have won," she said. Shikamaru uttered the words, "What a drag, I'm up," with a bored tone. "Come on, Shika, you can do it," Naruko said with a smile. "What was the name you gave me?" He turned to face her and asked. She smiled at him and said, "Shika, I like it better than Shikamaru." "I knew this kid was going to be troublesome," Shikamaru thought as he slowly made his way down to the battlefield. Tamari was already waiting for him, but he didn't really care. All he wanted to do was look up at the sky and watch the clouds pass. This was really troublesome because no one except that annoying Uzumaki wanted to watch him fight. The match had started, and even though he was paying attention, he was still envious of the clouds and wished he could coast through life like the clouds did in the sky. Tamari yelled at him, "Are you going to fight or just stare up at the sky all day?" "I would rather stare up at the sky, but I won't hear the end of it if I do that, so I guess I will fight." "Troublesome, I know, but there you go," he said with a bored voice. Tamari waved her enormous fan and said, "Well, how about I beat you quickly so you can go back at looking at the sky?" Shikamaru, who was hanging on the wall and smiling at her, managed to avoid the wind at the last second. He uttered the words, "You really are troublesome, lazy." "I will show you troublesome," Tamari yelled, waving her fan once more. He sat down behind the tree and considered his options for winning the match. "Shadow possession jutsu," his shadow shouted, and she leapt back to avoid his jutsu, stopping just outside. She waved her fan once more, striking the tree he was hiding behind. He wrapped paper bombs around 2 kunai and threw them both at her. She used her fan to send them back, and they became stuck in the tree trunk. Shikamaru smiled as he ignited the bombs, and the tree toppled over. Tamari was concerned about evading the falling tree, but Shikamaru had other plans, so she tried to attack him now that his cove was gone, but she was immobilized. She said, irritated, how did you?" then turned to face the tree and its shadow. "You had me focused on the tree while you used the shadow to catch me," she said. He raised his hand and she raised hers, asking, "Is he going to make me forfeit?" Her eyes widened. "Yeah, it was really troublesome. It would have been easier if you would have let me catch you the first time I tried," he said languidly. Shikamaru said, "I give up, this is all too troublesome," as he let go of his jutsu. "However, why did you win the match?" Temari uttered those words. When he returned to the waiting area, a little blonde tackled him. "No, I gave up. If I had won, that would have meant I would have had to fight again, and that is too troublesome. I would rather just watch the clouds," he said. Naruko hugged him and said, "That was so cool the way you used the tree and made her copy what you did. You have to teach me." He realized that Sasuke was staring at him angrily, even though he hadn't done anything. This girl is really troublesome, he thought to himself. Then she asked, "But why did you give up? You had it won, and let him go." "I would have had to fight again if I won, and it would have been too troublesome," he said as he sat down. Cyrax then got up and descended the stairs, still watching Kankuro because he had witnessed his last fight and knew that everything would be so much easier once he destroyed the puppet. When Kankuro took the bundle off his back, Cyrax stood there staring at him blankly. Kankuro didn't like it because there was something different about this guy. He hadn't watched a single match, but he had been watching him the entire time. "Take action, as it will be your final moment," Cyrax stated calmly. "You believe you can win that?" He unwrapped the puppet and lunged for Cyrax, who made hand signals more quickly than Kankuro believed possible. "Ice style. Crystal trap jutsu," he said, smirking. Cyrax remained silent. "Fine, if you want me to end it now, then that's fine," Kankuro said. "Do you believe you've already won this battle?" Kankuro asked, still smiling, and the puppet's head popped off, going. A knife protruded from its mouth, and it was aimed directly at Cyrax with lightning speed. He cast another jutsu, ice style. Crystal trap jutsu, which left Kankuro completely helpless. Cyrax ran at Kankuro, his enormous fist colliding with the side of Kankuro's face and knocking him out with a single blow. Most people had Neji and Sasuke in the finals, but Neji had been eliminated in the first round, and then all three Lin Kuei shinobi had made it through, none of whom looked like pushovers. "The match is over. Cyrax is the winner," the proctor said, and the puppet fell limp to the ground as the ice melted away. The final match was about to start, and the favorite to win was up next, but after seeing the others fight, not many people were as certain as they had assumed. "Good luck, Sasuke," Naruko said with a genuine smile. "I don't need luck, dope," composed Sasuke remarked. Naruko pouted at Sasuke and said, "Don't get cocky now." Without a word, Sasuke leapt to the ground, prepared to fight, and Gaara stood there, speaking to a person no one could see. The gleam in Gaara's eyes was mad. "Don't worry, mother. You will taste his blood soon," he said. "Do you not see his mother?" Naruko turned to Shikamaru and asked. Shikamaru turned over and tried to fall asleep. "I don't know. I don't really care. This is all troublesome," she said. Sasuke's speed had increased to the point where he was nearly as fast as Lee, and he was able to easily get past Gaara's defenses, which only made him more irate. Soon after, a shell encased him, and Sasuke tried punching the wall, but it felt like he was hitting a steel wall. He jumped back and made a few hand signals, and the sound of 1,000 birds filled the air. "Chidori." Sasuke ran at Gaara, ready to use his new jutsu throughout the battle. Naruko sensed something wasn't quite right. She began leaving the waiting area, aware that she was being watched, but not caring much. An Enbu root member appeared in front of her as she was out of earshot of everyone. When she felt someone casting genjutsu, she let it go and walked back towards the area, where she saw that the majority of the crowd had passed out. The three sand shinobi were running, and Sasuke was following them. "Watch the cage. There is something not right about him," she said to the root member, who nodded before disappearing. "Want to have some fun with me, Hydro?" Naruko asked in a kind manner. Hydro said to Naruko, "I thought you would never ask." Before Cyrax and Frost joined in, Kakashi watched as the four shinobi pursued Sasuke, and when he saw Sakura was awake, he appeared next to her. Subzero saw that Sarutobi was in trouble and hurried as fast as he could toward the battle. "Sakura, go after them. Get Kiba, Shino, and Shikamaru to join you. Avoid fighting at all possible," Kakashi told her before joining Lee and Guy in their battle with Sound and Sand Shinobi. As he pressed a kunai to Sarutobi's throat, Subzero remarked, "Orochimaru, you wish to fight someone, fight me." "Subzero, this is my fight. I should have done this years ago. All I can ask is you help my village while I deal with him," Sarutobi stated. Subzero said, "If that is your wish," and then vanished. Naruko and the three Lin Kuei shinobi were pursuing Sasuke and Sand Shinobi, and they quickly discovered that a dozen or so shinobi were pursuing them. "How would you like to handle our friends?" Frost questioned Hydro. "Well, we could grate them, but then it would slow us down and we might lose Sasuke and the Sand Shinobi," replied Hydro. When Cyrax said, "Then a few of us could hang back." "We could, but I am sure most if not all of them are Junin, and if that is true, as strong as we are, it still is not wise to fight that many Junin," Hydro replied. Calmly, Cyrax said, "Leave me to hang back, I'll take care of them." Hydro looked at his friend and remarked, "You can't beat them all on your own." Instead, he said, "I will at least buy you some time," with equal composure. When Cyrax stopped facing them, Hydro remarked, "Okay, but you better catch up when you are victorious." A few minutes later, 12 shinobi appeared in front of Cyrax, and as he said, "Water style. Great flood jutsu." Water rushed in, flooding the area where they were standing. Cyrax then leapt down onto the water. "What do you think a little water will do to frighten us?" One of the shinobi made a laughing sound. In that moment of relapse, Cyrax attacked, ice style. Crystal trap jutsu, ice shouting up from the water to impale a few more shinobi. "These are not Junin, so they weren't sent to defeat us but just to slow us down, or they don't know anything about us," he said calmly as ever, summoning jutsu. King Orca. Then a shadow appeared below them and a 40-foot orca rose from the deep, snatching a few of the shinobi and dragging them down into the deep. When he saw that they were from Konoha, he felt a sense of relief. Ice style. Ice kunai. The sound shinobi jumped back under his mask. Cyrax grinned. Ice style. Crystal trap jutsu. They were impaled from behind as they tried to dodge the kunai, and the water vanished along with the orca. He had nothing left. He watched the 6 shinobi that were left, and he could sense 4 more approaching, but he was running low on chakra from the flood and summoning. Kiba claimed, "That was impressive," as he fixed Cyrax with his gaze. "Tell them I won when you catch up," Cyrax remarked as he leaned against a tree. Sakura said, "Why, aren't you coming?" Cyrax said, "I have nothing left," and he closed his eyes. "We can leave him here alone. What if someone decides to attack him?" Sakura replied. "I will be fine," Cyrax said, giving them a quick glance. In the middle of the forest, Temari said, "Kankuro, take Gaara out of here. I will slow him down," after Sasuke had caught up to the sand shinobi. Naruko said, "No, I don't think that will work," when she glanced down at the 4 shinobi, Frost, Hydro, and Naruko, that were standing behind her. When Gaara became enraged, he declared, "I will kill you all if you allow my existence to end here, not by these weaklings." Naruko said, "I don't think he likes us very much," as she turned to face Hydro. "What inspired you to do that?" At that moment, they saw that the sand was changing its form on Gaara, giving him a monstrous appearance. Frost asked sarcastically. "Gaara, you haven't forgotten the plan yet," Temari said as she moved away from Gaara. He yelled, "Shut up or I will kill you too," and knocked her away. "Gaara," she muttered horrifiedly as he kept changing. Naruko grinned and said, "You guys go, I think I will stay and have some fun." "No, he is not normal. He will kill you if you fight him alone," Hydro replied. Naruko stated calmly, "I have no intention of dying here." The words, "Fine if that is what you want," were spoken casually by Frost. Hydro called down to Sasuke, "Come on, we're going to be leaving. Are we simply going to release him?" "No," Sasuke yelled, "I'm staying here." Sasuke's fist clenched, but he began to follow them when he saw that Naruko had not moved. "We are not just letting him go," Hydro responded, "but if you stay here you will be killed." "What are you doing, Naruko?" Sasuke inquired. "I will see you when I return to Konoha," she said, her eyes icy on Gaara. "I am going to prove that I deserve to live." Though unsure of what to say, Sasuke turned to face Gaara and knocked him unconscious when she realized he was not going anywhere. "I'll kill you, dumb girl." Gaara yelled. She pulled out a kunai and threw it at Gaara, saying, "We shall see." However, he blocked it, and when it exploded, the blow did no harm to him because the sand absorbed it. As he used the jutsu for the second time, 10 Narukos appeared and charged Gaara, who quickly defeated the clones but realized too late that the real one was not with them. He turned when he heard the call of Rasengan, and he was struck squarely in the chest. "Is that all you have?" he called mockingly. "Sand shuriken." She tried to avoid them all, but she managed to do so, and she ducked behind a tree as he used the jutsu a second time. Gasping for air, he looked up into the trees and smashed into the ground, the sand falling away from his chest. After telling himself, "No, I cannot lose," he yelled, "I cannot lose to the likes of her. This has just gotten more interesting," she thought to herself as he grew rapidly and revealed the demon that lived inside of him. "Play possum jutsu," Gaara said as he dozed off and the demon's eyes grew brighter. "I'm free at last," Gaara said. She needed to wake him up before it was too late because she knew this was a bad situation. She was too preoccupied trying to avoid his blows to realize that she had fallen straight into his trap. The sand began to move up her body, and she exclaimed, "Shit!" As soon as she saw it, the sand reached her neck. With crimson eyes and a cloak of chakra forming around her in the shape of a fox with a single tail, she called up to him, "Gaara." Do you want to see whose demons are stronger? After breaking free from the sand with a Rasengan, she struck the Shukaku in the leg, causing him to stumble, while the Kyuubi's chakra caught him by the throat, preventing him from using his jutsu. She leapt back to avoid the air bullet as the Shukaku escaped her hold. Looking down at Gaara, she leapt on the Shukaku's head before punching him, sending him crashing into the ground through the sand. No one in particular is addressed by the Shukaku shout. No, I just got here, he said. Turning into dust, she stumbled as she took a step as the charka faded away from her. Gaara attempted to get up but was unsuccessful. Naruko stood over Gaara and drew a kunai. She threw down the kunai, saying, "Looks like my demon is stronger," but it missed Gaara. With shock, Gaara questioned, "Why didn't you?" She said, "Because now you owe me," with a feeble smile. He could see how she would have killed her without hesitation if the roles had been reversed. He became more aware of their similarities the longer he stared at her. The more he saw through the fake smile, he began to question whether that was the reason she didn't murder him. When she heard someone say, "Naruko," she turned to see Sasuke approaching. She smiled and said, "Hi Sasuke," but he was staring down at the battered Gaara instead of her. Sasuke asked, continuing to avoid eye contact, "Why haven't you killed him yet?" She said, "There is no need to, and now since I spared him he owes me," and she staggered as she moved in Gaara's direction. Sasuke grabbed her right away. He asked her, "Are you okay?" with a voice full of panic. She replied, "I'm fine, just a little tired," but Sasuke didn't hear her and he swept her off her feet before carrying her back to the village. She screamed, "What are you doing? Put me down," and Gaara watched with a queasy feeling in the pit of his stomach. He wanted to kill the Uchiha because he detested seeing him touch her. "Gaara," two startled voices said. Temari said, "What do you want us to do, Gaara?" Gaara said, "Nothing, I have had enough fighting," while continuing to stare at the yelling Naruko. A few days later, Jeriah and Naruko have just arrived in a small town where they began their search for a woman. Although Naruko wasn't certain, the prospect of learning new jutsu was simply too alluring to ignore. Jeriah should have been teaching her new jutsu, but instead he left her in a hotel room and went out with a random girl. She pondered how she had gotten herself into this predicament as she sat on her bed. Rewind, she heard someone say, "Hey kid." While she was sitting in the hospital, she turned to see Jeriah smiling at her from her window. She said, "Hi Aro Senin," with a feeble smile. With a persistent smile, Jeriah asked, "Do you know what I heard?" "What?" she inquired, hoping he wouldn't stop training her or think she was a monster. The boy continued to smile at her. "I heard the Uchiha boy saved you from San Shinobi," he said. "He didn't save me," she yelled in frustration. "I heard that he carried you back to the village while you gazed." Love struck up at him, Jeriah went on. "That is not true," she yelled once more, her face flushed. He smiled and said, "So he didn't carry you here?" She pouted as she considered ways to get him to return the favor. "He did, but it wasn't like I need him to. I could have walked, he just wouldn't let me," she said. "I came to see if you were ready to start training since you are so weak right now that you need Sasuke to carry you, so I should just train him," Jeriah said as she prepared to leap from the window. She yelled, "I am not weak, I didn't need him to carry me." Jeriah smiled and said, "Oh, so you just wanted him to carry you?" She was even more annoyed when he began to laugh. "No, that's not it, he just picked me up and started carrying me," she said hastily. Grinning, Jeriah said, "Well then why don't we get going?" She said, "Going? Going where?" When Jeriah said, "We are going to look for someone." The expression on Naruko's face was blank. "Let me guess, it is some woman," she said. "Yes, it is a woman. How did you know?" Jeriah smiled and said. "Because you're a pervert," she said, maintaining the same expressionless expression. "Well, I guess I will go with you as long as you try anything," Jeriah said, smiling. Her head dropping in defeat, she couldn't help but smile at this childish behavior. Finish the flashback. Sitting on her bed, she wished he would return quickly so he could begin instructing her. At that moment, someone knocked on the door, wondering if the pervert had misplaced his key. She got up when he opened the door. Two men wearing black cloaks and red clouds instead of Aro Senin were standing in front of her. One of them had a similar appearance, and when she recognized him, she smiled. She continued to smirk as she asked, "So what does the infamous Uchiha Itachi want with me?" His voice was calm as he said, "You need to come with us, Naruko." Smugly, "No, I don't think I do," she said. A blue-skinned man who resembled an enormous fish said, "Oh, look at the mouth on this one. Maybe we should show her who she is dealing with." Itachi stated, "We aren't here to fight," with equal composure. Naruko turned to close the door behind her, but Itachi's foot stopped it. "That's a shame. Then I guess then there is no way that you are going to get me to go with you," she said. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" You seemed under the impression that we were asking you to come with us, Itachi stated. Maybe we should beat her a little bit. We don't have to kill her, just beat her close enough to death so she can't fight back, Kisame said with a grin. Naruko said, now this, I won't go down without a fight, as she prepared to engage him. She turned to see Sasuke standing there and exclaimed, Naruko, get away from him. Itachi, that kid looks like you, Kisame remarked, a little perplexed. Itachi calmly remarked, foolish little brother, I am not here for you, while maintaining eye contact with Naruko. Screaming, Itachi, I'm going to kill you. Sasuke powered up his Chidori and ran in Itachi's direction after the explosion subsided. Itachi was standing there clutching Sasuke's wrist. He had easily sidestepped the Chidori. Itachi broke Sasuke's wrist and kicked him down the hallway, hitting the wall as he went. Very well, if you want to fight then I shall oblige, he said. Sasuke Naruko was about to assist Itachi, but she stopped. Screaming, stay out of this is my fight. Sasuke struggled to stand up. Kisame pulled out his sword and said, let's play if you want to so badly. Naruko calmly remarked, you will regret this choice. Her entire demeanor abruptly shifting, he struck her with his sword, but she knew she had no choice but to avoid it. She couldn't have blocked the sword because it was too heavy. She was able to breach his defenses and smash a wall after striking him in the stomach with a Rasengan. That hurt, Kisame said as she stood up and gave him a fierce look as he approached her. Behind her, she heard cries of, stupid Sasuke, why did you come? Kisame grinned at her and said, we will let Sasuke go if you accompany us. They turned to see Jeriah standing there when someone else said, no, but I will give you a new deal. You let both of them go, and I will kill you quickly. Itachi remarked, Kisame, let's go. The odds don't favor us, as Sasuke's lifeless body struck the floor. Kasumi laughed and said, cruel as ever, even to your little brother, as he walked over to Itachi. Summoning. Toad Mouth Bind. Itachi and Kasumi began to flee Jiraiya's jutsu as a strange substance covered the walls. Just in time, the two managed to escape. Naruko approaches Sasuke and kneels next to him. She looked at his expressionless face and said, fool, why did you have to let your pride get in the way? Jeriah has yet to explain to Naruko why they were searching for Tsunade, one of the 3 legendary Sannin. A few weeks after Naruko allowed Jeriah to enter the village with her, Jeriah had been teaching her new jutsu during their journey, and she was eager to practice it on someone she thought they would be equally useful because she loved how the first jutsu he taught her worked. While Jeriah went in search of information regarding Tsunade's whereabouts, Naruko was strolling through the town by herself. She ran into someone because she wasn't paying attention, looking at a blonde woman with hazel eyes. She took a step back, to put it mildly. She had a rather large chest, wore a green coat, and had her hair tied in pigtails. She was accompanied by a pig and a short-haired, dark-haired woman. She pushed past Naruko and said, watch where you're going, you little brat. She paused for a moment, trying to think of a word to describe the older blonde, and finally settled on, you old hag. The blonde stopped a conceit from popping in her forehead. Who are you calling a brat, you? She said. The older blonde wondered, what did you call me? Naruko yelled, what are you deaf to, old hag? She declared, you're lucky I don't beat up lil brats, and turned to leave. Naruko shot back, you're lucky I don't fight grannies. This appeared to be the final straw, causing the older blonde to release a significant amount of murderous intent. She asked, pretending to smile, are you trying to start a fight with me? Naruko smiled and remarked, no, you started but I will finish it. The older blonde said, well, then follow me then and we can settle this, as he left. Naruko followed her and said, I guess age before beauty. As a tick mark appeared on the back of her head, they moved toward a clearing. For a moment, they stood facing one another. Well, if you don't want to make the first move, I will, Naruko said as she charged her opponent. However, the older blonde ducked her kick, giving her a brief window of opportunity to avoid the counter. The ground had split from the force of the older blonde's attack, and Naruko looked shocked. She thought nervously, I could get hit or it could be the last thing that happens to me. In her palm, she accumulated her chakra. Tsunade asked herself, just avoiding the jutsu, how does she know that jutsu? Before kicking the younger blonde, the kick was barely blocked by Naruko. Naruko attempted to get to her feet, but she had never been struck so forcefully in her life. She eventually stood up, but her legs were barely supporting her due to the pain throughout her body. Tsunade grinned and remarked, I am impressed you can still stand after that. I won't go down that easily, Naruko replied with a sly smile. She heard a voice ask, Naruko, what are you doing? And turned to see Jeriah standing in a tree, staring at her. She smiled weakly and said, nothing, Arrow Sennin, before collapsing to the ground from exhaustion. Tsunade inquired, Jeriah, Do you know this brat? Jiraiya's harsh expression changed from Naruko to Tsunade as he said, yes, she is my student, but I must say, Tsunade, I am surprised that you would fight a child. With little concern, Tsunade asked, why are you here, Jeriah? I have come to bring you back to Konoha so you can be the next Hokage, Jeriah declared as she leapt down next to Naruko. Tsunade smirked at Jeriah and said, no thanks, I will pass. Whoever wants to be Hokage is nothing more than a damned fool. Jeriah picked up Naruko after noticing that he had touched a nerve. It's a shame. What would Dan and Nawaki think if they heard you say that, she said. Tsunade yelled, what the hell do you know about them? At his retreating rear he simply kept walking away without saying anything. Tsunade's dark-haired assistant said, to think that I would meet the other two Sannin in less than a week, which made Jeriah turn and freeze. Trying to speak at a level voice, Jeriah inquired, you meet Orochimaru? Tsunade yelled, yeah, I saw him, so what of it? You heard he killed Sarutobi sensei, Jeriah said uneasily. Yeah, why do you think I don't want the job? Look how it ends for all of them, the third killed by Orochimaru and the fourth killed in order to protect the village, she replied coldly. Jeriah said, I will be in the area training my student, if you change your mind I will be around. As she turned to leave thinking he knew what Orochimaru wanted with her, he put Naruko in her bed and looked out the window, but would she cooperate? He would have to kill them both if she did that. Naruko was still sound asleep, muttering something about ramen as he sat there. As the sun started to set he stood up to answer the door, and Tsunade was standing across from him. After examining her for a moment, Jeriah decided that it would be impolite to decline free drinks. Jeriah, would you like to come out to have a drink with me? She asked. Even though it was dark outside, there was only one other man at the bar, and he had on glasses and a frayed cloak. He held an unopened drink in front of him and had short, dark hair. Jeriah suspected he was observing them. Jeriah, why are you training that kid? Don't you remember what happened to your other students? She said quietly. Yes, they all turned to splendid shinobi, Jeriah said with equal composure. She responded, maybe, but that doesn't change the fact that they are all dead. Look Tsunade, let's cut to the chase. If you join Orochimaru I will be forced to kill you both, he stated clearly. Tsunade gave him a smile after appearing somewhat taken aback by his audacity. Big words for someone who has yet to kill Orochimaru, Tsunade said, her smile remaining intact. Jeriah himself smiled in response. That is because I have had bigger fish to fry, he said. He was given another cup by Tsunade. Tsunade said, let's just forget this unpleasant business and enjoy each other's company. But just as Jeriah was about to take the drink she had given him, he felt a hand touch his. As the only other customer in the bar, I wouldn't drink that if I were you. Tsunade glared at the man who was already leaving the bar and asked, who are you? Don't you agree? He said in a deadpan voice, it would be a shame if I had to kill Konoha's slug prince. She yelled at him as she stood up, who the hell are you? He replied, me, I am Hanzo Hisashi. As he entered the room he was gone when she ran out after him. Jeriah questioned icily, why did he stop me from drinking this? Tsunade? She said weakly, don't get in my way, Jeriah, and walked out of the bar. When Naruko awoke the following morning, she was surprised to see a dark-haired woman in her room. You're awake, she exclaimed. She yelled back in surprise, why are you in my room? I was here taking care of you. We thought that you would be out for a few days, she uttered, her shock still evident. I don't know your name, she exclaimed, leaping to her feet, but nothing can hold Naruko Uzumaki down. My name is Shizune, and I work as Tsunade's personal assistant, she replied. So where is the old lady? I don't like her, I need to give her a piece of my mind, laughed Shizune. Grinned at the little blonde and thought, it's odd that you don't like her. It seems like you're just like her. Shizune remarked reflectively, I don't know, I haven't seen her since she left with Jiraiya-sama last night. The thought made Naruko pout even more. It figures that Ero Sennin would like a woman like her, she said. Well, I am going to go look for Ero Sennin so that he can teach me some new jutsu. She hurriedly changed before leaping out of the window and racing through the town in search of her sensei. A loud bang sounded as she was searching for him, and she instinctively headed toward the scene of the disturbance. When she turned to look behind her, Shizune was following her. A weary Tsunade was confronted by Orochimaru and Kabuto. When they got there a few seconds after they had arrived, Jeriah appeared. Naruko, it's been a while, but as skilled as you were, but in presence company you're nothing, Kabuto grinned. Naruko smirked and said, why don't you come over here and say that, and then we will see who's nothing. 4 clones materialized using shadow clone jutsu, and they all attacked Kabuto. He remarked, you really should learn some new, while destroying the clones. He barely avoided her Rasengan as she said, "I have." From behind when she took off her vest, it landed on the ground with a loud thump, cracking the surface the ease with which Naruko was able to keep up with Kabuto, who was proficient enough to murder several Enbu Black Ops members. Shocked Jeriah, Tsunade, and Shizune Orochimaru simply smiled at the sight. He was aware of her skill, but he was curious about her growth since he had last witnessed her battle. Kabuto believed he could avoid the first of the two kunai that Naruko had pulled out, and he had, until it changed course and tore through his shoulder, sticking in the ground behind him. Then she threw the second one, which tore through his other shoulder. She held up metal wire so it glinted in the sunlight, but his arms felt like lead when he tried to move them. As she formed a Rasengan in her free hand, Naruko smugly remarked, "Don't bother, my chakra is blocking your chakra entering your arms, making them useless to you. You know something else, I have never liked you, so this is going to bring me true joy," she said. She lunged at him, striking him squarely in the abdomen. When Orochimaru realized she had grown too strong too quickly, she stopped smiling. It was like Itachi all over again. He was prepared to kill her as he charged, but he had to make sure he got rid of the thread right away before it was too late. She saw this just in time to respond. Needle Jizo, and Orochimaru had to change his strategy as his blonde hair grew longer and wrapped around her whole body. Jeriah smiled at his astute little pupil. Jeriah prepared to fight Orochimaru, but she stopped when a terrible chakra filled the air. "Naruko, you have done well, I will take over from here," she said. They turned to find out who owned it because it was intimidating and full of power. A man wearing yellow and black armor showed up to observe the combat. "No, I will finish this," he said, making hand gestures more quickly than the human eye could follow. "Summoning jutsu," he said, and a huge scorpion materialized beneath it. Orochimaru was horrified by the newcomer. He had no means of defending himself because his arms were useless, and Kabuto's arms weren't much better either. Orochimaru knew that he would be lucky to survive 2 minutes in his current state and that this fight was unwinnable because he was up against two Sanins and the Kyuubi, who were both true immortals. He briefly considered leaving Kabuto, but he knew that if he ever wanted his arms back, he would need him. He ran to Kabuto at last, who had recovered some use of his arms after Naruko dropped the metal wire that had broken the steady stream of her chakra, preventing him from moving them. When they turned to face Scorpion, they both disappeared, and he followed suit. "So Tsunade, will you return to Konoha and become the next Hokage?" Jeriah responded. She pointed to Tsunade and yelled, "Wait a minute, this old lady is going to be Hokage. Why not you or someone else?" She was about to inquire, "Why not Danzo?" However, she sensed that Jeriah didn't really care for him. For the first time, Jeriah yelled at her, "Shut up and show some respect," and she fell silent while glaring at Tsunade. Tsunade said, "Fine, I will, under one condition," as she turned to face Naruko. Jeriah asked, unsure if he wanted to know what it was. "What is that?" Tsunade pointed to Naruko and said, "You let me train her." Jeriah and Naruko both yelled, "What?" simultaneously. The thought made Jeriah's face flush. "She reminds me of me when I was younger," she said. Naruko stated, "Very well, Ba-chan. I will become your student." Ready to absorb knowledge from two of the three Sannin, Jeriah was aware that he was about to experience two Tsunade's personal nightmares. Orochimaru's abomination. Both of them had just arrived when they sensed that someone or something was waiting for them. The man said, "Orochimaru, it's been too long." He wore a black cloak with red clouds on it, his long black hair tied in a ponytail, and his goatee, which ended in a point. "Shang Tsung, what do we owe this surprise?" Kabuto asked, closely observing their visitor. With a cool smile on his face, Shang Tsung remarked, "They sent me to finish what Itachi started because we have allowed you to do as you want for far too long." Kabuto shot back, "So you think you can defeat us alone?" But Orochimaru simply scowled because he knew he wasn't by himself. He never went anywhere by himself because he knew Shang Tsung too well. Shang Tsung, still grinning, said, "Oh heavens no, I would never dream of facing you both alone, which is why I brought a friend with me. Meet Guro and Reptile, your opponents for the evening." As a beast with 4 arms that could easily dwarf them appeared, and a man who appeared more like a lizard than a man stepped up behind them. Guro and Reptile emerged victorious from the battle, standing over the dying Kabuto and Orochimaru. Shang Tsung approached them and gestured, "Soul Entrapment Jutsu." A few days had passed since Naruko had returned to Konoha, and she was completely bored. Jeriah had simply up and left without saying anything, and Kakashi had ended up in the hospital after reportedly getting into a fight with Itachi and losing the match. Additionally, Tsunade had not yet started training her because she was preoccupied with village affairs when she heard a knock on the door. She was still debating whether it was worth getting out of bed. She opened the door to find Hinata standing there, forgetting she was still in her pajamas. "Hello Hinata, Naruko offered her a smile. She blurted out, Uzumaki, I still need to thank you for saving my life during the Chunin exam," before her face began to flush when she saw Naruko standing in the doorway wearing only underwear and a tank top. She smiled and said, "Call me Naruko," but then she noticed how attractive Hinata looked. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "Maybe I should get dressed," Naruko said, inviting Hinata in while she dressed. After Hinata pointed at her and he looked down, smiling, at what she was wearing. Naruko said, "If you want to express gratitude to someone, you should take them to get ramen. Nothing says thank you like ramen." As she left her room, Naruko was overjoyed when Hinata agreed to take him out for ramen. Naruko started training with Tsunade, who taught her medical jutsu, which she knew would be helpful, but they weren't as showy as the jutsu Jeriah had been teaching her. Over time, Naruko also started to make friends in Konoha. However, she was content and felt normal for the first time in her life. She even began jokingly telling some of her closest friends and family that she would become the next Hokage. But she soon came to the realization that this was what she truly wanted. She was aware that some people still disliked her, but those who did would make the battle for this village worthwhile. However, she was aware that nothing lasts forever and that all she wanted was for her happiness to have lasted longer. She looked down at the scroll that Danzo had given her, which contained S-ranked jutsu. "What is this?" she asked. "It is a parting gift," Danzo said coolly, and she felt his emotionless face with horror. "But I don't understand," she replied, her voice faltering. A sly smile came to his face. The following evening, knowing that she would have to leave many things behind, she had gathered the things that were most important to her. A cheery voice called out to her as she was leaving Konoha through the front gates. She said, "Naruko," turning to face Konohamaru. Naruko said, "What are you doing out at this hour? You should be home." With a chilly expression, he kept grinning at her, though, as if he was unaware of it. Konohamaru inquired, "Are you going on a mission?" "Yeah," she said hastily, "I'm going on a mission, so go home." "Where is your team?" he inquired, searching for Sasuke, who would never have permitted her to go out on her own this late at night. "You're not going on a mission, are you?" seemed to hit him like a ton of bricks. She grinned icily and said, "I'll give it to you, you're more intelligent than I initially believed." "But that might not be a good thing right now," she said, coming up behind him and knocking him unconscious. He was left lying there by her. When Sasuke found Konohamaru lying on the ground the following morning, he nudged him awake and asked, "What happened to you?" Konohamaru rubbed the back of his neck and remarked, "Naruko, she was leaving and she knocked me out." Sasuke hurried to his feet and ran in the direction of the Hokage tower. When he arrived, he simply walked in without knocking. Tsunade questioned angrily, "Sasuke, haven't you ever heard of knocking?" Ignoring her question, he said, "Naruko is gone, she ran away." Tsunade inquired, "When did she leave?" "With a start. Last night, according to Konohamaru," replied Sasuke. "Sasuke, quickly gather a team and retrieve her," Tsunade said. Given that the majority of the higher-ranked shinobi were presently on missions, Sasuke questioned, "Who do I have to choose from?" Tsunade let go of a pile of documents. After quickly looking through them, he knew who he wanted to bring along. His team, which included Lee, Shikamaru, Kiba, Neji, and Sakura, was put together an hour later. He had explained everything, and they were aware that they had to move quickly to catch up to her with their acute awareness. Kiba and Akamaru set the standard before they got to a point where it seemed like her scent went off in 3 different directions. Everything was going well as a result. They divided into 3 two-man cells while Lee and Neji went one way. Shikamaru and Kiba went another, followed by Sakura and Sasuke. Sasuke was beginning to lose hope that he would ever find her when he saw something ahead of them and accelerated until Sakura could hardly keep up. A blonde girl standing atop a statue's head caused him to pause. Without turning to face them, she remarked, "I thought my little stunt would have gotten you nice and lost." "No you didn't," the cool-headed Sasuke said. She said, "No, I guess I didn't," with a little laugh. "Now the only question is, why did you stop?" "You know I wouldn't have been able to follow you past Konoha's border," Sasuke replied. At last, she turned around and said, "I guess that I wanted to tell you in person not to follow me. But now that I am here, do you think I am going to let you just go?" Sasuke replied. "You don't have much of a choice. Do you really think you two can stop me from leaving?" She grinned. Poor little Sasuke, he could have anything but what he really wanted. "Is that right?" was Sasuke's silent response when he realized she was leaving. Sakura asked, startled by her harsh tone and icy eyes, "What do you mean?" Sasuke is recognized as a genius by the whole village, but he wants his family to recognize him. But no, he can't have that because all he has is a brother who thinks he is even worth killing. Sasuke is loved by all the girls in the village, all but the one he wants. "Isn't that right, Sasuke-kun?" she said with an upbeat tone. She knew this whole time that he thought she was just dense, but she had been stringing him along the entire time, he said, glaring at her. Sakura questioned, "Why are you doing this? Why don't you ask your father?" "Hold on a minute, you can't," she replied with a grin. "Do you know why you can't?" "He's dead," was Sakura's quiet response. Naruko inquired, "Do you know who killed him?" Sakura replied, "They said he died fighting off the sound and sand shinobi," to which Naruko erupted in laughter. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Naruko repeated to herself, "No, it can't be true, it's not true. You stupid little girl. I killed him along with his friends," she continued. Naruko paused to allow her words to sink in before posing the question, "Do you hate me? It's true no matter how much you want to deny it. The facts remain, I killed him. I have been playing you all this time," she said. "Why are you doing this? What is it that you are trying to accomplish by doing this?" asked Sasuke. Naruko smiled sweetly at him and said, "It is simple. I came to learn new jutsu so I can have my revenge." "Your revenge?" "Yes, revenge like you want your brother dead. I want to kill everyone in Konoha, and I will, because unlike you I am not weak," she replied with a grin on her face. "I don't believe that. If you wanted us dead, then why haven't you done it yet?" replied Sasuke. Naruko watched their response and said, "Don't worry, Sasuke-kun. Everything will work out in due time. I can kill you today, or you can turn and go home and live for just a little longer." After saying, "I'm sorry, we can't let you go," Sasuke turned on his Sharingan. Naruko said, "So that is how it's going to be," with a gentle smile. Sasuke calmly stated, "Sakura, stay out of this. This is between me and Naruko." Naruko drew one of her own kunai as Sasuke charged her, and her eyes briefly flashed crimson. Sasuke made the error of momentarily letting his guard down. Naruko used this opportunity to strike him in the middle of the face, wiping the blood from his face. Sasuke fell back after Naruko was consumed by Sasuke Jutsu's fire style. Fireball Jutsu. She disappeared when the flames subsided. When Sasuke saw a foot approaching his face, he dashed to the edge. He was able to avoid it. Her smile was mocking. "If that little fire is all you have, then you should just give up now," she said. "If that is your best punch, then you're in trouble." Sasuke shot back before she disappeared. Naruko gave him a wink. Sasuke turned, and this time, her kick struck him square in the face, sending him flying off the edge of the table. Sakura didn't know what to do and jumped after him, but he told her not to, because if he lost, she might lose both Sasuke and Naruko. Naruko landed gracefully on the water's surface while Sasuke crashed into it. When Sasuke emerged from the water and looked up into Naruko's stern face, he suddenly realized something. She was serious, and beating her was the only way to save her. Sasuke stood up and said, "Naruko, I will not allow you to leave Konoha, even if it means my death." Naruko charged Sasuke and managed to evade her attack. "I think this is something that is out of your hands, but if you want to die I can arrange that," she said. She slammed him against the cliffside. Sasuke stood up and threw everything he owned at her. She attempted to dodge his blow, but he was able to read her every move thanks to his Sharingan. She never thought he would be so hard to beat. She could barely dodge his blows with her superior, but she couldn't strike him. She activated her own Sharingan and uttered, "I will admit that you are strong, but you still aren't strong enough to beat me." Sasuke stared at Sharingan, then at her horrified. His voice was shaking as he asked, "You're a Uchiha?" The tone of her voice was mocking. "Heavens no, I am not a part of that pathetic clan," she said. Sasuke hoped this was the reason she hadn't used the Sharingan earlier. "Well, you might have the Sharingan, but since you aren't a Uchiha you don't have our endurance," he said. However, he assumed there was another explanation when she started to laugh. "How does it feel to be wrong so often?" Naruko chuckled. "But you are right, I don't have the endurance of the Uchiha. Mine is much better. I also just have the Sharingan. I also possess the Byakugan along with a few other bloodline traits, so ask yourself, do you really have what it takes to beat me?" After staring at her for a while, Sasuke noticed that she was not her usual cheerful, upbeat self, nor was she the icy person he had witnessed her turn into during combat. "I know you don't want to fight me. I can see it in your words. I can see it in your face. Just come back with me," she said, urging him to flee because she didn't want to fight him. Naruko asked, turning to face the statues of two shinobi, "Do you know where are?" "Valley of the End," Sasuke replied, unsure of her meaning. "Did you know this is where the first Hokage and Madara Uchiha had their battle? Madara left because of what he felt was unfair treatment of the Uchiha clan," she continued without looking at him. "It's funny now, it's Uchiha trying to bring someone back to Konoha. Why are you doing this? I thought you wanted to become Hokage, and with your skills you could be." Sasuke yelled at her. The statues of the first and Madara, two of the strongest shinobi in history, were still in her line of sight. Someone like me could never become Hokage no matter how strong I am. It is a silly dream, but I never really wanted the job anyway. Put my life on the line for a bunch of ingrates, no thanks, she said with a smirk. Sasuke claimed that his Sharingan began to change from having 2 tomo to 3. That's a lie. I know it was just like I know the reason you stopped is you wanted me to catch you. You wanted me to bring you back, he said. You were right about one thing, I wanted you to catch me, but not for you to bring me back, but so you could understand. You did everything you could, but your best wasn't enough to bring me back. I wanted you to understand that I left of my own free will, she stated as she prepared to keep fighting. A Chidori appeared in Sasuke's palm as he said, I'm sorry it has to come to this, but I will beat you within an inch of your life and drag you back to Konoha. I won't let you leave me. Her chakra started to swirl in her hand as she said, big words for someone who hasn't proven he is up for the challenge. If it weren't for me you would be long dead. Her Rasengan struck his Chidori, but the force of the 2 jutsus blew them away from one another. Naruko rose cautiously, wishing she had practiced her jutsu a bit more. When she looked up, Sasuke's Chidori had already torn through her shoulder, causing her blood to spill into the water below. She had a startled expression, but it was soon replaced by a smile. She whispered to him, you know you should have aimed to kill me. No, now you can't fight. I have won and you are coming back to Konoha with me, Sasuke replied calmly. He saw that her eyes had changed, the pupil was a slit, and her wound had started to heal. You haven't won anything yet, we are just getting started, she said, reaching up and grabbing his wrist and yanking it from her shoulder. She disappeared. He searched the area for her, but it was too late. She struck him in the side of the face first, then grabbed his arm and kicked him across the face. She didn't let go until after the follow-through he crashed into the valley side, and she felt a sharp blow to his stomach. He stooped and coughed up blood, so she knelt next to him and whispered in his ear. She started to leave but halted when she saw him stand up. She ran at him and kicked him, causing him to crash into the cliff wall and fall to the ground, but he got back up. Can you see the truth yet? You can't beat me, she said. She yelled at him, why are you trying so hard? Why won't you just stay down? She lost it when he simply grinned at her and began punching him in every available inch, but he kept getting up no matter how hard she struck. She slammed her fist into his chest and yelled, why won't you just stay down? I'm not worth dying over. He drew her in and held her tightly, whispering to her, yes, you are because I love you, he said. She looked up at him and said, I'm sorry, but as soon as she slammed her Rasengan in his stomach, the smile vanished from his face. His eyes widened in shock as he slammed into the wall this time. Instead of getting up, he slid to the ground. She approached him and made sure he was still alive, which he was. Tears were streaming silently down her cheeks. Naruko. Sakura called out to her. You should really be concerned with Sasuke right now and forget about me, Naruko said without turning to face her, unless you think you can fare better than Sasuke, which we both already know the answer to that. Rewind. She looked down at the scroll that Danzo had given her, which contained S-rank jutsu. What is this? She asked. It is a parting gift, Danzo said coolly, and she felt his emotionless face with horror. But I don't understand, she replied, her voice faltering. A sly smile came to his face. You are being hunted by a group of S-ranked Nin, and as long as you are here you are a danger to the entire village, and becoming Hokage will be useless if everything is destroyed, Danzo stated. Her voice was emotionless as she asked, will I be able to return? That all depends on if the threat has been eliminated and what the leader of the time thinks of you, replied Danzo. If I do leave, will you make sure that no one tries to find me? Of course, said Danzo. Finish the flashback. She watched from a distance as Sakura cared for Sasuke and then disappeared as Sakura turned to face her. I'm sorry everyone, she said. After 4 years on this day 4 years ago, a young Anbu member sat at Training Ground 7 and gazed down at his hawk mask. Recalling the agonizing incident, nobody knew the specifics of that day. They only knew that he had lost and had not succeeded in bringing her back. The young Anbu turned and saw Kakashi leaning against a tree. Yo, he said, you know sitting here mopping around won't bring her back? Turning away, he continued to gaze at his mask. I haven't told anyone this. Near the end of the fight she said something to me, he said, going silent as he did so. Kakashi walked beside him and sat down, asking, what is that she said? With his eyes shifting from his mask to the sky, Sasuke uttered, she said she wasn't worth dying for. At first, I thought she meant that she was going to kill me, but now I think she meant something else. Kakashi questioned, what makes you think that? I know if she had wanted to she could have killed me and Sakura, but she didn't, replied Sasuke after Kakashi inhaled deeply. Sasuke turned to face him and asked, what do you know? There are people after her. I don't know if that is why she left, but Jeriah has been keeping tabs on a group known as the Akatsuki, all S-rank shinobi, and among them is your brother Itachi. replied Kakashi. With a voice full of panic, Sasuke asked, "Have they found her yet?" "Not as far as we know, and going directly after her would be foolish even for them," Kakashi replied calmly. Sasuke found it incomprehensible that he was so composed. How could she be okay if shinobi like his brother were pursuing her? It appeared that Kakashi had accurately read Sasuke's panic. She is a very skilled shinobi, but she is nothing to her sensei, who I am guessing she is with, and that is why the Akatsuki won't bother going after her as long as she is with him at least yet. Sasuke remarked, "If she had stayed here, there would have been more of us to protect her, two of the Sanimi, you and the others," failing to see the reason for her decision to depart. "Yes, she would have had me and you, Tsunade-sama and Jiraiya-sama, and maybe a few others, but you don't understand, she grew up being hated by most of the villagers, so it's not surprising would trust them to protect her, and as for the few that would, I am guess she didn't want anything to happen to them, and that is why she didn't kill you or Sakura," replied Kakashi. Sasuke stood up angrily and remarked, "But if she is worried about the two of the Sannin being killed, how could she trust her safety so completely to her sensei, who is just one man?" "Calm down, Sasuke. I recently spoke to the Grandmaster of the Lin Kuei about her sensei. It all started about 20 years ago. There were two rival clans, the Lin Kuei and the Shirai Ryu. It is said after most of Shirai Ryu was wiped out, they blamed the Lin Kuei and they attacked, and three brothers defeated the Shirai Ryu shinobi. The brothers were said to be as strong as or stronger than the Sannin. Then they came face to face with a shinobi by the name of Hanzo Hasashi, the last of the Shirai Ryu. He gave the three brothers all that they could handle, but in the end they were victorious and killed Hanzo Hasashi. A year later, a shinobi calling himself Scorpion appeared, and this Scorpion killed two of the three brothers and defeated the third but let him live," Kakashi clarified. Sasuke asked impatiently, "Okay, so what does this have to do with Naruko's sensei?" "Everything. Her sensei is Scorpion, also known as Hanzo Hasashi," Kakashi answered. Sasuke remarked, "But you told me Hanzo Hasashi was killed." Kakashi grinned and said, "He was," looking up at him. "But then how? Hanzo Hasashi is an immortal, he can't be killed," Kakashi continued with a grin. "Well, as nice as our chat has been, I have come to get you because Hokage-sama has summoned us." At the Tower of Hokage, when Sasuke knocked on the door and said, "Enter," a voice called to him from the other side. Kakashi entered the room and saw Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro standing in front of Tsunade's desk in her office. As Sasuke glanced between the three Sand siblings, Tsunade remarked, "I know you're wondering why I called you here. I want you two to select 4 more shinobi to accompany you on this S-ranked mission with the Kazekage." After a brief glance at Gaara, Kakashi asked, "What is the mission?" before turning around. "The Kazekage is venturing far from Suna and he wants to pay us for extra protection," Tsunade stated. Sasuke said, "So can we choose anyone we like?" "Yes," Tsunade replied, and Sasuke and Kakashi disappeared from the room, returning to the former training area. Think aloud. "Well, since we don't know much about this mission, we should bring a medical shinobi just in case," Kakashi said. "Sakura," said Sasuke plainly. "That's a good choice. We should also bring a Hyuga. Their Byakugan will come in hand," Kakashi stated. "Hinata," replied Sasuke. He blurted out, "I was thinking Neji. Hinata is good," as Sasuke gave him a sidelong glance after the mission to recover Naruko. Neji and Sasuke's relationship deteriorated even more. "I was thinking Shikamaru. His skills would be useful," Neji said of Sasuke. "Kiba," Sasuke added. Nodding, Kakashi grinned at him and remarked, "That is a good pick, but I am surprised you would suggest it." "Don't get me wrong, I don't like the guy, but he is a skilled shinobi," Sasuke replied. Sasuke nodded, and they both disappeared. "Well, let's go collect our team," Kakashi said. "You get Sakura and Shikamaru and I will get the other two." When they finally met at the gate an hour later, Sasuke turned to Kakashi and said, "He insisted and Hokage-sama agreed to it, so no, we have one additional shinobi." He was shocked to see Neji with the group. "So what is the real mission?" Sasuke asked Gaara after they had left the village. Temari responded, "We are aware of what happened 4 years ago, and we also learned that the Council of Konoha declared that no party could be sent to look for a certain missing shinobi." Sasuke stated, "So we are all aware of that fact," in a chilly manner. "And by hiring us we can go look for her without disobeying the council," Shikamaru continued, "so that means you know where she is." "According to Gaara, we have an idea," Neji inquired, "and where did you get this idea?" Temari said, "Jeriah-sama," in response after 3 days. They were in Iwamochi, a small village. When they arrived at a small inn, an elderly woman welcomed them and said, "More foreign shinobi, we have been getting a lot of you lately." Kakashi inquired, "How many rooms do you have available?" The woman smiled at him and said, "We might have 3, will that be fine?" Yes, and I have one more thing to ask you. You said that you have been getting a lot of foreign shinobi lately. Did they ever say why they were here? No, but they have been asking about this ghost town, to the north. Rumors say it is where the Shirai Ryu used to live. It's on an island about an hour boat ride out. She laughed. Sasuke questioned, why do they ask about it? She shrugged as she gave them the room keys and remarked, well, I guess they are trying to steal the secrets of the clan. Kakashi said, thank you very much, and bowed whispering, I think tomorrow we check out the island. She added. Sasuke didn't sleep at all that night because his thoughts were constantly wandering to Naruko this time, though, it was more than that. It was the thought of seeing her once more. He remembered the day as if it had been yesterday. Even though it had been 4 years since he had last seen her, Sasuke couldn't wait for the morning to arrive. Sasuke was the first to wake up when it did, but he had a nagging suspicion that they weren't the only ones going to the island today. Just in time, they arrived at the docks and boarded a boat that would transport them to the island. They made their way to an abandoned village on the island, which still had remnants of its former splendor. Despite being in ruins, they traveled to a building in the center of the village, surrounded by tall iron gates that were partially destroyed and had holes in the wall that served as reminders of the conflicts that had previously taken place there. As soon as they entered the building, a chakra larger than most cages pressed down on them, crushing them as the air became dense with it. Both Neji and Hinata attempted to use their Byakugan, but it was unsuccessful because the air was so dense with chakra that it was impossible to determine its source. A falsely sweet voice called out from the shadows, hello, and they all froze when they heard it. They searched the area but found no one. It appeared to be simultaneously coming from everywhere and nowhere. Hello, was Sakura's final response. The voice repeated, why would 7 shinobi from Konoha and 3 from Suna come here? When Sakura said, we are looking for someone. When they looked up, they saw a blonde girl with long hair, bright blue eyes, and 3 whisker marks on her face. The voice seemed much closer and came from a single source. You have found someone, but is it the someone you were looking for? She was dressed in a black midriff shirt, an orange skirt, an orange vest, and black shinobi sandals. She had been beautiful before, but now she was breathtaking. The years had been very kind to her. Naruko? Sasuke questioned, staring up at her incredulously. The one and only, she said, grinning foxily. So what brings you all the way out here? You, said Gaara plainly. She jumped down and said, me. Now why would you come all the way out here for me? Turning their faces all red in the process. Kakashi responded, we have come to take you back to Konoha. Still grinning, she said, oh, and how do you plan on doing that with only 10 shinobi, puppy sensei? All of them gazed at Kakashi, perplexed by the moniker. Kankuro remarked, you seem to be sure of your skills, as he observed her intently. I will make you a deal. If you all can beat me, I will return to Konoha. If you can't and I let you live, you must not come looking for me again, she said with a sweet smile. Sensei isn't here right now, so it will just be you all against me. With a shout, you can't beat 10 of us, Kiba said. She continued to smile and said, well, if that is the case, then you have nothing to worry about. She left the building and walked past them to a battlefield. The others offered to fight her as well, but Kakashi raised his hand and said, Naruko, I don't want to fight you, but if it is the only way to bring you back, I will. No, I will do this on my own. She continued to smile as she remarked, Kakashi, you are either very intelligent or overconfident. Kiba questioned, what does she mean by that? It's simple. By fighting the 10 of us all at once would seem like an advantage, but at this situation where it would be in her advantage, Shikamaru said. According to Kiba, I still don't follow. She has her full range of jutsu available to her where we do not. If we use our jutsu in this small battlefield with so many of us being on the same team, it is more likely we would hit each other instead of her, said Shikamaru. She is smarter than I thought, which could be troublesome for us. Naruko, I want to say I am sorry I wasn't able to save back then. I just wanted you to know that, Kakashi told her. With a sincere smile, Naruko remarked, I know, but I am not that helpless little girl anymore. I don't need you coming in to save the day. Look, my man, our target met up with their target, a blonde man in a black cloak said to a short man wearing a mask, pointing to 2 men. One with a black mask and a gray hood, and the other with white hair holding a sickle. The man said, it would seem so. In a deep voice, Naruko turned to look at the 4 members of Akatsuki. You only sent 2 after me. My feelings have been hurt, Naruko groaned, and you didn't even send Itachi. So you know who we are? The silver-haired man inquired. Well, I don't know who any of you are, but I know you're Akatsuki members, she said with a grin. 8 clones emerged and launched an attack during Shadow Clone Jutsu. While she watched from a distance, she grinned when her clones were destroyed. What's amusing? Inquired Katsuzu. She said, you will see, and withdrew a single kunai, which she threw at Sasori. He deflected it with his tail, but he was completely destroyed. Kakashi explained that she appeared where the kunai was right away and struck Sasori with her Rasengan. Kakashi exclaimed, "Flying Thunder God Jutsu," his eyes wide with surprise and incredulity. Katsuzu responded, "Interesting, I thought only the 4th Hokage could use that jutsu," expressing admiration for the girl's abilities. Her eyes turned crimson and 3 tomos as she said, "This is just the beginning, I have much more in store for you." With a wicked smile, an attack from behind her was evaded by her. She said, "Got you," so that only Hidan could hear her, and they locked eyes. He charged her after she disappeared, and he looked up to see her standing a few feet away despite doing her best to avoid his attack. She suffered a facial cut after drawing Jashin's symbol and licking the blade across his black, white-marked skin. He stabbed himself in the heart. When the genjutsu subsided, he became aware that he had stabbed Deidara rather than Naruko. Naruko mockingly remarked, "Wow, at least you got a blonde, but I think that was the wrong blonde." He charged her, saying, "You bitch," but she ducked his blow and retaliated by jamming 2 figures in the shoulder, which caused him to drop his weapon. She then repeatedly struck him in the other shoulder in a similar fashion. "It can't be, she just blocked every one of his chakra points." Neji gasped. She ducked under a puppet's attack and leapt back. She looked back at the others and thought, "I guess I don't have a choice, I have to use it." Wind style. Rasen Shuriken, she threw, and it exploded, engulfing them all. A clone materialized next to her, and a weird howling screech filled the air. "Needle Jizo," she said, shielding herself from the blast with her hair covering her body. He dropped the jutsu after the explosion subsided, but she was shocked to see that one of them had carefully gotten to his feet. She had the strength to launch one final attack, throwing a kunai, which he avoided, then appearing behind him and hitting him in the back with a Rasengan. When she was finished, she collapsed to her knees, panting. If that didn't work, she would have to tap into the Kyuubi's chakra, which she didn't want to do unless she had no other option. Her eyes were returning to normal. Sasori turned to see a puppet on the ground that resembled him. "You are skilled, and I see why you would be insulted that only 2 of us were coming after you," she said. She remarked, "The heart." Observing the hole in the puppet beside her, she attempted to stand up, but she was too exhausted. "Well, it looks like I have no choice, do I?" she said as she began to stand up. She smiled back before collapsing to the floor. "Naruko let me finish this as payback for 11 years ago," Kakashi said with a smile. When Naruko first woke up, she was by herself in a cave, but she felt a strange chakra. She sat up and looked around, but she couldn't find any insight. "I would take it easy if I were you," a positive voice said. She yelled, "Who the hell are you and where the hell am I?" as a man wearing an orange mask appeared. He said cheerfully, "I am just your friendly love Abel Toby, and we are somewhere we can talk in private," and she saw that he was dressed in a black cloak with red clouds, just like the 4 she had previously dealt with. She asked, keeping her gaze fixed on the man, "So you're a member of the Akatsuki?" He said, "No, not yet, but I hope soon," while jumping up and down and wildly clapping his hands. She became irate and remarked, "So you thought if you hand me over to the Akatsuki and you would get a free ticket in?" "No, I just brought you here to talk," he went back. She got up and yelled, "Don't fuck with me," but her attack went straight through him. "Fine, I won't," he said, his voice no longer cheerful. She was caught by the neck as she turned to attack him once more. "You are skilled, I will give you. I can see you truly are their child." His words caused her eyes to widen. He was aware of her parents' identities. Grinning at her response, he put her down and let her throat drop. Her voice was weak as she asked, "Who are you?" "I am Uchiha Madara, one of the founders of Konoha, and I have tried to destroy the village a few times. The 3rd time I was there I managed eliminated the cursed Uchiha clan, so only 3 of us remain. I believe you know the other 2, Sasuke and Itachi." "Why did you kill your own clan? Why did you let Sasuke and Itachi live?" Madara sat down on the bed she had been lying on and remarked, "By that time, I had no loyalty to that cursed clan who turned their back on me first. They thought I just wanted power and destruction." She questioned, "So that wasn't the case?" Madara said, "I just wanted to protect my people and all I desire is peace, but no at the cost of our freedom." But that is not how they saw it, with a hint of resentment in his voice. "So you happened to let those 2 live because?" "It was Itachi's plan. He said that he would help me get revenge on the Uchiha clan, but in exchange I couldn't touch Konoha or his little brother. I later found out that he took the mission to wipe out the Uchihas to prevent a civil war, and he was one of the few people that knew I was still alive." "Your 3rd time, so what happened your first 2 times?" "The first time I was defeated by Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, a man that I respected beyond any other until I met him, but I will get to that in due time." After my defeat, Mito Uzumaki decided to make sure that Kyuubi was placed out of my reach by sealing it within her body. In doing so, she became the first Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi and the wife of the first Hokage. Sometime later, when she neared the end of her life, they found a new host. They chose a young girl by the name Kushina Uzumaki, and she would later to become the wife of the fourth Hokage. Do you know when the seal used to imprison the Kyuubi is at its weakest? Naruko gently raised her head. Childbirth. She was pregnant, but not many people know for many and obvious reasons. But I knew it was my chance to take my revenge on that village. So when the seal was at its weakest and gave Minato a choice, the life of his very young child or the life of his wife. He chose his child, but he was a greedy man. He tried to save his wife. To no prevail, I freed the Kyuubi, which was under my control, but I soon found out why he had become Hokage at such a young age. He broke my control over the fox and wounded me. At the same time, he managed to stop the fox by imprisoning in his newborn child body his only daughter, in hopes she could use the power to save the village that would hate her for that same power. Her voice was trembling uncontrollably as she asked, "You mean my father was the fourth Hokage?" She looked up at him, wondering what he could possibly want if he wasn't talking to the Akatsuki. "Yes, and your mother was the former Jinchuriki, but that is not why I came here to talk to you about," she said. "You recall a certain Sannin by the name of Jeriah?" she asked. "Yes, what about him?" Madara said. "He died trying to protect you," and stood up. She questioned in horror. "How?" Jeriah was among the strongest shinobi she had ever encountered, and despite all of his obvious shortcomings, he seemed invincible. Then she realized, You killed him," and yelled, prepared to strike him once more. "No, I don't have the power right now to kill Jeriah. It was one of my subordinates. He could have gotten away, but I wanted to meet this child that he was willing to put all his faith in, who he was willing to die for, and now that I have met you, I can see why you are very talented, just like your father and your sensei Hanzo Hasashi." Madara stated that her surprise was obvious. "Yes, I know about Hanzo Hasashi, a man stronger than any of Kage's and a man who cannot die even if there was someone strong enough to defeat him." "How do you know all of this, and why are you telling me this?" Naruko asked. "I am telling you because I am offering you a chance to get your revenge for your Jeriah in a tournament called Mortal Kombat, and everything else will become clear in time," he said while grasping her shoulder. The next thing she knew, Sakura, Hinata and Temari were sound asleep in a hotel room. She decided she needed some fresh air and left the room. "I see you are awake," a voice said behind her as she sat on the hotel roof, gazing out at the moon. She turned to see Kakashi standing there, reading his usual book. "Kakashi, can I ask you something?" Kakashi smiled, or at least his version of a smile, and said, "I am guessing something other than that." Without glancing at him, she asked, "Do you know who my parents are?" When asked honestly, "I was never told who your parents were," Kakashi replied. She turned to face him and said, "But you know who they were." "Yes, I do," he said flatly as he gazed into her painfully bright blue eyes. She said, "Tell me then, who are my parents?" as tears silently streamed down her cheeks. Kakashi replied, "I apologize, but that is not my place to tell you. If you can't tell me who my parents are, then who will? Who is going to tell me who my parents are?" Naruko yelled at him. Kakashi's voice remained flat as he said, "Jiraiya-sama will tell you when the time is right." Whispering to herself, "But Ero Sennin is dead," she said. Uncertain of what he had heard, Kakashi questioned, "What was that?" She said, "Nothing. I'm sorry." I yelled good night, Kakashi-sensei, as she left for her room. Perhaps Ero Sennin is still alive, and the fourth isn't my father, she thought as she returned to her bed. However, why would he go through all of that merely to lie and discuss what he wanted to discuss? If she could demonstrate that he was lying about Ero Sennin, the truth would be straightforward. He would be lying about her parents' identities. However, that would only lead to more questions if he wasn't. At last, she dozed off uneasily. She discovered something she had last night when she woke up. A map showing the Mortal Kombat tournament location. After putting the map in her pocket, she met with everyone and they all agreed that she would go back to Konoha. She kept her abrupt shift in attitude toward going back to the village a secret from them, since that was what they had originally desired. Nobody questioned it. A few days before they returned to Konoha, there was a mixed response to her arrival. While the majority of the younger shinobi were happy, the older generations weren't exactly overjoyed. She didn't give a damn. The only reason she had come back was to discover the truth, and Jeriah held that responsibility. Tsunade's office was the first location she visited. Naruko walked into Tsunade's office without knocking and asked, "Ba-chan, where is Ero Sennin?" For a brief moment, she remained silent as she attempted to identify the girl who was speaking to her in this way. Tsunade finally exclaimed in surprise, "Naruko?" Naruko repeated, "Yes, now where is Ero Sennin?" Naruko said, He is out looking for the leader of a group known as the Akatsuki, with a horrified expression. Her voice was distant as she asked, "Who did you send with him?" "No one." Naruko gazed into space with unresponsive eyes. She stated, "So it's true," in the same aloof voice. Tsunade hurried over to Naruko and put her hands on her shoulder, saying, "What is true, Naruko? What's wrong? Naruko, please answer me." In the same distant voice, she said, "He is dead, Jeriah is dead, so does that mean was the rest true too?" Tsunade exclaimed in shock, "What do you mean Jeriah is dead?" Naruko remained silent and simply stood there, but her astonishment quickly gave way to rage. "Why?" she inquired, her crimson eyes flashing. Tsunade said, "Naruko," with concern she yelled, "Why did you let him go? Why did you send him to die?" At Tsunade, who was horrified to learn of Jiraiya's death as the 5th Hokage left the office, Naruko turned away. In a week, Mortal Kombat began when she opened the map after making sure no one was nearby. As soon as Ero Sennin was killed, it was decided that she would attend the tournament and exact revenge. She would kill the jerk who had killed him no matter what. She began the tournament after spending enough time in Konoha. The Uchiha compound. A knock on Sasuke's door interrupted his dinner preparations, and when he opened it, Kakashi was standing there. "Yo," he said, resting against the door's frame. Sasuke was shocked to see his sensei standing in front of him and asked, "Kakashi, what are you doing here?" With a calm demeanor, Kakashi said, "I have come by to ask if you had seen Naruko." According to Tsunade-sama, she was very upset about something. Sasuke responded, "No, I haven't seen her since we returned," wondering if she was with Shikamaru or, worse, Neji. Kakashi appeared to understand his thoughts. At this point, Kakashi began to worry. "I have already checked other places and I can't find her," she said. Kakashi turned to see Itachi standing there observing the two of them. "I know where she is or where she will be," he said. When Sasuke tried to attack, Kakashi intervened. "Where is she?" Kakashi inquired, preparing to fight if necessary, but he hoped that would not be the case. Itachi stated, "She is on her way to a tournament, one in which I will be taking part in," without indicating that he wanted to engage in combat. Without letting his guard down, Kakashi inquired, "What is this tournament that she is taking part in?" "Mortal Kombat. It puts the world's strongest against each other. She has entered to face Jiraiya-sama's killer," Itachi responded. "Kakashi-senpai. Sasuke, I will be looking forward to seeing you both at the tournament." Kakashi picked up the piece of paper that was a map after Itachi exploded into hundreds of crows that flew off in all directions. People they hadn't seen in years were already waiting when they arrived at Tsunade's office. In front of Tsunade were 4 Lin Kui members. Tsunade inquired, "Kakashi, have you found her?" "No, she has left for a tournament known as Mortal Kombat," Kakashi replied, looking as though she had already deduced that from her expression. Following a brief pause, Kakashi said once more, "Jiraiya-sama is dead," and she knew. Tsunade questioned, "How do you know he is dead?" as she wondered how everyone else knew this. "Itachi told us when he told us about the tournament," replying Sasuke. Tsunade yelled, "Itachi, he is here in the village?" Kakashi answered, "No, it was just a clone sent to give a massage." In a calm voice, Subzero stated, "We are joining this tournament as well along with Scorpion and Raiden-sama." Kakashi appeared taken aback by Raiden's participation in the competition. "Who is Raiden?" Sasuke inquired, unsure of the significance of this individual. "Raiden is a master of lightning jutsu along with wind, water and storm jutsu. His skills are legendary, some even say he is the strongest shinobi alive," explained Sub-Zero. Sasuke smirked as he said, "Sounds fun, I think I will enter this tournament as well." Kakashi, "Sasuke, I am assigning you a mission, you are to enter this tournament," Tsunade stated. "Yes, Hokage-sama," Kakashi said, bowing his head slightly. "Will it just be the two of us or will we get a full team?" asked Sasuke. Tsunade inquired, "Was there someone you had in mind?" "No, not really," was Sasuke's calm response. Sub-Zero calmly remarked, "Well, if that is all, I think we should get going." Hydro paused next to Sasuke long enough to whisper something that only Sasuke could hear as he and the other Lin Kui fighters left through the door. Hydro smirked as he walked out of the room, and Sasuke glared at his retreating back. "Leave Naruko to me. You have proven she is too much for you," he said. They were plowed out of the village by him and Kakashi. After a week, Cyrax had given up on trying to be a peacekeeper, but Frost was still capable of keeping the peace, but her patience was wearing thin. The tension between Sasuke and Hydro was at an all-time high, and they had made it clear that they didn't like each other. The only question now was who would try to kill whom. "I will kill you both myself if you don't shut the hell up," declared Frost, who had finally had enough of the two. Sasuke and Hydro both fell silent, but they continued to yell at one another. You two are pathetic, fighting over a girl that quite frankly might not like either of you. They both began to glare at her, but she simply returned the glare. As he read his book, Kakashi questioned, how many do you think we will be bringing back with us? With a bored tone, Cyrax said, one if we are lucky, as they all gathered in a large dining hall that was crowded with tables and covered in food. Sasuke's first sight was of a small, blonde girl sitting by herself. Scorpion was among the people who quickly began to occupy the seats surrounding her. Another featured a man wearing a black and gold coolie hat with a tight-fitting back hood and elegant white, blue, and gold clothing that featured the Thunder God's kanji on the back. Another was a young man with long black hair who appeared to be around Itachi's age. He wore red and black pants and a gray muscle shirt. The last man was about an inch shorter than the dark-haired one, and his hat, which had a wide rim and appeared to be razor-sharp, obscured his face. Subzero moved in the direction of the group. Naruko showed no indication that she had noticed any of the scorpion eyes that flashed in their direction for a moment before ignoring them. Subzero started introducing everyone, but the other three turned to welcome him. These are my students Hydro, Frost, and Cyrax. They are shinobi from Konoha. Sasuke Uchiha and Kakashi Hitaki, Subzero said, pointing first to the biggest man with the Thunder God on his back, then to the man in the gray shirt, and lastly to the man wearing the murderous-looking hat. He is Raiden-sama, and he is Liu Kang and Kung Lao. Then Raiden looked at them and said, yes, aren't they the candidates for the next Hokage? For a single moment, Naruko looked at them. Kakashi responded, I don't know about me, but he is, while continuing to read his book. I have heard rumors of the great copy ninja, the master of 1,000 jutsu. Liu Kang mentioned, you sell yourself short, he said at the compliment. Kakashi grinned. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You have all been gathered here to take part in a tournament. All of you are considered the best of the best. A man wearing a long ponytail on his back and with green eyes addressed the crowd. Tonight I wish for you all to enjoy yourselves, for tomorrow the battle begins and it might be the last chance you get to relax. For you all who don't know, my name is Shang Tsung, the host of this tournament, and the winner of this tournament will get the chance to make one request of me, and if it's in my power I will oblige. The rules of the tournament are simple, the man continued, smirking, and the battles can be called at any time starting tomorrow at dawn. You lose the fight if you give up or rendered unable to fight, whether it means you are unconscious or God forbid dead. Scorpion's eyes were fixed on the man on stage, but he was unreadable. You have the right to challenge people outside of scheduled battles, but both parties must agree to these battles, said Shang Tsung. So enjoy your feast and our other accommodations for tomorrow being's Mortal Kombat. The first person to leave the table without touching any of the food or beverages was Scorpion. He watched Shang Tsung the entire time without saying a single word. Naruko followed him soon after. A man wearing an orange mask blocked her path as she entered the hallway. He said in a cheerful voice, Toby is so happy to see you here, which made her frown when he said, Itachi-senpai, no need for scary faces. She turned to see Itachi standing there. Itachi simply looked between them for a moment without saying anything. He finally said, I know what you are doing, while keeping his gaze on Toby. Toby is a good boy, he said in a positive tone. I don't know what you are talking about. Itachi left without saying anything more. Naruko, she exclaimed, turning just in time to see Sasuke approaching. She hurriedly said, I was, after turning to see that Toby had disappeared. Wasn't doing anything, she added. Sasuke asked with a hint of annoyance, oh, so you thought that you would run off to find the person who killed one of the Sannin by yourself? Sasuke didn't like the way she was staring at him, so she asked, why do you care what I do? Before smiling and turning to leave, you never learn, do you? She asked. Sasuke knew who he wanted to fight the following morning, and the fight didn't take long. Itachi, I challenge you to Mortal Kombat. Sasuke confronted Itachi, who was sitting by himself and gazing up at the sky. Itachi looked at Sasuke and said, foolish little brother, you really think you can beat me? Very well, I will accept your challenge. Since Itachi remained where he was, Sasuke took the initiative and threw a kunai at him. It struck him squarely in the head, but he turned into 100 crows. Sasuke searched the area for him. He turned around when he sensed a menacing presence behind him and saw Itachi standing there. Itachi hadn't activated his Sharingan when Sasuke leapt back. He stared at Sasuke with icy black eyes, quickly drawing 2 kunai. Sasuke hurled them at Itachi, who took a direct blow to the chest but again turned into a crow. However, instead of flying away, these crows transformed into shuriken and yelled at him. They were all blocked by Sasuke. When was I exposed to his genjutsu? When Itachi looked at him, Sasuke realized that their eyes had briefly locked. Itachi remained seated in the same position as Sasuke broke the genjutsu. Itachi stood up at last and said, "Sasuke, do you know why I let you live?" "You let me live so I can kill you," Sasuke said, charging with a fully charged Chidori. However, just as he had done the last time they met, Itachi easily blocked the attack before kicking Sasuke in the chest and pinning him to the ground. Itachi exclaimed, "I let you live so you too could develop your Sharingan, so when my eyes failed me I could take yours." As he extracted Sasuke's right eye, Sasuke managed to escape Itachi's hold, but a strange shadow was approaching him from behind. He attempted to flee as it attempted to take his other eye, but he was immobilized. Everything went dark, but in the next instant, Sasuke could see Itachi sitting in the same spot he had been since the fight started. When Sasuke yelled, "I won't fall into your genjutsu again." People define reality by what they believe to be true and correct. But what does it mean to be true or correct? Merely nebulous concepts. Their reality may all be a mirage. Can we consider them to simply be living in their own world, shaped by their beliefs? So what is your reality? Now you know what I am going to do. How are you going to stop me? Itachi asked Sasuke, who stood motionless. The genjutsu felt so real that he could break it. Was Itachi really that much stronger than him despite all the training he had done? He looked up to see Naruko standing a short distance away. Watching the fight, he was aware that he needed to prove to her that he was more than the helpless boy she had known he was in order to defeat Itachi. Sasuke yelled, "I'm going to kill you all, make that my reality." When Itachi saw that Naruko's expression had changed, he looked over and saw that he was standing there grinning slightly, which Sasuke noticed. He insisted, "Why are you smiling?" "Nothing," was his response. Rewind when Itachi knocked on a door in the hallway. A small blonde girl wearing boxers and an oversized t-shirt emerged. "What do you want?" she asked icily. Itachi calmly remarked, "Sasuke is going to challenge me tomorrow. You should be there." "Why?" inquired Naruko, curious about his intentions. He walked away, leaving a bewildered Naruko, saying, "I am his hurdle that he must overcome, but you must be his inspiration to overcome that hurdle." He stopped abruptly. "Finish the flashback. Let us start this last fight," Itachi said calmly. Both brothers produced blasts in fire style fireball jutsu, which collided to produce an explosion. When Sasuke saw that Itachi had closed his right eye after the flames had subsided, he believed that he had hurt him because blood was streaming down his face, but when his eye opened and black flames roared out, he knew that was not the case. A dragon made of fire yelled and struck the black flames with fire style Great Dragon Fireball Jutsu, but Sasuke's jutsu was easily defeated by the black flames. Sasuke was able to get away from the black flames that were devouring everything they came into contact with. Itachi appeared weaker than he should have, and Sasuke realized that something was wrong. Itachi narrowly avoided Sasuke's charge on another Chidori. Sasuke observed that Itachi was also moving more slowly now, and he pondered whether this was due to Itachi's most recent jutsu or something else, but he was going to end it now, for whatever reason. Sasuke created another Chidori, but this time he chose not to pursue Itachi. "I created this jutsu just for you, Itachi," he said as lightning erupted in the sky. Kirin. Then a huge dragon materialized and crashed down, blinding everyone in its path with the intense light. Sasuke mistakenly believed it was over when it faded, but Itachi was still standing there with an odd flame that had begun to form all around him. "That is a nasty jutsu. If it wasn't for Susanoo I would have been killed, and this Sasuke is my final jutsu. I have showed you all my tricks, now it's time to get what I came for," Itachi said as he walked towards Sasuke. When Sasuke threw kunai, they simply bounced off the Susanoo. "No, stay away," he said. There was no way for Sasuke to escape because he was exhausted. Itachi's hand was outstretched in front of him, but instead of reaching for his eyes, it tapped him on the forehead. As he smiled at Sasuke and leaned forward into his arms, Itachi whispered something to him, unaware of what was happening. Sasuke collapsed to the ground, exhausted, still clutching his brother. The final thing he saw before his vision became blurry was Naruko approaching him. Rewind. Sitting on their home's porch with Itachi, Sasuke asked, "Nisan, why does it seem like you don't have time for me anymore?" as he turned to face his older brother, who was staring off into space. Itachi replied, "I apologize, Sasuke, I'm a little busy with my Anbu responsibilities." Sasuke sulked and remarked, "But you are never around. You and I are flesh and blood. I'm always going to be there for you, even if it's only as an obstacle for you to overcome. Even if you hate me, that's what big brothers are for." Sasuke remarked, "But I could never hate you." Fast forward. After Sasuke had killed everyone else, Itachi told him, "Foolish little brother, if you wish to kill me, hate me, detest me and yet survive in an unsightly way, run away, cling to your life." Fast forward. Itachi smiled and prodded Sasuke's forehead, just like he used to do when they were younger. "Pardon me." Sasuke, it ends with this. Finish the flashback. The only question now is why Itachi did this to him, but after Sasuke's shout up, everything began to make sense. The only question now is why Itachi did this to him, but after Sasuke's shout up, everything began to make sense. Sasuke soon realized he was not alone. Naruko was sleeping next to him and had bruises all over her body, as if she had been in a violent altercation. As he recalled his location, he realized that he would have been even more shocked if she hadn't. When he saw another person wearing an orange mask, he decided to wake her up. I would let her just sleep for now, the man wearing the mask said. Sasuke glared. Who the hell are you? After asking. Unaware of what had transpired, Madara was engulfed in black flames. Me. My name is Madara Uchiha. I helped your brother destroy the Uchiha clan, he said, removing his mask to reveal his Sharingan. It looks like Itachi wanted to keep me from you. It seems he figured I knew more than I was letting on. Madara briefly vanished into the shadows before resurfacing with the appearance of someone who had never been attacked. Sasuke snapped. What are you talking about? Keep your voice down, you might walk up out, little friend. Madara replied. If you knew the truth, would it change your feels towards Itachi? All Sasuke could think about was killing the man earlier, so he remained silent as if to guess his thoughts. Madara said, your brother let you kill him. I won't be so kind. Sasuke glared at Madara and uttered, what the hell are you talking about? He didn't let me kill him. Yes, he did. Do you really think someone as weak as you could defeat Itachi? You are nowhere near Itachi's league. If he would have been so sick, I think he might have been stronger than me, Madara said, enjoying the impact his words were having on Sasuke. The truth about Itachi is that he hated violence, and he only killed his clan to save you and the village he loved so much. You're lying! Exclaimed Sasuke. Keep your voice down, but it is true. You see, the relations between the Uchiha clan and the rest of the Konoha was strained to the point that a civil war could have broken out at any moment. It all started with the Kyuubi attack. The Uchihas were blamed for this, and rightly so. It was a Uchiha who was responsible for the attack. It was I who released the Kyuubi on the Konoha, but I was throttled once again by a Hokage who trapped the Kyuubi inside a child. Sasuke exclaimed. The fourth Hokage killed the Kyuubi, startled. No, he didn't. You can't kill the Kyuubi, even someone as skilled as he. The truth is that you know the Kyuubi. How well? That I don't know. Sasuke yelled. Really? I think I would know if I knew a demon. Madara questioned. So is that all she is to you, a demon? Who is she? Madara said. I thought that was obvious, as she turned to face the girl who was sleeping. Sasuke exclaimed in surprise. Naruko is the Kyuubi? Does that change the way you see her? Do you see her as a monster? Do you see her as a demon? After watching Naruko, Sasuke began to understand why she was so powerful, why everyone detested her, and why she had left Konoha. Well, after that, the third Hokage tried to repair the relations with the Uchiha, but when that failed, they sent your brother to destroy them to prevent a civil war. And he knew I was still alive, so he found me and offered me a chance for revenge on the Uchiha clan that had turned their back on me under two conditions. One, I didn't touch the rest of Konoha, and I didn't harm you. That can't be true, but it is. He killed his mother, his father, his best friend, his lover. He killed everyone but you. You were more important to him than the village itself, Madara continued. He wanted you to become a hero known for killing the traitorous Itachi Uchiha and Madara Uchiha. Now you know the truth. What will you do? I don't know, Sasuke said, lowering himself to his knees in response. Sasuke turned to face the sleeping Naruko as Madara said, it's time for your next battle. I don't think Naruko can handle fighting any more of your battles for you and hers. Before disappearing, when Sasuke stood up and left, he was shocked to see that Hydro was his opponent. Sasuke Uchiha. I have been waiting to this day for a long time, but I was half expecting to see Naruko considering she has been fighting your battles lately, Hydro said with a smile. Don't worry, this won't last long, Sasuke said, his eyes switching from his normal Sharingan to his Mangekyo Sharingan. No, you are going to see why the Uchiha is known by all and feared by all. Hydro smirked and said, you think those eyes of yours will save you from me? The two of them prepared for battle, both eager to kill the other, knowing that this was not going to go well. Kakashi, who had just finished his match, watched from a distance. To be honest, he would be shocked if at least one of them died. There were other people watching the match from a distance besides Kakashi, though Madara was having fun with his handiwork, and Sasuke would either prove he was deserving of the moniker Uchiha or perish if he had written it any better. Naruko would soon be pushed to the brink, and his plans would be one step closer to becoming a reality. Both young shinobi were demonstrating their considerable abilities when Sasuke's eye erupted in black flames, instantly engulfing Hydro. However, when the flames subsided, a pool of water formed where Hydro had been. His words, good Sasuke but no good enough, came as he turned to see ice kunai flying in his direction. Everyone believed it was over, but in a split second, things were reversed. Sasuke was encircled by black flames that began to shape themselves into warriors. Under his mask, Madara grinned and remarked, "Susanoo, very interesting. He has more skill than I give him credit for." He saw that Naruko was awake and watching the fight with a terrified expression on her face. She said, "That's enough," but neither of them was listening to her or paying any attention. Hydro was reluctant to approach Sasuke because he didn't know what jutsu he was using, so they kept fighting. She yelled, "I said that's enough." But they persisted in fighting. Madara showed up next to Naruko. Madara put his hand on her shoulder and asked, "Why do you want them to stop?" Her response was, "Because they are my friends." Madara whispered, "Really, because they don't care about you?" Sasuke himself said it himself, "You are nothing but a monster." Naruko explained, "No, he would say something like that," and shook her head. "But it is. The only reason he come to look for you in the first place is he didn't want anyone else to have your powers. He hates you along with everyone else in Konoha." Madara stated that she enjoyed the impact his words had upon her. "Why do you think that they are willing to kill each other knowing that you care for both the other? If they cared for you they would never put you through that." She yelled, "Leave me alone." And a lot of chakra filled the air, stopping the fight and blowing Madara back. Her eyes turned red instead of blue as the red chakra whirled around her. Together, Sasuke and Hydro exclaimed, "Naruko," and they both stepped in her direction. She yelled, "Stay away from me," and as her chakra intensified, they came to a complete halt and she disappeared from view. "This is too perfect. At this rate the seal will break on its own and the world will be at my feet. Just a few more things I need for that to happen," Madara said as he disappeared before Shang Tsung. He reappeared and said, "You will fight Scorpion?" Shang Tsung said dispassionately, "And why would I do that?" "Because it is all part of my plan to push Naruko over the edge," declared Madara. "What is so important about this child?" Madara replied, "She is the one who has the Kyuubi." "Then why not just take her like you did the others?" "Because even without the aid of the Kyuubi she would be difficult to take down because of her own skills and Scorpion. It seems that someone has given her both Sharingan and Byakugan," Madara replied. Shang Tsung said, "Very well," and departed to find Scorpion. Shang found him in no time at all. He was with Naruko, who had regained control over her chakra but was still upset. Shang Tsung said, "Scorpion, I challenge you to mortal combat," in a calm voice. Scorpion said, in a voice that only she could hear, "Naruko, I have thought you ever secret of my clan, and either way this turns out this is goodbye." Naruko asked in confusion, "Sensei, what are you talking about?" Scorpion turned to Shang Tsung and said, "This is the man who killed my clan and killed my family. My name is Hanzo Hasashi. You killed my family, and I'm going to kill you now." As he swiftly made the hand signals, summoning enslaved souls, Shang Tsung simply grinned. A woman and a small child appeared in front of him, both grinning broadly at Scorpion. "Hanzo," said the woman tenderly. The boy grinned and said, "Daddy," to his dad. "I will not see you on the other side," Scorpion said, his eyes blank as he left his family's faces. "This is the final farewell where I am going." Shang Tsung declared, "I will release their souls if you die without any problems." Scorpion yelled, "No, I will kill you and set them all free and we will reside in hell together for all times." As fire erupted from the ground, and Shang Tsung could hardly avoid the strike, Scorpion was just barely spared by a green blast before vanishing in a flash of flames and resurfacing behind Shang Tsung, where he kicked Shang Tsung in the face. Summoning enslaved souls, Shang Tsung said as the entire Shirai Ryu clan came into view. As they gazed at the yellow specter shinobi in front of them, some people asked, "Hanzo, is that you?" The oldest man asked, "Are we here to fight you, Hanzo?" After surveying the clan facing the best warrior among them, Scorpion remained silent, but he understood the meaning of his silence. "It is good to see you again, my boy, but I wish it was under circumstances," the Grandmaster said with a deep sigh. "But before we are forced to fight you, I just wish to tell you that you have carried on the name of the Shirai Ryu very well." Scorpion then started fighting with his clan's men, but he found it harder than he should have because he was fighting people he had previously fought alongside, people he would have sacrificed his life for, but for now he had to send them back to the other world. In Fire Style Hellfire Jutsu, a powerful burst of fire erupted from the ground, devouring everyone. He hated to have to do this to them, but he had no other option because fighting each of them with taijutsu was taking too long. Only Scorpion and Shang Tsung were left. When the fire subsided, there was pain in his normally emotionless, blank eyes. He began to fade away, but Scorpion's chakra was stronger than ever. "Shang Tsung, I am going to end this," he said. "Get over here." He launched a spear from his hand, striking Shang Tsung in the chest and causing him to move in Scorpion's direction. Scorpion grabbed Shang Tsung by the throat as he approached, and the two men disappeared. Naruko yelled, "Sensei! Sensei!" But Scorpion was nowhere to be seen. As she dropped to her knees, she exclaimed, "Sensei!" with tears streaming down her cheeks.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.